Warning. Host faces irreversible reproduction. Survival 0. Death, exhaustion, organ failure. Death by SNUSNU. Now my apartment. I've been ice-guyed. Caveman. All women. Where the hell am I?
Bulabakasoma.
Auto-translate. Built-in cheat code.
Glossa charm.
Ah. Men are this scarce around here? They don't want my life. They want my lineage. Then I've got bargaining chips.
Take him to her cave. Tonight mine.
With this body? No way I'm surviving tonight by brute force. I need another plan. Hold on. Don't panic. I'm not dying like this. God-tier survival farming system officially activated. Starter kit pending. Scanning host's physical condition. Severe injuries. Constitution, 3. A certified puny weakling. Immediate overhaul recommended. Target group average constitution, 85. So what if they're 30 times stronger? Their brains are still stuck in the Stone Age. The knowledge in my head beats every stone axe they've got. System simulation initiated. Simulated event. Forced reproductive duties tonight. Simulation result. Survival rate 0. Cause of death identified. Severe physical exhaustion leading to organ failure. 0%. Who said I'm living for you people? Everybody back off. Stop yanking my pants.
Interesting. A man. Besides breeding, what else are you good for?
I can give you something far more valuable than a man. I'm an emissary sent from the heavens. I can bring you the sky flame. A divine skill that banishes the night and the cold. With fire, even the fiercest saber fawn will tuck its tail and scurry away at the sight of you. Complete nonsense.
Chief Test G1. Outsider men are all cunning liars. There's no such thing as a glowing sky flame. He's just stalling. He's a demon who brings disaster. I've survived 60 winters and roamed every corner of this wasteland. Never once have I seen any flame sorcery.
You old hag. Just wait till you hear yourself scream. Triggering newbie survival quest. Start a fire before the tribe. Quest reward. Novice potion plus 100 civ points. You dare make a bet with me? Give me a dry piece of softwood, a hardwood stick, and a handful of dried lacquer grass. If I fail to summon the sky flame, do whatever you want with me. I won't resist. Go get them.
You'd better actually deliver this fire from the heavens. If you're lying to me, I will eat you alive, inch by inch.
Eat me alive, sis? Just try not to swallow your own tongue first. Good thing I've binged every survival show known to man. About drills, just basic fire starting 101. Ha ha ha.
Chiefess G1, you're seeing this too. He's completely lost it. Stop wasting our time. I've already had the spirit which prepare the stone bed.
Shut it.
Hey, skinny runt. My patience is officially gone. Now march your ass to the back cave, and I'll make your death quick.
Back off. You're blocking my light.
Whoa.
Ha ha ha.
Stop him. That's a demon stench. He's summoning disaster.
Ah,
I dare anyone to move. Let him finish.
come on, you stupid thing. Light up.
The Chiyuan tribe kneels before the emissary.
Hold on. The Sky Flame's gift isn't finished yet.
What do you mean?
The Sky Flame was never just about staying warm. It grants food a whole new power. Skewer the meat on a hardwood stick. Hold it over the fire. Keep it turning. Don't stop.
Emissary, is this truly the power of the sky spirits?
Try it. Ah, first cooked meal in the tribe. Civilization just skyrocketed. 200 save points unlocks salt refining and shelter crafting. This barbecue just cemented my emissary reputation for good.
Emissary. Meat's done. Time to get down to business. Your flame is impressive. Your brain is sharper than every woman in this tribe combined. So I want an heir as clever as you. Tonight.
Warning, warning. Host is facing an irreversible reproductive event. Survival, 0. Cause, total collapse. Organ failure. Death by overexertion. Chiefess, do you want a puny, short-lived weakling? Or a king who will rule the wild?
What do you mean? How could my heir ever be weak?
Look around you. Dark, damp, drafts ripping through every crack. How could the blood of the sky spirits be born? In a place rats would dig for shelter? A king who rules the wild must be born in a palace blessed by the sky spirits itself. 10 times bigger, 100 times warmer. No wind or snow. No beast breaking through. If we mate now, in this place, the cold will seep into your womb. The child will never grow tall. Won't survive its first winter. It will be an insult to everything we believe in.
An insult to our faith? Then what do you propose?
Give me 1 month. I will build you that palace. Only a life conceived that would be worthy of the name Chiefess Chiyuan.
A month. I'm giving you 1 month to deliver this palace of yours. Emissary. You'd better pray you can actually deliver this palace. If you break your word.
Ah, crap. If I can't produce a house by then, this wild woman will absolutely make me pay with interest. This isn't sleeping. It's sleeping on a guillotine. Damn, look at this pathetic setup. Flat broke. Building a palace in a month? Absurd. Do you walk without making any sound?
Emissary, I am Bailu. Chief Test Chi-Yuan has ordered me to guard your safety.
This wild girl's actually kind of cute. Might as well use her. Ahem. Bailu, since you're my guard, does that mean you have to fulfill my every need?
Yes.
Great. Go find me a big rock and bring it over. Whoa. She's a human crane. This free labor is amazing. Ah,
Empty-handed again. Praise gone deep. There's not even a rabbit on the outskirts anymore. At this rate, we'll starve to death before the deep winter even hits.
food stores are almost gone. The palace is a distant worry. Food is the urgent problem right now. Bailu, since you're my guard, does that mean you have to fulfill my every need?
Yes.
Great. Go find me a big rock and bring it over. This isn't sleeping. This is napping on death row. Look at this dump. Flat broke and falling apart. A palace in a month? Impossible. Ever heard of walking with sound?
Emissary, I am Bailu. Chief Test Chi-Yuan sent me to ensure your safety.
This wild woman's actually kind of cute. Might as well put her to work. Hi, Luo. Since you're a guard, aren't you supposed to meet my every need?
Yes.
Good. Go find a big rock and bring it here. Holy shit. A human forklift. Free labor for the win. Ah, ah.
Empty-handed again, third day. Games fled. Can't even spot a rabbit on the outskirts. At this rate, we'll starve to death before Lingdong even gets here.
The food stores are nearly gone. A palace is a distant dream. Food is the urgent nightmare. Linzhou stared at the rough sketches by his feet. Cold sweat beaded on his forehead. If he couldn't solve the food problem, the palace would never get off the ground before this pack of starving wolves pinned him to the stone bed. Just as Linzhou's brow furrowed, racking his brain for a way out, he suddenly felt a fiercely predatory gaze on his back. He turned his head. The tall woman from the crowd, who'd been shouting yesterday about draining him dry, Kuang Lan, was striding over, a massive bone club resting on her shoulder. She stood nearly 6'3", muscles cored like steel cables, like a grizzly bear walking upright. Right now, Kuang-Lan's eyes, brimming with lust and contempt, were locked onto Lin Zhou, along with the fresh sketches by his feet, and the half-built wooden fence Bai Lu had started. Her gaze was a naked provocation. Bam! A dull, explosive crack. The thick wooden stake, half driven into the mud, was kicked clean in half. Splinters and stinking sludge flew straight at his face. The charcoal stick in Lin Zhou's hand skidded off course. He snapped his head up. A towering figure built like an iron pagoda was trampling through the half-built wooden fence. You think this garbage can stop a hungry saber fawn? Or fill an empty belly? Gripping blood cake bone club, she closed in. Massive dried blood bone club closing in. The guy was nearly 6'3", nothing but corded muscle. Eyes full of raw savagery and violence, locked on Lin Zhou down on the ground. Pure, undisguised contempt written all over his face. The bone club came whistling down with a rank gust of blood stench. Smack! He roughly hooked it under Lin Zhou's chin and forced his head up. Kuang-Lan stared down at him from above. His rough tongue dragged over cracked lips. Eyes sizing Lin Zhou like meat. Weakling but sneaky. Forget building your stupid shelter. Everyone's starving right now. Might as well drag you into the cave and drain you dry. At least leave the tribe a few brats. He whipped his head around. Roared at starving warriors. Sisters, the prey's gone. Are we supposed to just watch this? Outsider man out here playing with sticks? Keep wasting food on him? Better to have our fun first and drain every drop of his seed. Hunger and the urge to breed are the two drives a primitive can't resist. The moment those incendiary words left Kuang-Lan's mouth, nearby warriors gasped. They tightened their grips on their bone spears, and the way they looked at Lin Zhou shifted from last night's reverence straight into naked, hungry desire. A few of them even found themselves stepping closer to Lin Zhou without meaning to, being stared at like a lamb for slaughter by a pack of muscular 6-foot wild women. Made Lin Zhou's scalp prickle. He could barely breathe. These women were starving past reason. They really would tear him apart and swallow him raw. Back off. In that split second of crisis, a cold, sharp shout rang out. A shell shield as heavy as iron slammed hard into the mud. The ground shook. The one-eyed girl Bai Lu stepped forward like an emotionless wall, planting herself squarely between Lin Zhou and Kuang-Lan. One-eyed, held shield, refusing. Kuang-Lan's furious eyes. Bai Lu, you dare block me? A half-blind cripple like you? Kuang-Lan exploded with rage. Raising club. Drop it. A hand suddenly patted Bai Lu's shoulder from behind. Lin Zhou forced his racing heart to settle, and shoved the massive shield aside with one push, then strode straight up to Kuang-Lan. Right now, his physique was only at 5 points. In front of Kuang-Lan, I'm as fragile as a matchstick. But I know too well, in a strength-worshipping tribe like this, the more you cower, the faster they'll drain you dry. Lin Zhou lifts his chin, staring straight into Kuang-Lan's murderous eyes. A mocking sneer curls at the corner of his mouth. Your pea brains, only seen humping. Yet you judge this tribe's future? You're dead meat. Kuang-Lan's eyes bulge. She raises her bone club. The sky spirits didn't just give me fire. Lin Zhou's voice suddenly booms louder. It rips through the camp like a thunderclap. Aren't you all sick of foul-tasting meat? Sick of being too weak? Sky spirits sent their will, granting me the white divine crystal. He glares at Kuang-Lan, every word deliberate, radiating the crushing superiority of a mind from a higher plane. Just one pinch of that stuff can turn the most revolting, rotting flesh into an absolute delicacy. And more importantly, eat the divine crystal, double strength and bone density. Double their strength. Kuang-Lan's raised bone club freezes midair. A flash of shock and skepticism flickers through her eyes. Lin Zhou presses the advantage, going full hype mode. That's right, with the divine crystal. You'll shatter Saberfang's skull with one punch. You short-sighted morons. All you ever think about is what's between a man's legs, but you'd rather turn away a sacred gift. It'd rule the wasteland. Piss off the sky spirits. And every last one of you will starve to death this winter. Those words strike dead center, hitting the most fatal weakness in every primitive soul, an insatiable hunger for power. Female warriors flip at doubled strength. Their bone spears lower. The way they look at Lin Zhou reignites with fanatical anticipation. Emissary, is there truly a divine crystal that makes one stronger? If it's a gift from the sky spirits, then it must be true. Public opinion flips in an instant. Kuang-Lan watches her people turn against her. She feels the authority she worked so hard to whip up, crumble to dust in seconds. Her face twists with rage, trembling all over. Bullshit. You foreign scamming bastard. Kuang-Lan boils over with fury. She slams her bone club into the ground, blasting out a crater. Fine. If you claim there's a divine crystal, then show it. You've got 3 days. If you can't produce this so-called divine crystal in 3 days, I'll snap your legs right here and now. You'll be dragged to the back cave as a breeding stud for life. 3 days. Fine. Deal. Lin Zhou was grinning ear to ear on the inside, but his face showed only a cold sneer. This was exactly what he'd awaited. He turned a threat into a bet with a countdown. And now he had a legitimate reason to leave camp, to go hunt for resources. But the sky crystal landed in the eastern swamp sanctuary. Since I'm retrieving a sacred relic for the tribe, I can't walk there and die along the way. Lin Zhou suddenly turned and looked at Ji-Yuan, who had been standing on a high stone platform, watching coldly the whole time. Chief, that's Ji-Yuan. I want Jingjia and the 5 best warriors in the tribe to escort me to the eastern swamp. Lin Zhou rapidly pulled up the system panel in his mind. The progress bar for basic salt refining was flickering faintly. He remembered from his scouting yesterday. A female warrior had casually complained about something. In the eastern swamp, shrouded in thick fog, there was a patch of bitter, dead water even beasts wouldn't drink. Bitter, dead water. That was absolutely top-grade natural inland brine. If he could get his hands on that brine and refine it into snow salt, these bumpkins who'd barely eaten cooked food in their lives would absolutely treat salt as the real sky crystal. Ji-won stood high above, looking down at Lin-jo with utter contempt. After a long pause, he slowly raised his hand. Jingja, take some people and go with him. Ji-won's voice was cold enough to freeze the air. He locked eyes with Lin-jo. He warned him, word by word. Emissary, don't even think about running. If you return without the sky crystal in 3 days, I'll shatter every bone in your body, so you won't even have strength to be a breeding stud. At the crowd's back, in the dark corner, the old crone Kumu leaned on her skull-studded staff. Her murky, inverted triangle eyes were locked onto Lin-jo's back. The corners of her mouth split into a venomous grin, and she let out a grating, jagged cackle. Chapter 10, The Public Oath. The salt grind before the deadline. 3 days. Oof. For a foreign liar, who's offended the ancestors? 3 days is way too generous. The old crone Kumu, leaning on that skull-studded staff, hobbled out from the back of the crowd. She slammed the staff into the muddy ground. The bones rattled with a harsh, grating sound. Cutting off the situation Lin-jo had just barely stabilized. Her murky, inverted triangle eyes were glued to Lin-jo. Her withered lips flapped up and down, like a venomous snake flicking its tongue. Huanglan, you've been fooled by this scrawny monkey's sweet talk. What white sky crystal? Per the ancestors' laws. There's no such thing, you old hag. What are you implying? Huanglan gripped her bone club, visibly pissed. All I mean is 3 days. That's the limit. Kumu whipped her head around. Her bony finger jabbed straight at Lin-jo's nose. But the bet stands. No sky flame in 3 days. He won't just be at your mercy. His title stripped, and he burns at the stake. Sacrifice to the ancestors. The moment those words left her mouth, the air around them turned to ice. Burned alive as an offering? In this primitive tribe, that's the cruelest death sentence there is. Huanglan's brutality only tortured the body, but Kumu's move was absolute. She sealed off every escape route Lin-jo had. She was going to scatter his soul into the wind. Holy crap, this old fossil is ruthless. She's straight up going scorched earth on me. Lin-jo's heart slammed against his ribs. Cold sweat drenched his back instantly. Ji-won stood above. Her brows knotted tight. A flicker of hesitation crossed her narrow green eyes. Jingja and the other guards looked even more troubled. They exchanged glances, sharing one despair. 3 days. Out here in this wasteland where even wild fruits been picked clean. To conjure up a relic that doubles one's power? Impossible. The entire tribe stared at Lin-jo, like he was already a charred corpse. The suffocating pressure was enough to drive anyone insane. Burned alive. In the dead silence, Lin-jo suddenly threw his head back and let out an unhinged, maniacal laugh. You old hack, inside that walnut-sized brain of yours, is there room for anything besides ancestors and bonfires? Lin-jo smacked Kumu's pointing hand away. His gaze sharpened, presence exploding. Deal. I accept your challenge. But if we're betting lives, you're raising the stakes too. What do you want? Kumu's face darkened. Lin-jo swept his eyes across the crowd and raised his voice. I bring back the sky flame crystal in 3 days, proving the might of the sky spirits. Then Huanglan, and you old hag, will kneel before the entire tribe and kowtow to me. You'll acknowledge me as the true emissary. So do you dare? Using sheer audacity to mask the panic underneath. This move flipped the script and stomped the enemy's trump card into his own stepping stone. Why wouldn't I dare? When the time comes, I'll peel the skin off you strip by strip. Huanglan's eyes went bloodshot with rage. She roared through gritted teeth, her club smashing a crater. Huh, such arrogance. Enjoy that pyre while you can. Kumu grunted coldly. The tribe witnesses. Lin-jo couldn't even bother glancing at those two idiots again. He turned and strode toward the stone platform where Ji-won stood. Head raised, he locked eyes with the chiefess. Chiefess Ji-won, betting my life. Need the strongest spear and shield. Jingja, Bailu, plus 3 more of your toughest warriors under my command. Ji-won gave him a long look and didn't waste a word. Just flicked her hand. Jingja, pick your people and go with him. Jingja gripped her bones spear tight. Her gut was churning, but the chiefess's word is law. The squad assembled fast. Lin-jo looked cool as eyes on the surface. He frantically scrolled his system panel from recon. He made a point of pumping Jingja about the surrounding terrain. That swamp shrouded in thick fog to the east. A bitter dead water patch. Beasts gag drinking it. That's it. Gotta be a natural brine spring. Only high salinity water tastes that harsh and bitter. If I can get my hands on it and refine snow salt. These yokels who've never even tasted salt will literally worship salt like a god. Bring all the leftover cooked meat. Bailu, check your tortoise shell shield. Strap it tight. Jingja, stock up on bone spears and rope. Lin-jo barked orders with total precision, like a modern expedition leader heading into the wild. His disciplined, airtight approach to inventory was a stark contrast to the primitive recklessness around him. That cool, sharp command presence settled the nerves of Jingja and the others, just enough to steady their hearts. All smoke and mirrors. Huanglan stood off the side, cracking his thick knuckles with a nasty sneer. You worthless punk. I'll sharpen my blade. Don't die in that swamp. That'd be letting you off way too easy. Old hag Kumu stayed silent, just gave a subtle wave from the shadows. 2 scrawny cronies got the message instantly. They slipped to camp's edge to tail him. Lin-jo ignored every insult and scheme. Move out. With one wave of his hand, he led his little squad of 5 fierce women out through the gates of the blood-myriad camp. To the east, the swamp lay smothered under a blanket of gray-white fog. The air reeked of rot and damp. Lin-jo knew all too well these 3 days. Not just salt. Watch for ancient predators lurking in the swamp, ready to rip them apart at any second. The clock was already ticking. The team had barely gone a mile from camp. Just as they were picking up the pace, a strange herbal fragrance drifted over on the cold wind. It cut right through the raw, earthy stench of the wilds. Hold up. Jingja skidded to a halt. His grip tightened around his bone spear. A pair of pale, slender hands gently parted the withered grass ahead. A woman with a swaying gait, dressed in relatively intact, soft furs, an old bamboo basket slung over her back, wearing a gentle smile, so eerie it made your skin crawl, stood silently blocking the path in front of the group. The herb fairy, Bansia. Chapter 11. Bansia's care, a gentle backstab. Emissary, you still carry internal injuries. How could you possibly head into a death trap like the swamp? A strange herbal fragrance drifted over. Bansia, with an old bamboo basket on her back, swayed her way in front of the group. She wore relatively intact, soft furs. Her voice was soft as a feather, a total contrast to the loud mouth. Battle axe women back in the tribe. Bansia, move aside. Jingja gripped his bone spear. His brow knotted into a death scowl. The chiefess gave the order. We have 3 days to bring back the sky crystal. No time to waste here. Captain Jingja, that swamp is crawling with toxic muck. If the emissary collapses, can you handle it? Bansia didn't even glance at Jingja. Her gaze was glued to Linzhou the entire time. A smile that looked gentle on the surface, but sent a chill down your spine, lingered on her lips. Linzhou's eyelid twitched. What the hell? Why is this woman smiling like? Some spider came straight out of his cave worth. He was about to wave her off, but after those few steps just now, his insides genuinely ached like they'd been sandpapered raw. The potion only healed the surface. The internal damage still had roots. Fine, make it quick. Linzhou stopped. In front of the most inscrutable, wise-guy face he could manage. A flash of delight flickered in Bansia's eyes. She stepped forward immediately. With practiced ease, she untied the fur covering Linzhou's chest, then pulled out a handful of blackish-green herbal paste from her basket that reeked to high heaven. The moment the paste touched his skin, Linzhou sucked in a sharp breath. It smelled like socks fermented for a decade. A bone-deep chill shot through him. The searing pain in my chest was miraculously suppressed. Didn't expect you to have skills like that. Linzhou raised an eyebrow. You flatter me, chiefess. Bansia's fingertips gently roamed across Linzhou's firm muscles, moving with a precision that bordered on inappropriate. The young female warriors nearby were staring, eyes wide. Low, restless growls rumbled from their throats. To these starving, man-starved primal tigresses, Linzhou was a glowing piece of forbidden meat. Why let others touch him? Done with medicine? Back off. Jingja finally snapped. Stepping forward, the shaft of her bone spear sweeping straight at Bansia's shoulder. Bansia sidestepped, almost casually, using the bamboo basket on her back to deflect Jingja's spear with a solid thud. She pressed forward, using her voluptuous body to wedge herself between Linzhou and the surrounding female warriors. In that split second, Linzhou clearly caught a flash in seemingly gentle healer's eyes. A ferocious, possessive hunger. She wasn't protecting her food. She was marking her territory. Chiefess, Bansia took advantage of the turn, suddenly pressing her burning lips close to Linzhou's ear, her voice dropping to a whisper. Last night you mentioned offhandedly, there's a way to plant seeds in the ground, to give the tribe a harvest every year. Is that true? How exactly would it work? Linzhou's heart jolted. Every alarm in his head went off. Damn, all the other women in this tribe have nothing but muscle and mating on the brain. Only this Bansia sensed the terrifying meaning behind those words. How farming could completely change the tribe's fate. This woman's intelligence was absolutely top tier among these primitives. You want to learn the ways of the sky spirits? Linzhou subtly put some distance between them. A sly, old fox smirk tugging at his lips. Farming isn't just digging a hole and burying some seeds. Read stars, test soil, no seasons. Without me, even if you buried every last seed, all you grow is poison weeds. Trying to get my core tech? Not a chance. Bansia's eyes lit up, her breathing quickening. Her awe toward Linzhou deepened instantly, even with a hint of fanatical devotion. This was far more tempting than mere mating. Bansia understood now. The emissary must return safely. Bansia stepped back half a pace and bowed with deep reverence. Then he pulled 2 roasted wild fruits from close against his chest and tucked them into Linzhou's pack. Then mysteriously fished out a small paper packet, wrapped in a broad leaf, and pressed it firmly into Linzhou's palm. This is my special revitalizing herb. The swamp is thick with miasma. If danger strikes and you feel dizzy, sniff this to save your life. Bansia winked at Linzhou, then turned and sauntered back toward camp. Go! Stop dawdling. Jingja glared at Bansia's retreating figure and barked out the order. The group set off again. Linzhou walked behind Bailu's massive shield, and while no one was watching, quietly opened the leaf packet. Inside was a small pinch of dark brown powder. He carefully lifted a bit to his nose and gave it a gentle sniff. Achoo! What the hell? A violently pungent, eye-searing odor blasted straight to his skull. Tears burst from Linzhou's eyes instantly. 1,000 tiny knives slashed inside his nasal cavity. His brain went completely blank. Revitalizing my ass. This is straight up high-grade blinding spice. Even pepper spray isn't this brutal. Linzhou rubbed his nose frantically, while cursing up a storm in his head. If he actually inhaled this stuff in a swamp emergency, forget perking up. He'd go blind and be helpless. Was this two-faced snake trying to control him? Or was there another scheme? What a ruthless woman. Still, this stuff arrived at the perfect time. Linzhou wiped his tears and let out a cold laugh. He wrapped the powder up tight and hid in the beast-hide pouch against his chest. In a swamp crawling with danger, this pack of intense irritant might just become a trump card. Half an hour later, the group officially stepped into the fog-shrouded swamp to the east. The ground beneath turned soft and sticky. Every step squeezed out black, rotting muck, releasing a stomach-churning stench. The silence was terrifying. Not even a single bird call. Stay sharp. Close ranks. Linzhou gave the order in a low voice. Suddenly, Jingja at the front froze with alarm, stopping dead in his tracks, his bone spear snapping level. Halt! Jingja hissed under his breath, Cold sweat beads on his forehead as he stares dead ahead. What is it? Lin Zhou's heart clenches. Jing just stays silent. He just jerks his chin forward. A muddy bog about 10 meters out. The surface was dead calm a second ago. Now, massive bubbles churn up. A long trail of them. Then, a massive black shadow, so huge it steals your breath, hugging the bottom of the bog, rocketing toward them at terrifying speed. Chapter 12. Kumu Cave, Siege of Demon Fire. The bubbles in the stagnant bog burst bigger and bigger. The stench is so foul it burns your eyes. Lin Zhou locks onto that massive black shadow, swelling beneath the surface at insane speed. His heart hammers so hard it might crack his ribs. In this life or death instant, his mind flashes back to half an hour ago. At the tribe's edge, old hag Kumu, that demon-faced curse. If I die in this swamp, that old witch will laugh herself to death. Half an hour earlier, edge of Qiyuan territory. The icy wind whips dead grass across the dirt. The salt patrol has just reached the boundary stone, when her path is block cold by a wall of dark, looming figures. Halt! Old hag Kumu leans on her skull-covered staff, flanked by a few withered tribal elders. They form a human wall across the only road. Clack! The skulls on her staff knock with a chilling rattle. Crazy old woman. What now? Jing just brow furrows. His grip tightens on his bone spear. Kumu doesn't even acknowledge him. Her milky, slanted eyes bore into Lin Zhou. She thrusts a skeletal arm into the air. Her raspy voice shrieks through the wind. Tribespeople, we cannot let this curse-bringer leave. The fire he lit last night is demon fire. The words land like a bomb. The gathered tribe erupts in shock. Kumu slams her staff down, spittle flying. The ancestors' law is clear. Meat must be eaten raw to gain strength. He dared to roast food with fire. This is a grave blasphemy against our ancestors. He's not going to swamp for some divine sign. He's bringing a heaven-sent punishment to destroy us all. Fear of the unknown is carved into a primitive's bones. Kumu's threats and lies strike deep. It hit them right where it hurts. The young warrior women beside him went pale, eyes full of doubt. They all froze. Even Jean sweated, slicking the palm of her hand around her spear. Kumu has a point. That fire last night was unnatural. What if Sky Flame's wrath hits? Winter nears. Panic spread through the crowd like a plague. The morale they'd only just built up with the emissary's brush was about to collapse under Kumu's words. But the demon Lin Zhou didn't back down. Instead, he sneered and strode right up to Kumu. They stood less than half a meter apart. Lin Zhou's body was still that of puny weakling, but the soul of a modern man behind his eyes forced Kumu to shrink back half a step before she could stop herself. Lin Zhou ripped open the heavy beast hide over his chest, baring his chest. He roared, "Open your damn eyes, you old hag." Lin Zhou jabbed a finger at his own skin. Healthier, louder than thunder. I arrived broken, couldn't stand. If that fire was some demon, if cooked food is a curse, then why is it that after just one meal of roasted meat, one night by flames, now I lead? Kumu froze, staring at Lin Zhou's solid muscles. Her shriveled lips quivered. That's nothing but. Nothing but what? Lin Zhou didn't give her a second to breathe. He pressed forward, his rapid-fire questions raining down on her head. You keep yammering about the ancestors' fury. Then let me ask you, if the sky spirits were truly enraged, why did a single beast dare approach the west camp last night? You say sky spirits curse us. Ask again. If I'm such a fraud, why would the sky spirits grant me eyes that can see the eastern island and the sacred land? You backward fools. You live like rats on raw meat in cold caves. Now the sky spirits have given this tribe a chance to change its fate, and you drag the entire clan down with laughable ignorance into a frozen grave this winter. Lin Zhou's momentum was unstoppable, every word a killing blow, the airtight logic of a modern mind, against the primitive's sieve of superstition. It was a total slaughter. Why you? Kumu's face turned ashen, her chest heaving violently as she broke into a harsh coughing fit. Not a single word of rebuttal could escape her lips. The watching tribe's loyalties flipped in an instant. The warrior women turned their glares on Kumu. Their eyes now held a flicker of doubt, but when their gaze fell on Lin Zhou's chest, a fanatical hunger for power reignited. What are you all standing around for? A cold, domineering voice cut in from behind. Ji Yuan strode forward on long, powerful legs, pushing through the crowd with a stony face. His gaze swept over Kumu like a blade. Kumu, the emissary's actions reflect my will. Dare us again? I'll smash that cane to bits. This ultimate endorsement of authority put a decisive end to the pre-departure farce. Kumu shuddered, knowing his influence had crumbled. He gritted his teeth, knuckles white. He glared venomously at Lin Zhou's back. Applying hidden force, he crushed a shard of bone in his grip, grinding it into powder. Just you wait. Once you're dead in that swamp, I'll flay your skin with my own hands and make it into a bone mask. Kumu cursed viciously in his heart. Lin Zhou didn't even spare him a glance. They left. His thoughts faded. The foul mire before him once again consumed his entire field of vision. The verbal beatdown half an hour ago felt great, but he knew full well the real test was this death trap laid out by nature itself. The bubbling and popping of gas grew louder. The sludge underfoot turned even more sticky and thick. A nauseating gust of rank air blasted them head-on. Water's moving. Spread out. Jingja paled. She cried warning, bone pen raised. The swamp churned like boiling water. Boom! The mud exploded, sending black sludge raining down. A massive, shadowy figure. A suffocating terror burst forth. Chapter 13. Tracking the Clawed Beast. Banxia, use the poison powder. Everyone fall back. Jingja's shark command had barely left her lips, drowned by a muddy blast. Boom! Black sludge rained down like a storm. An enormous crocodile, over 7 meters long, its body covered in thick, dark armor, burst from the water with a suffocating, terrifying pressure. Its massive jaws gaped wide, more capable of swallowing a full-grown wild boar whole. A wave of intense, rot, and decayed flesh assaulted their senses. It lunged at a young warrior. She was stuck in a mire. She had no time to free herself. She could only watch in despair as that row of those razor-sharp fangs filled her vision, closing in fast. At the last possible second, a low roar exploded through the air. The one-eyed girl, Bailu, tore in like a wild leopard, slamming in from the side, her hands locking onto that iron-heavy, tortoiseshell great shield. She drove herself and the shield straight into the crocodile's flank. Crack! Raw primal force met ancient monster head-on, letting out a sickening crunch that made your teeth ache. The crocodile's head snapped to the side. Jaws snapped past his shoulder. But its tail, thick as a steel whip, was already slicing through the air with a shriek. Boom! The massive tail smashed into the tortoiseshell shield. Bailu let out a grunt as her whole body was launched, like she'd been hit by a speeding semi. She flew back 4 or 5 meters, shield and all, crashing hard into the muck and sending mud spraying everywhere. Holy shit, is this freaking Jurassic Park? Linzhou had just retreated to a patch of relatively solid dry ground. Seeing this, his heart nearly jumped out of his throat. Bailu's got a constitution of 85 points. She's a human forklift, and that thing still swatted her away with one tail whip. Battle turned brutal instantly. Thrashed its limbs frantically in the mud. Its massive body moved with an agility that defied its size, lunging at the downed Bailu again. Don't take it head on. Spread out. All of you spread out. Linzhou knew damn well his own puny weakling stats weren't even enough to pick this croc's teeth. Eyes locked, mind racing, and yelled at the top of his lungs. Jingja, circle around to its sides. Crocodiles have blind spots. They turn slow. Don't stand right in front of it. Jingja had been about to charge in with her bone spear, but hearing Linzhou shout, spread out, she waved. The remaining 3 female warriors yanked their legs from the mire and scrambled, half running, half crawling, to the crocodile's flanks. Sure enough, with the target gone from its front, the massive body suddenly looked clumsy in the mud. It thrashed its neck in agitation, trying to locate those slippery prey. Now, aim for the gaps in its armor. Linzhou stood on the bank, acting as a human radar for the whole battlefield. Jingja seized the opening, her legs exploding with power. Leaping high, spear gripped tight, drove it deep into its neck. Right at the seam between 2 black plates. Splurt! A torrent of dark red, reeking blood sprayed out. Roar! The giant crocodile let out a deafening, blood-curdling roar. The excruciating pain drove it into a complete frenzy. It violently whipped its neck. The sheer force launched Jingja, man and spear, flying through the air. Then the raging beast snapped its head around. Its vertical pupils, glowing with a cold yellow light, locked onto Linzhou, who was hopping up and down on the shore barking orders. Beast instinct told it. This skinny, hairless monkey was the most irritating core of this whole prey pack. Boom! Croc abandoned the women. Its massive limbs surged with power. Its colossal body charged like a runaway armored vehicle, crushing every camu tree and swamp muck in its path, racing straight at Linzhou. Its speed was absolutely insane. Holy crap, the aggro just switched. Linzhou's scalp instantly went numb. Hair stood up, under 10 meters. Through Linzhou's weak eyes, these 10 meters, 2 seconds to cross. Run? No way he could outrun it. Emissary. Jingja scrambled up from the mud, eyes splitting with fury. Too far. 5, 3, death smell. The giant crocodile opened its blood-soaked maw. Those fangs, still hung with shreds of flesh, were right in his face. Linzhou could even see the barbs in the back of its throat. Screw it. Under this life or death, split-second pressure, Linzhou didn't retreat from death's door. He snatched from his chest the leaf-wrapped packet fancy I had, crushed it without thought, hurled into Croc's stench. Its gaping maw and eyes. Taste Grandma Bansia's chemical warfare, you overgrown handbag. Hop. The dark brown powder exploded across the crocodile's eyes and snout, forming a thick, searing cloud of spice. Roar. Powder hit eyes. Charge halted. Actually, no switch fancy. Tear up from just one whiff. Burn nerves and corneas. It let out a wail 10 times more agonized than before. Its massive body lost balance, crashing down hard less than half a meter from Linzhou's feet. Mud splattered everywhere, all over Linzhou. The giant crocodile squeezed its eyes shut. Its enormous tail thrashed wildly, blindly. Its entire body thrashed and rolled violently in the muck. Washing eyes. Move now. Finish it while it's down. Stab its white belly. Linzhou wiped the mud from his face. He staggered backward, roaring at the top of his lungs. Jingja and the others snapped out of their daze. They stared at the thrashing, helpless giant beast on the ground. A frenzied killing intent ignited in their eyes. Kill! Bailu raised her giant shield again. She pinned down the crocodile's wildly thrashing tail. Jingja led the rest of them, charging in. Their sharp-boned spears rained down, stabbing the crocodile's belly. Splat! Splat! Blood dyed the mud pit red. Croc gravely wounded, and now completely blind. Its survival instinct finally overpowered its bloodlust. It exploded with the last of its strength, hurling Bailu's giant shield aside. Dragging its whole riddled body like a beaten dog, it fled frantically back into the deep water. Gurgle, a massive patch of glaring crimson, spread across the surface. The giant croc vanished beneath the murky water. A narrow escape. Huff, huff. Lin Zhou's legs gave out. He collapsed onto the hard ground, gasping for air. His heart was still hammering wildly in his chest. Half a meter short, if not for that backstabbing packet of stimulant powder from Banxia. He would have been bitten in half by now. Jingzhe and the others gathered around, panting heavily. The way they looked at Lin Zhou had shifted from their earlier on to outright fanatical worship. Emissary, what divine artifact did you just use? Jingzhe swallowed hard, his voice trembling. A single packet of powder took down a swamp crocodile. To these primitives who only knew how to fight with brute force, this was nothing short of a miracle from another dimension. Spirit-given powder. Cures all defiance. Lin Zhou waved his hand, forcing a calm facade. He cursed scheming Banxia endlessly. That black-hearted snake gave me such a lethal weapon. She definitely had no good intentions. A lucky accident saved my life, but it also made Lin Zhou elevate. Her threat max watches back now. As Lin Zhou was plotting inwardly, he rose and walked to the pit's edge, where the croc thrashed, washing mud off. When his movements suddenly froze, the crocodile's thrashing had churned up all the sediment from the bottom. The air was thick, not only with the stench of blood, but also with an intensely pungent, salty, bitter scent. Lin Zhou's heart raced. He crouched down, dipped a finger into the murky water seeping from the mud pit, carefully brought it to his lips for a taste. Blah! Bitter, briny, salty. So salty it was bitter. Lin Zhou wasn't upset at all. Instead, he nearly jumped with excitement. Salt! Holy crap, it's really salt. This is definitely the taste of a premium inland brine spring. Just boil this water down, refine it a bit. And snow salt is done. The 3-day deadline is saved. Emissary, what's wrong? This water is toxic. Even wild beasts won't drink it. Jingzhe panicked, seeing Lin Zhou taste bitter water. It's poison. This is a treasure left by the sky spirits. Lin Zhou's eyes lit up. He followed the water flow from the pit and went deeper to find the source. Soon, his gaze locked onto something up ahead. A pool of water over 10 meters away. The water there had a strange grayish-white color. Not a single blade of grass grew around it. Mud bleached white by salt, no doubt. That was the richest brine spring vent in the entire swamp. Just a few jugs of water would be enough to complete his mission. But the wild joy on Lin Zhou's face barely lasted 3 seconds before freezing solid. His brows knotted into a tight scowl, because that richest spring vent sat right at the edge of a massive, deep sinkhole. And right now, on that grayish-white water surface, 2 cold, venomous yellow vertical pupils were silently surfacing. That gravely wounded giant crocodile hadn't gone far. It was lurking in its lair right beside the spring vent, staring dead at the group on the shore. If they dared take 1 step closer to the spring, it would absolutely launch a deadly, no-holds-barred strike. You gotta be shitting me. Lin Zhou stared at those 2 reptilian eyes locked on him, and couldn't help cursing out loud. A mountain of treasure right in front of him, but a raging ancient beast was blocking the damn door. Risking it, skip, 3 days later. Huanlan and that old Hakumu would absolutely tie him to a fire and roast him into jerky. A death trap either way. Lin Zhou rapidly pulled up his system panel in his mind, stared at the 3-day countdown deadline, and clenched his jaw. Beast, water won't save you. Chapter 14, The Brine Spring Standoff. The bitter taste of crude salt. Emissary, it's blind. A few of us can charge in and take a shot. We can definitely wear it down. Jingzhe gripped her bone spear, stared at those 2 cold, reptilian pupils on the water. His eyes held primal savagery, aiming for your skull. Is there anything in that head of yours besides muscle? Lin Zhou yanked him back. Lowering his voice, he snapped. That's called corner beast tactics. He may be blind, but in the water, that's his turf. 1 tail swipe, and he'd sweep us all in the mud to feed the turtles. Lin Zhou was breathing hard, forcing calm. That croc was over 7 meters. Even badly wounded, there was no way this small group could take it head on. The 3-day deadline hung over their necks like a guillotine. A direct fight was the absolute worst option. He narrowed his eyes, carefully scanning the terrain and wind direction around them. A cold gust, carrying the stench of rot, blew in from behind, skimming across the water. Got it. A cold smirk tugged at the corner of Lin Zhou's mouth. He turned to Jingzhe. Bring out those long-haired rats we killed. Gut them. Clean out all the entrails. Jingzhe froze for a second. He didn't get why they were prepping kills at a time like this, but he still whipped out his bone axe. In a few swift moves, sliced the long-haired rats wide open. The thick stench of blood instantly filled the air. By the way, take a few of them and these bloody guts. Toss them all onto that shallow bank downwind. And make it loud. Lin Zhou pointed toward a mudflat. 30 meters out, he ordered in a low voice. Got it. Bailu didn't ask questions. Grabbed the entrails and sprinted toward the shallow bank. He hurled the blood-soaked mess, guts and intestines, hard in the muddy water, then stomped down deliberately, sending up huge splashes. The wind carried that rich, bloody stench across the water, drifting straight toward the spring where the giant croc lurked. Loop, loop. The water around the spring began churning violently. That blind giant croc couldn't see, but a beast's primal craving for blood, on top of its severe injuries, and the desperate need to feed and regain strength, it couldn't hold back any longer. A massive dark shadow slowly pulled away from the spring, following the trail of blood, gliding like a submarine toward the shallow bank 30 meters away. Good. It took the bait. Lin Zhou's eyes lit up. His heart pounded. Bailu raised his shield for cover. Jingzhe, grab the clay pots and follow me. Move fast. Scoop the water and run. Don't get greedy. Linzhou took the lead, charging straight toward the pale, ash-colored spring. That briny stench hit me the second we got close. Hurry, fill the pots. Jingzhe and the others scrambled, shoving a big clay pot into the water. The glug-glug-glug was deafening in the dead silence of the swamp. 1 pot, 2 pots, 3 pots. The instant the 3rd pot was full, a sudden roar erupted from the distant shallows. A deafening, raging bellow. Roar. The giant croc had swallowed those guts in one gulp. But that tiny snack barely touched its hunger. Worse, its razor-sharp hearing caught the commotion over by the spring. It instantly realized it had been played by these slippery, furless monkeys. Boom! Water exploded. The giant croc whipped around like a lunatic. Its massive body tore through the water with terrifying speed, like a black torpedo launched from a cannon, straight at Linzhou and the others still scooping water. Oh no, it's coming back. Jingzhe's face went white as a sheet. Fall back. Everyone back. The pot's the alarm. Linzhou's scalp went numb. He let out a roar, grabbed a clay pot, spun around, and ran. The giant croc's speed was insane. In a flash, it hit the spring's edge and burst out, jaws gaping wide, bringing a gut-churning blast of rotten wind, snapping viciously at the female warrior at the back of the line. Not a chance. Bai Lu shouted, raising the heavy turtle shell shield with both hands, and slamming it into the mud. Bang! The massive impact kicked up a wall of black muck, creating a natural smoke screen. The giant croc was already blinded by the mud. Its aim veered off by half an inch. Crunch! Those blade-like fangs snapped shut, just past the edge of the group, biting clean through a chunk of kumu. Splinters flew everywhere. Seizing that split second, Linzhou and the others scrambled, crawling and stumbling back onto solid ground. Huff, huff. Everyone collapsed, gasping for air, watching that giant croc rage helplessly at the edge of the spring. Their backs were drenched in cold sweat. Jingzhe looked at the big pots of murky brine in his arms, then looked at Linzhou with eyes full of absolute, prostrate worship. Without losing a single fighter, right under the nose of an ancient beast, he had stolen this bitter, dead water. The emissary's wisdom is more terrifying than the sharpest bone spear. Stop gawking. Get fire going. Pour the water into the pots. Right? Linzhou had no time to soak in their admiration. He immediately ordered everyone to build a fire on the spot. Dry branches catch, pots set over flames. The murky brine quickly begins to boil. As the water slowly evaporates, a faint salty scent drifts through the air. In half an hour, liquid nearly boiled off, leaving behind a thick layer of grayish-white crystals. Done. Linzhou's eyes light up. Jingzhe curiously leans in, dips a finger into the grayish powder in the pot, and carefully puts it in his mouth. Next second, his body jolts like struck by lightning. His eyes fly wide open. That intense, pure saltiness hits like a storm, crashing through his primitive taste buds that have never once tasted salt. Every shriveled cell in his body seems to let out a euphoric cheer in this moment. Thud! Jingzhe's knees buckle. He collapses to the ground beside the fire, eyes reddening, voice trembling. This is Sky Flame's taste. Incredible. A gift from Sky Spirits. The female warriors nearby quickly follow suit, taking a taste. All kneel, staring at the crude salt pot, with more fervor than they'd ever look at the strongest man. Congrats, host, on your first crude salt batch. Salt refining branch progress advanced. Sip points plus 500. Physical constitution slightly improved. The system's crisp notification chime rings in his mind. Linzhou feels a warm current surge through his body. The internal injuries from before seem to heal a bit more, but he doesn't show much excitement. Linzhou frowns. He dabs a bit of the grayish crude salt himself. Tastes it. Puffed. On his tongue. Linzhou can't help but spit it all out. This tastes like absolute crap. The salt is bitter and astringent, packed with sand, dirt, and impurities. The texture is like chewing on salty chunks of earth. This low-grade crude salt might be enough to fool these primitives who've never seen the world. But if I serve this up at the altar, Quanlan's explosive temper and Kumu's hawk-eyed scheming will absolutely use it against me. They'll say it's mud. They'll call it poison. They won't just refuse to honor the deal. They'll tie me to the fire and burn me alive right then and there. Linzhou's face darkens as his mind races. No, this stuff absolutely cannot be called the white sky crystal. It needs a second round of purification. I have to turn it into truly pure, flawless snow salt. Only then can it deliver a decisive, devastating blow at the altar, and completely shut down those stubborn old emissary bootlickers. We got the crystals. Let's get back to camp. Now, Quanlan's probably still at the camp, just waiting to laugh in your face. Jingzhe grabbed the clay pot, buzzing with excitement, wishing he could sprout wings and fly back. Then, a long, mournful beast horn call echoed through the air. It drifted from the direction of the tribe, faint and ominous. Horn blared, cutting the wild wind. It slammed into everyone's chest like a war drum. The wild joy on Jingzhe's face froze solid. His face went sheet white. What the? Linzhou's heart dropped. The ritual horn. Jingzhe's hand trembled around his bone spear, his voice thick with undisguised fear. The tribe summons everyone for the ritual. It's the full tribe horn. 3 days. The 3-day deadline is up. Linzhou's eyes turned to ice. Quanlan and that old hag Kumu. They didn't even wait 1 extra second. They've already set up the altar to force a reckoning. The deadline's right on top of us. Emissary, what do we do now? If we go back, it's straight to the altar trial. Jingzhe was pacing in panic circles. Calm down. Linzhou stomped out the last embers of the fire. His gaze locked onto the clay pot filled with bitter, crude salt. Cold smirk. Burn me? Then let's see whose ashes are left when this fire's done. He snatched up the clay pot. In his mind, the system shop was already open. Move. We need a spot with clean sand. Time for a trick. CH15, salt. Extreme snow, salt breakthrough. Emissary, what are you doing? That's the sacred crystal. Why are you dumping it back in the water? Jingja's eyes nearly popped out of his skull, his voice cracking sharp. Right as the ritual horn screamed for blood, Lin Zhou didn't run. Instead, he did something that shattered the worldview of every primitive watching. He took that whole pot of painstakingly boiled gray crude salt and dumped it straight into the freshly gathered clean water. Shut it and do what I say. Lin Zhou had no time to explain 9 years of compulsory chemistry. Jaw clenched. He frantically tapped the system panel in his mind. Ding! 500 civ points deducted. Salt refining technique unlocked. With the system's crisp chime, complex know-how flooded Lin Zhou's brain. Like a jolt of electricity into Lin Zhou's mind. Dissolve, filter, recrystallize. Every single step, every damn temperature check. It was burned into his muscle memory in an instant. The war horns from the Ulabakasoma tribe grew more and more frantic. Each blast hit like a death knell, shredding their eardrums. No time. Bai Lu, grab the cleanest animal hide and wash it in the river 10 times. Jingja, go scrape charcoal from where we had the fire earlier. I need the fully burnt stuff. Everyone else, dig me the finest sand by the water. Now, Lin Zhou was furiously stirring the clay pot with a stick, screaming orders at the top of his lungs. Jingja and the others just stared at each other. Sacred crystals to water. And now charcoal and sand? As the emissary finally lost it. Why wait? Move. You want to watch me burn and then get dragged down with me? Move it. Lin Zhou's eyes were bloodshot, like a raging lion. Why yes. Jingja shuddered and didn't dare ask another question. He and crew scrambled for supplies. Everything was assembled. Lin Zhou found a broken clay pot with a small gap at the bottom. He folded the cleaned animal hide and lined the bottom with it. Then added a layer of fine sand, then a layer of crushed charcoal, and finally topped it with another layer of fine sand. Just like that, the most basic makeshift water filter was complete. Pour. Lin Zhou ordered Jingja to take the murky, impurity-filled, fully saturated salt water and slowly pour it into the filter. Everyone's heart was in their throat. Salt water seeped sand, then charcoal, dripping drop by drop from the gap at the bottom, into the clean clay pot below. Drip, drip. Lin Zhou stared hard at the water coming out, but as the water level rose, his face instantly darkened. The water was still slightly yellow. The sediment was filtered out, but the bitter impurities in the crude salt. Charcoal too thin. Damn. Not enough gaps. Lin Zhou slammed his fist into the dirt. Third horn blast shook the wild. Its heavy, lingering echo carried the metallic stench of slaughter. Bai Lu was pacing like a cat on a hot tin roof, spinning in circles. Emissary, the horns have stopped. Huangwan must already have the water at a rolling boil by now. If we don't get back now, we're all doomed. Shut it. If the sky falls, I'll hold it up. Lin Zhou's eyes were shot through with blood. The vein on his forehead throbbed violently. The deadline was breathing down his neck. He couldn't return with his half-baked batch and die. Jingja crushed charcoal, thickened it, and filtered again. Lin Zhou ripped open the filter vessel, dumped everything inside, and rebuilt the layers from scratch. This time, he doubled the charcoal layer, packing it down rock solid. The murky yellow water was poured into the filter again. Time crawled by second. Every tick felt like a blade dragging across Lin Zhou's nerves. Finally, the first drop of water seeped through the hide, hanging in midair, trembling on the edge. Lin Zhou held his breath, eyes locked on that single drop. Plink! The droplet fell into the clay pot below, crystal clear, like the purest mountain spring. Done. Lin Zhou slapped his thigh hard and let out a long, heavy breath. Jingja and the others stared at the impossibly clear salt water, jaws practically hitting the floor. They had watched that black and yellow sludge with their own eyes, pass through a few layers of busted charcoal and sand, and somehow turn into water this clean. This wasn't mortal skill. This was straight up magic. Quit gawking. Get a fire going. Low and slow. Lin Zhou didn't hesitate, taking the filtered, crystal clear brine and setting it over the flames. This time, no raging fire. He controlled the heat with surgical precision, skimming off every wisp of white foam that rose to the surface. As the water slowly evaporated, the side at the bottom of the clay pot made every primitive soul present completely stop breathing. No black grit. No yellow residue. A layer of snow white, frost-fine crystals, glistening in the firelight, slowly forming and piling at the bottom. They radiated a flawless, pure luster, so bright it stung the eyes. Snow salt is born. What is this? Jingja's legs gave out. She dropped to her knees with a thud, not daring to look too long, afraid her own gaze might taint something so sacred. Lin Zhou's lips curled into a wild, arrogant smirk. He scooped a pinch of snow salt with a twig, sprinkled it evenly over a freshly roasted piece of woolly rat meat, and held out to Jingja. Taste it. Jingja took the meat with trembling hands, took a cautious little bite. Boom. A pure, rich, savory flavor, not a trace of bitter saltiness, exploded across her tongue. The gamey stench of the woolly rat meat, unleashed by that pure salt. An indescribable umami explosion. Jingja's eyes reddened, tears suddenly streaming down his face. He slammed his forehead into the mud, his voice hoarse as he shouted, "This is a divine miracle. Ancestors above, the emissary has granted us a true miracle." Bai Lu and the other female warriors followed suit, grabbing pinches of salt and popping them into their mouths, then dropped to their knees in unison, bowing frantically to Ning Zhou, Congrats, host. You've successfully refined Snow Salt. Salt refining. Beginner level achieved with a perfect rating. Reward, 1,000 SIP points. Constitution significantly enhanced. The system's cold voice sounded to Lin Zhou like heavenly music. He could clearly feel his previously scrawny muscles subtly swelling, his bones emitting faint crackling sounds, the dull pain in his organs completely gone, still miles away from Bailu's human T-Rex level. But at least he'd shed that. Puny weakling status were 2 steps left of wheezing. But Lin Zhou wasn't about to let this victory go to his head. He knew Quanlan's type all too well. Muscle for brains thugs. A jar of snow salt could absolutely stun the crowd. But if that lunatic woman refused to accept defeat, or even went desperate enough to pull a blade, his newly boosted physique still wouldn't be enough. To deal with savages, you beat them with even more savage methods. Lin Zhou's gaze turned cold. He opened the system panel again. Redeem Trap Hunting Arts. Ding. 800 SIV points deducted. Trap Hunting Arts, beginner level. Redeemed. Blueprints of snares, tripwires, rockfalls, pit traps exploded through his mind. Lin Zhou turned his head, his sharp gaze sweeping over the bare animal trail. At the marsh's edge, schemes to turn their strength against them and crush both body and spirit instantly took shape in his mind. Jingja, bring the hunting gear. Bailu, cut the thickest logs and sharpen them. Lin Zhou's commands fired like rapid gunshots. Methodical, yet laced with chilling, killing intent. 10 minutes later, a crude but deadly chain of traps was set along the animal trail. Lin Zhou carefully poured the precious snow salt into a sealed clay jar, wrapped the gap with hide, then stowed it in his pack. Clutching it to his chest, this was his winning card to take the bet, stay alive, and crush Quanlan completely under his heel. Emissary, the trap's all set, but will this actually work? Jingja stared at the vines and timber on the ground. His gut was churning. We'll find out soon enough. Lin Zhou kicked the last burning chunk of charcoal out of the fire pit, sending sparks flying. He grabbed his pack, gaze cutting across the wilds, locked onto the Chihuan tribe's territory. A cruel smirk twisted his lips. Back to camp. Let's go see what kind of death that old hag and her psycho daughter cooked up for me. Lin Zhou strode down the trail with long, pounding steps, radiating pure kill anything in my way arrogance. 3-day deadline. Today I'll show you bastards what a total beatdown looks like. Chapter 16, Altar Showdown. Quanlan's debt contract. Huh. Came back empty-handed. I knew it. You scrawny little monkey are nothing but a fraud. The moment Lin Zhou's group stepped through the blood 10,000 tribes camp gate, a deafening roar of laughter ripped through the air. A massive crowd of tribesfolk packed in front of the altar. Quanlan, tattooed arms bare and bulging, had that blood-crusted bone club slung over his shoulder. He loomed at the altar's edge, staring down at mud-caked, empty-handed Lin Zhou. The mockery and cruelty in his eyes practically spilled over. Beside Quanlan, old Kumu leaned on her skull cane, sneering darkly. At the altar's center sat a massive stone cauldron, waist-high, with flames roaring beneath it. The water inside was at a full boil, churning and bubbling with white foam. Scalding steam billowed into the cold wind, reeking of undisguised death. Emissary Jingja stared at that boiling pot, face going pale, knuckles whitening around his bone spear. Bailu stepped forward, slamming her turtle shell shield down in front of Lin Zhou with a boom, blocking the hostile glares from the altar, like a mountain wall. Back off. Nobody asked you two to speak. Quanlan leaped down from the altar, hitting the mud with a thunderous crash that shook the ground. Club in hand, he stormed closer, jabbing a thick finger in Lin Zhou's face and roaring. 3 days up. Worthless trash. Not even a blade of grass. And you still got the nerve to call yourself an emissary? Quanlan licked his lips, letting his gaze crawl over Lin Zhou's body. Chiefess, by our laws, a fraud gets both legs broken. Throw him in the back pit and let the sisters drain him dry. Every last drop of blood. The hungry-eyed young female warriors around them instantly erupted into restless cackling. In their eyes, if this so-called emissary was a fraud, then this tender-skinned man was only good for breeding. Silence. The hag Kumu slammed her staff against the ground. Skulls collided with a sickening crack. Her murky, inverted triangle eyes locked dead onto Lin Zhou. Her voice scraped like a night owl keening over the dead. Drain him? That's letting this disaster off too easy. Kumu jabbed a finger at the boiling stone cauldron. Shrieking, she howled. He used demon fire to desecrate our ancestors, then lied to the entire clan. The ancestors are enraged. We must strip him of his title as emissary, throw him alive into the boiling water, and cook him for the heavens. Only then can the sky flame's wrath be quelled. Cook him. Cook him. The fanatical old loyalists behind Kumu shot up their withered arms, shrieking like mad women in unison. Panic and fury detonated through the crowd. The whole clan seethed with bloodlust, ready to surge forward and tear Lin Zhou to shreds this instant. Lin Zhou stood behind the shield, watching these frenzied primitives with ice-cold eyes, not a flicker of fear in his chest. He almost laughed out loud. A bunch of backwater bumpkins. You don't even know what's in my pack. And you're already creaming yourselves. Lin Zhou touched the hide-wrapped bundle on his back. Inside, lying still and undisturbed, was a pristine jar of snow salt. He looked up at Chihuan, standing at the highest point of the altar. The smoking hot chiefess was now stone-faced, arms crossed, eyes locked on Lin Zhou. In her gaze burned the fury of being deceived, and also a flicker of regret she didn't even notice herself. Under the pressure of the entire clan's ultimatum, even Chihuan chose to remain silent. The chiefess says nothing. That means consent. Seeing this, Quanlan went red-eyed with excitement. She gripped the drumsticks, her knuckles white as bone. Grinning savagely, she saw forward Bailu's massive shield. Bailu, get the hell out of my way. I'm going to personally smash his kneecaps into dust. You dare. Jingja and Bai Lu roared in unison. Weapons thrust forward, blade to blade. Bloodshed was moments away. Stand down. All of you. A calm voice, but carrying absolute, unquestionable authority. The voice suddenly sounded from behind the shield. Linzhou reached out and gently pushed aside Jing's bone spear, and gave Bai Lu's rock shoulder a couple of reassuring pats. Motioned for him to remove his shield so that the Lord could not go out. They'll kill you. Jingja was so frantic she was on the verge of tears. I said stand down. Linzhou's voice dropped a few degrees colder. Jingja and Bai Lu gritted their teeth, but had no choice except to reluctantly fall back to either side. Linzhou dusted the dirt off his clothes, and without a shred of precaution, strolled swaggeringly right up to Kuang Lan, though they were roughly the same height. Kuang Lan's terrifying physique made Linzhou look like a twig that could snap at any second. Finally came to your senses? Ready to just lie down and die? Seeing Linzhou completely empty-handed, Kuang Lan laughed, even more unhinged. Lie down and die? Linzhou raised an eyebrow. A mocking smirk tugged at the corner of his mouth. I just find it funny, Kuang Lan. Is your skull packed with nothing but crap? Who told you I didn't bring back the nerve? The whole audience was Kuang Lan silent for a moment, then exploded into an even more exaggerated bout of laughter. Tears are almost laughing. Are you blind when all the people are blind? What do you have in your hands besides dirt? What? Did you stash the relic in your crotch? Kuang Lan pointed his drumstick at Linzhou, doubled over laughing. The old crone Kumu added her venom from the side. Still running your mouth at death's door? Wu Zhu, beat the drum. Send him on his way. Hold it. Linzhou's voice suddenly spiked, crashing over the jeers like a thunderclap. He stepped up onto the stone platform, glaring down at Kuang Lan from above, his eyes razor-sharp, like a blade drawn from its sheath. Kuang Lan, you keep calling me a fraud. So certain I can't produce the relic. Then today, in front of the entire tribe, I'll make you another bet. Linzhou spoke slowly and deliberately, every word landing with weight. Bet what? Kuang Lan snorted coldly. She doesn't believe what tricks this war scum can turn out. If I can't produce the relic, no need for you to lift a finger. I'll jump into that boiling pot myself and cook myself alive. Linzhou pointed straight at the churning stone cauldron. A flash of madness flickered in his eyes. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. But then Linzhou's tone shifted. He locked eyes with Kuang Lan, unflinching. If I do produce a genuine white divine crystal, what will you do? Kuang Lan felt a chill creep down his spine, under that predatory stare. But these primitives respected strength and pure stubborn pride. Then he would never back down in front of the whole tribe. Besides, he'd watched Linzhou empty-handed. Didn't even bring a decent-sized pot. How could he? I'll bet. Kuang Lan slammed his bone club into the ground, leaving a deep crater. He snarled through gritted teeth. If you really can pull out a divine crystal, I'll hand over this bone club right here. From this day forward, I'll be your beast of burden, the lowest, filthiest slave, at your every command. Whoever backs out gets cursed by our ancestors. 1,000 arrows through the heart. My kind of deal. Linzhou had been waiting for exactly that. A top-tier labor with insane physical stats. And she just delivered herself on a silver platter. The old hag Kumu stared at Linzhou's smug, confident smile. A sudden, overwhelming sense of dread washed over her. This brat is way too calm. Way too calm to be normal. Stop letting him stall. Wu Zhu, sound the drums, and make him prove it. Kumu jabbed her cane against the ground frantically, urging her underlings on. Boom, boom, boom. The deep, urgent pounding of the hide drums echoed over the altar, like a countdown to execution. Linzhou ignored Kumu's little tantrum. Instead, he turned, his gaze sweeping past the crowd, and landing directly on the chiefess, Qi Yuan, high on her platform. Chiefess, Kuang Lan's oath. The whole tribe heard it. I need your word. Linzhou met her gaze, neither servile nor arrogant. Qi Yuan studied Linzhou for a long moment. She saw not a single trace of fear in the man's eyes, only the absolute confidence of someone, holding all the cards. The tribe's laws are paramount. Qi Yuan slowly drew the blood-colored stone axe from her waist, raising it high, her voice carried across the entire grounds. As chiefess, sworn oath. Break it, death. Officiating now. Linzhou's whole con game was locked and loaded. Oh, great emissary, please reveal it. Jingzhou was below the platform, hands clasped in desperation, praying fiercely. Drums quickened. Every breath in the crowd stopped cold. The entire tribe's eyes locked onto Linzhou. Some sneered inwardly, waiting to see him scream in a pot of boiling water. Others prayed silently, desperate for a miracle. Public tension stretched to the breaking point on the eve of eruption. Linzhou unhurriedly slid the hide pack off his shoulders and set it on a clean stone slab at the altar center. What a show. Let's see what worthless rock you pull out. Kuang Lan clenched her fists, glaring at that bundle. Linzhou smirked inside. Worthless rock. These blood-guzzling savages have zero clue that modern chemical refining is about to deliver a devastating reality check to their pathetic little worldview. The war drums stopped cold. Linzhou's slender fingers untied the knot on his pack. He lifted out a clay jar, sealed shut with hardened mud. One hand gripped the clay cap on top. His gaze swept slowly over Kuang Lan, whose face had gone pale, then darted to Kumu, leaning on her cane and drenched in sweat. The corner of his mouth curled into a cruel, mocking smirk. Open your damn eyes and take a good look. Linzhou's fingers snapped tight. Chapter 17. Snow Salt City. The silence of total humiliation. Crack. A crisp shattering sound exploded through the deathly quiet altar. Linzhou squeezed hard. The dried mud cap on the jar shattered and crumbled, falling away in dusty flakes. No hesitation. With a flick of his left hand, he spread a pure black hide, flat across the stone slab at the altar center. Then he tipped the jar. Whoosh, accompanied by a fine, almost musical rustle. A stream of dazzling white poured from the jar's mouth. No yellowed sand. No bitter ash. This was whiteness so pure it had zero impurities. Fine as frost, lustrous as snow, under the harsh midday sun. The silvery cascade of crystals spilling onto the black hide refracted a blinding, mesmerizing haze of light. The extreme contrast of black against white made this pile of snow salt look like it didn't belong in this savage world at all, like scattered stars, seared directly into the retinas of every primitive present. The noisy altar plunged into a dead silence. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Hundreds of tribespeople, hundreds of eyes, wide as bronze bells, locked onto that small pile of white crystals on the black hide. In their painfully limited world, the whitest things they'd ever seen, with a deadly winter snow and ice, and bone stripped bare flesh, they simply couldn't comprehend how something so pure, so flawless, could exist in this world. What the hell is this stuff? Quanlan's smug, mocking grin froze solid, the muscles in his face twisted like they were cramping up, his jaw hanging open wide enough to shove fist in. The bone club in his hand hovered midair, trembling. Impossible. That swamp's just poison and mud. How could it produce something like this? Old Kumu's cloudy, triangular eyes filled with terror. She rubbed them desperately, convinced her failing eyesight was playing tricks on her. Linzhou watched these cavemen get their minds completely blown by modern purification tech, and he was absolutely loving it. Slowly and deliberately, he pinched a small amount of snow salt, walked over to the fire where meat was roasting, a freshly cooked chunk of long rat meat. Nothing but burnt stench, no flavor whatsoever. Linzhou sprinkled the pure, white salt evenly over the sizzling, greasy roasted meat, then turned and offered it to Chief Des Chiwan, whose face was frozen in the same dumbstruck expression. Try it, Chief Des. See if it's divine. The cocky curve of Linzhou's lips grew even more arrogant. Chiwan's throat bobbed. He was the mightiest warrior of the Chiwan tribe. He'd seen it all, weathered every storm. But faced with this roasted meat dusted with white powder, his hand wouldn't obey him. Half doubting, half curious, he took the meat. He drew a deep breath, opened his mouth, and cautiously took a small bite. His chewing stopped abruptly the very next second. Chiwan's pupils dilated to their absolute limit. Boom! What kind of taste was this? Pure, rich, salty, savory perfection without a trace of bitterness, like a violent tornado, bursting through decades dry taste buds. The long rat meat's original gamey, rank flavor, unleashed by the pure salt, transformed into a mind-blowing, world-class delicacy. Chiwan's body trembled uncontrollably. Every single cell in her body. Salt ecstasy. Amazing. Chiwan threw her head back. He let out a deep, shuddering moan of pure satisfaction. He didn't even bother chewing. He just shoved the rest of the hunk of roasted meat into his mouth like a starving animal. Even a few drops of grease clinging to his fingers. He licked clean with desperate intensity. Well, is it poisoned? Several of the tribe's senior elders rushed forward, sweating bullets. Chiwan's eyes were rimmed red. He grabbed the solemn clay pot with both hands. His voice shook with raw emotion. A divine treasure. Our ancestors would envy us. Taste it. All of you taste it. He scooped up salt with his fingers and fed the elders. They gasped instantly. Delicious. Absolutely delicious. I've never tasted anything this incredible in my entire life. This is no poison. This is power granted to us by the sky spirits. I feel like I have boundless energy surging through me. Elderly elders wept with joy, tears streaming. They even threw away their walking staffs. They knelt and kowtowed before the snow salt. The frenzied reaction from the elders after tasting it was like a single spark dropped into a vat of oil. It instantly ignited the entire crowd. In a deafening rush, the hundreds of female warriors below the altar collapsed like wheat scythed by an invisible giant hand. They all fell to their knees in perfect unison. They pressed their foreheads hard against the cold, muddy ground. Facing Linzhou, standing at the center of the altar, they erupted into a thunderous, ecstatic chant. Emissary, the sky spirits bless our bloodline. Long live the emissary. The tidal wave of faith reached its absolute peak in that moment. Linzhou's status as emissary, under the overwhelming shock of this pile of snow salt, became an ironclad, unshakable truth. Kumu's legs gave out beneath her. She collapsed onto the platform like a sack of mud. The skull-topped staff, symbolizing her sacrificial authority, clattered to the ground and rolled away. Her face was ashen gray. Her mouth gaped open, gasping for air, but no sound came out. She knew it was over. The public opinion fortress she had painstakingly built over decades was annihilated by this scrawny man, nothing more. A handful of white powder. Not even crumbs remained. Linzhou glanced down at Kumu from above. He couldn't even be bothered to step on her. He turned his head, his gaze locked on like a blade, fixed on Quanlan, frozen in place. Quanlan, those words you just spoke. The entire tribe heard them. Linzhou advanced step by step, his voice cold as ice. I've taken out the nerve. Now honor your vow. Linzhou pointed at Quanlan's weapon. Hand over the wuba. Kneel to me. That bellow carried the frenzied faith of the entire tribe behind it. She drove Quanlan, stumbling back 3 steps. That slab-faced mug of Quanlan's, now flushed a swollen, liver purple red. She gasped, eyes full of shame and despair, and the madness of a cornered animal with no way out. To be a slave to some puny weakling? To haul timber like the lowest, most wretched labor? Living on scraps? Worse than death? No, impossible. This has to be fake. Quanlan suddenly roared like a beast, gone rabid, raising her bone club high. She stabbed the salt, screaming poison. It's mind-bending poison. He used dark sorcery to blind the chiefess and the elders. This is no sacred crystal. This is a calamity that'll destroy our entire tribe. Quan Lan, you crossed the line. Jiwan's face went cold, about to explode. When Quan Lan howled, screw this. I'm nobody's slave. Quan Lan had completely lost it. She ripped the razor-sharp bone knife from her waist. Her bloodshot eyes locked on Lin Zhou. He's nothing but a demon. Kill him, and the sorcery dies with him. Charge with me. Cut him down. Quan Lan rallied the diehards behind her. The usual thugs who'd ridden her coattails and bullied at will. Those troublemakers were scared. But one thought of Quan Lan's downfall meant they'd all go down with her. They drew weapons. The tide turned. A war of words and blood pressure was now, thanks to Quan Lan's desperate violent backlash, a bloodbath waiting to happen. Protect the emissary. Bai Lu roared, raising her massive tortoiseshell shield, ready to charge the altar. Freeze. Nobody move. Just when everything hung by a thread, as Quan Lan's blade came slashing toward him, Lin Zhou didn't dodge. Instead, he erupted into a laugh, even more unhinged than Quan Lan's. Ha! Poison, you say? Demon, you say? Lin Zhou threw his head back and howled, his eyes boring into Quan Lan, glinting with a coldness that sent chills down the spine. He'd waited for this. Quan Lan. You really think the sky spirits didn't foresee your betrayal? Lin Zhou suddenly pointed toward the tribe, the misty forest. His voice boomed like thunder, detonating right in everyone's ears. Prove the purity of this divine crystal, the sky spirits. Around the outskirts of the tribe. Today, I will use the life of a giant beast to wash away your slander and show you all what true sky spirit power really looks like. Chapter 18. The Chain Trap. Catching a giant beast. Hack him to death. Grind this freak in a pulp. Quan Lan's roar was laced with the shriek of a bone blade tearing through air. It shot straight for Lin Zhou's face, right at the blade's edge. That thick, blood-soaked stench from years of killing was already scraping painfully against Lin Zhou's cheeks. That strike carried massive weight and force, driven by Quan Lan's madness after being pushed into a corner. His intent was obvious, to leave Lin Zhou in half, bone and all. Don't you dare touch the sacred stone. A furious roar exploded. Bai Lu charged forward like an enraged mother bear. Every muscle in her body tensed and bulged. With a heavy thud, that impossibly heavy turtle shell, great shield was slammed hard into the mud. It caught Quan Lan's lethal blade dead on. Sparks flew everywhere. The recoil split Bai Lu's hand. Blood ran down her wrist, but she clenched her teeth. Not a single step back. Get lost, blind fool. Believe me, I'll hack you apart too. Quan Lan's eyes were blood red. She pressed the blade down hard. At blade meets shield moment, where life and death hung by a thread. Lin Zhou, standing behind the shield, made his move. Instead of dodging, he stepped forward boldly. He grabbed a huge handful of that snow white snow salt from the black animal hide. Before the whole tribe, he shoved it in his mouth. Gulp. Lin Zhou didn't even bother chewing. He directly forced down that huge mouthful of pure salt. The intense saltiness burned his throat dry, but he powered through the discomfort and whipped his head around, glaring daggers at Quan Lan. Poison? Dark magic? Lin Zhou opened his mouth, spitting out the salt water residue. He sneered coldly, like staring at a fool. Open your damn eyes and look. I'm eating it right in front of you. If this were poison, I'd be bleeding from every hole and dead at your feet by now. The crowd fell into a dead silence. Everyone was stunned. Even Quan Lan's grip loosened involuntarily. Could it really not be poison? What kind of sorcerer would willingly swallow their own poison? Stop putting on this twisted show. Quan Lan's face cycled between pale and flushed. Still too stubborn to back down, she snapped. Even if it isn't poison, it's still some dark trick to fool the chiefess. You die today. Die? From a muscle-brained moron like you? Lin Zhou shoved Bai Lu's shield aside with force. With one step, he mounted the highest point of the altar. The wild wind whipped his beast-hide cloak with a sharp crack. He stared down at Quan Lan from above. His voice rolled out like thunder across the sky, hammering straight into every tribesperson's ears. The sky spirits have long seen through your betrayal and stupidity. To prove the purity of the sky flame crystal, sky spirits have snared this camp. Lin Zhou thrust his finger toward the distant mountain forest. They'll spare your worthless life. Sky spirits will prove the truth before the entire tribe by capturing a beast alive. The crowd below erupted. What? Capture a great beast alive? That's impossible. Even our strongest hunting party can only bring down a great beast by piling up bodies. Capturing one alive is unthinkable. Has the emissary lost his mind? Even Jiwan, standing nearby, furrowed his brow. As the strongest warrior of the Jiwan tribe, he knew better than anyone the terror of the wild great beasts. That is a force no human strength can stand against, let alone capturing one alive and without a scratch. Ha ha ha, I'm dying of laughter. Quan Lan laughed like she'd just heard the world's dumbest joke. Doubled over, tears streaming down her face. She pointed her bone knife at Lin Zhou, her face full of mockery. Capture a great beast alive? With that scrawny frame that folds in a stiff breeze? What? You think you're some reborn ancestor? Fine. I'll stand right here and watch today. Fail, and I'll feed you to dogs. As you wish. A cold glint flashed in Lin Zhou's eyes. No more wasted words. He spun toward the crowd and locked eyes on Jingzha. Blow the whistle. Yes, though Jingzha had zero confidence inside, his blind devotion to the emissary took over. Without a second thought, he grabbed the sharply polished bone whistle hanging from his neck, jammed it into his mouth, and blew with all his might. The shrill, piercing whistle blast cut through the cold wind like a blade. It echoed far and wide. 1 second. 2, 3, 4 silent. Wind, rustling leaves. Nothing happened. Huh. Where's your giant beast? Where's your divine punishment? Can't call it, can you? Fraud. Quan Lan let out an arrogant, booming laugh. He raised the bone blade again. But then, laughter faded ground trembled. A faint tremor. Thud, thud, thud. It grew stronger and stronger, more violent. Stone pot boiled, sloshed wildly from the shaking, splashing out scalding waves. What the hell? Jiwon's face twisted in alarm. He yanked the blood-red stone axe from his waist, eyes locked hard on the northern tree line. Boom, crash. Trees in the distance snapped like twigs. Under some monstrous force, flocks of birds exploded into the sky, shrieking in panic. A thick, gut-churning stench of blood and wild animal musk blasted it on the wind. A cold, ruthless smirk curled at the corner of Linzhou's mouth. He'd already had Jingja scatter the flesh and entrails of the swamp crocodile along that specific game trail. Add the bone whistle's piercing trigger, and the apex predator that had been prowling nearby, drawn by the scent of blood, finally snapped completely. Roar! A deafening, savage bellow tore through the jungle. The next second, a colossal beast the size of a small mountain smashed through the tribe's outer wooden barricade, like a black bulldozer, bristling with spikes and radiating pure killing intent. It charged straight into the open ground at the camp's edge. Ancestors, save us! It's a saber-toothed bison, a full-grown one. Jingja let out a desperate shriek. Hundreds of warrior women instantly dissolved into chaos. The bison stood over 3 meters tall, its body covered in coarse black fur like iron armor. 2 ghastly saber fangs, each a meter long, jutted from its jaws, its blood-red eyes locked onto the sacrificial platform. Hooves thundered. Every stride punched a deep crater into the earth. The ground shook. A primordial beast of this level. Even if the entire tribe mobilized, they'd pay with dozens of lives just to barely drive it off. This is impossible. The smug grin on Quanlan's face froze solid. His legs trembled uncontrollably. Even the bone blade in his hand was shaking. As the saber-toothed bison, like a living tank, was about to plow into the crowd and start a one-sided massacre, Linzhou stood rock-steady on the platform, arms crossed, eyes as cold as if he were staring at a corpse. 3, 2, 1, into the trap. Linzhou counted down in his mind. Saberfang struck the marked spot, seemingly flat and harmless. Crack. The crisp snap of what echoed beneath the beast's hooves. Its massive front leg slammed straight through, a thick vine hidden under the loose soil. The charging mountain of muscle lost its balance in an instant. Raw momentum hurled it forward, crashing down hard. Boom! The moment it hit the ground, the earth beneath it gave way on a massive scale. A pit 4 meters deep, its bottom lined with countless razor-sharp wooden stakes, open like the jaws of a demon. It swallowed half of the beast in one bite. The Saberfang bull let out a blood-curdling shriek. Its front legs were jammed tight in the pit's crevices. Sharp stakes tore through hide and flesh. But it wasn't over. The collapse triggered Linzhou's second mechanism. Whoosh! Whoosh! Thick vines strapped to towering trees on both sides. Snapped taut. 3 massive logs, honed at deadly points, each weighing hundreds of pounds, swung down like battering rams, driven by gravity. They screamed through the air and slammed into the trapped beast. Boom! 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 The impact made your skin crawl. The log struck the bull's spine and hind legs with perfect precision, pinning its thrashing, struggling body right back into the pit. Then from overhead, a massive net, woven from tough vines, loaded with dozens of heavy stones, dropped with thunderous force. Dust flew, rocks scattered, fives. No one shed a drop of blood. No one charged in for close combat. Just a few vines, a few pits, and a few logs. In the blink of an eye, an ancient monster. Even the chief avoided at all costs was completely subdued. Pure physics. Dimensional warfare. Mechanical violence as art, displayed at its absolute peak. As the dust slowly settled, the entire clearing remained dead silent. Only the Saberfang bull, trapped in the pit, crushed under logs and stone, still let out helpless gasps and pitiful groans. Its once raging blood-red eyes were now filled with pure terror of an unknown power. Clang! The bone knife slipped from Quanlan's hand, clattering against the stone platform. Quanlan's legs buckled. He collapsed on the ground, the flab on his face twitching violently, from shock and terror. His prized strength, the battle experience he'd smugly boasted about, all of it was a complete joke. In front of this impossible scene, not a single blade raised, and the Saberfang bull was taken alive. Shiwan's hand trembled as he gripped his stone axe. He stared at Linzhou's back. That skinny frame now seemed to tower endlessly, like a god looking down upon all mortals. Linzhou dusted off his hands and hopped down from the altar. He strolled over to the edge of the pit like he was out for a walk, and drew the sharpened bone dagger from his waist. The wild bull thrashed furiously in the pit, desperate to strike back, but locked down by the trap mechanism. It couldn't even touch a single thread of Linzhou's clothing. Linzhou's eyes went cold. One swift slash. The bone blade sliced the bull's throat. Scalding beast blood gushed out like a geyser, splattering all over Linzhou's hide clothing, and giving him a bloodthirsty, feral edge. The bounty the sky spirits promised the Chiyuan tribe has arrived. Linzhou raised the blood-soaked dagger high. His voice thundered. A stunned pause. The entire tribe exploded. The sky spirits are mighty. Long live the emissary. A harvest. We have meat. We won't starve anymore. The ancestors have answered. The emissary really was sent by the sky spirits to save us. Hundreds of female warriors screamed and cheered, howling as tears and mud streamed down their faces. They dropped to their knees again in unison, kowtowing frantically before Linzhou. That fanatical devotion burned even hotter 10 times fiercer than when they'd seen the snow salt. In the face of desperate famine, a mountain of fresh meat was the most undeniable argument there was. Kuang Lan was utterly dumbstruck. He looked back and saw the few diehard loyalists who'd stood behind him, with drawn blades moments before, were now scared out of their minds. They quietly tossed their weapons aside and crawled back into the crowd, kneeling and kowtowing desperately along with everyone else, fearing the emissary's wrath. Left alone, Kuang Lan sat alone and broken on the altar. Surrounded by frenzied cheers, he felt ice running through his veins, like a frozen pit. He knew he was doomed. Completely finished, Lin Zhou flicked the blood from his dagger, then slowly turned around. He didn't spare a glance at Kuang Lan crumpled on the ground. Instead, his gaze swept past the frenzied crowd, targeted Qi Yuan on the platform. A deep, unreadable smile tugged at the corner of Lin Zhou's lips. He shifted slightly aside and made a sweeping after-you gesture. He knew full well his final move to cement his authority. He needed the ruler's blade to cut him down, not upstage the throne. Qi Yuan met Lin Zhou's gaze head-on. The wild, untamed chiefess drew in a deep breath. Her chest heaved violently. She understood exactly what Lin Zhou meant. Perfect time to assert her power. Thud, thud, thud. Qi Yuan strode forward on her long, powerful legs, gripping the blood-red axe of life and death. Step by step, she ascended the altar. She loomed over Kuang Lan. The cold gleam of the axe blade seared into Kuang Lan's despairing eyes. Kuang Lan, anything else you want to say? Qi Yuan's voice was cold as ice, laced with undisguised killing intent. Judgment descends. Chapter 19, Conspiracy. The brute, the elder, slandering, shaking hearts. Kuang Lan by tribal law, hacked to bits or exiled to wolves. Qi Yuan's voice was cold as ice, killing intent clear. Blood axe in hand, pointed straight at the tip of Kuang Lan's nose. The razor-sharp edge still bore the dark crimson grooves, soaked from past executions of traitors. As the supreme ruler of the Blood Wan tribe, Qi Yuan's authority could never be challenged. Not to mention, today Kuang Lan had nearly destroyed the tribe's only hope of receiving a divine blessing. Kuang Lan knelt on both knees against the freezing stone floor, her entire body trembling violently. She stared at the stone axe inches from her face, then glanced back toward the pit. At the saber-horned bison with its throat slashed, stone-cold dead. The despair in her eyes was finally consumed by the desperate madness of a cornered beast. I don't accept this. He's a damn demon. Even if I die, I'm dragging him down with me. Kuang Lan suddenly lunged like a crazed mother bear, letting out a blood-curdling roar. With all that monstrous brute strength, she actually pushed through Qi Yuan's oppressive aura and exploded up from the ground. He didn't even bother grabbing the fallen blade. Arms spread wide, fingers curled like iron hooks. He hit Lin Zhou with a rush of wind, hurling himself forward like a rabid beast. Fast, brutal, blindingly sudden, clear as day. The man wanted a death pact. Bai Lu, who had never let him out of her senses, roared. The blind warrior woman couldn't see a thing, but her pinpoint hearing locked on instantly. Thud! A sickening, bone-grinding impact. Bai Lu swung that massive fertile shell shield, like she was hurling a damn mountain. It slammed square into Kuang Lan's side. The force was absolutely monstrous. Kuang Lan's 200-pound frame went flying like a busted sack of grain. He arced through the air and crashed, smashing hard against a stone pillar at the altar's edge. Blood erupted from Kuang Lan's mouth. He slid down the pillar, every bone in his body screaming. All that pride and his brute strength, shattered, utterly crushed. Before he could even crawl back up, a figure wreathed in flame red materialized in front of him like a ghost. Qi Yuan. Crack! Qi Yuan raised a long, powerful leg and stomped down hard on Kuang Lan's spine, pinning him flat into the dirt. The pressure on his ribcage produced a sickening crack of bone. His face slammed into the filth and mud, leaving only muffled howls. Execute the traitor. Tear him apart. Spill his blood for the ancestors. Hundreds of fully armed women warriors below the altar raised their bone spears in perfect unison. Bloodlust burned bright in their eyes. Their fury nearly tore the camp apart. Moments ago, Kuang Lan had tried to turn them against Shur. Now, that same frenzied mob had turned its fangs back on him, ready to tear him limb from limb. Qi Yuan's face was carved from ice. Both hands gripped the blood-red stone axe, raised high overhead. One swing was all it would take. Kuang Lan's thick skull would burst like an overripe melon. Hold it, just as the blade began its descent, carving a deadly arc through the air. A hand, not particularly large, shot out, planted firmly on Qi Yuan's axe handle. Qi Yuan's head whipped around, a flash of shock crossing his eyes. The frenzied cheers of the crowd died in an instant. Everyone stared in disbelief at the scrawny man stepping forward. The emissary. Qi Yuan's brow furrowed. His grip on the axe didn't loosen. He has offended the sky spirits. His sin must be washed away with death. This is the law of Qi Yuan's tribe. Lin Zhou met Qi Yuan's murderous gaze head-on. A smirk, half smile, half sneer, tugged at the corner of his mouth. He gently pressed the axe downward. Kill him? What a waste. Lin Zhou turned around, looking down at Kuang Lan, pinned in the muck. His voice was soft, yet rang clear across the entire altar. The sky spirits despise betrayal, but they also admire a powerful body. Kuang Lan has monstrous strength. If we chop up all that muscle just to feed the wolves, it will be a crime against nature itself. Lin Zhou paused deliberately. His gaze swept over the bewildered primitives below the platform. Then he suddenly raised his voice. Kuang Lan, the blood oath you swore with your own mouth. Whole tribe heard. You lost. From now, you're the lowest slave. Sky spirits decree it. A grand hall, unlike anything ever seen, shall be built in this tribe. and you will be the finest stepping stone for its foundation. Lin Zhou crouched down, grabbed a fistful of Kuang Lan's hair, forcing that mud-caked face upward. His eyes were utterly merciless. You want to die? Not that easy. I want you alive, like a real beast of burden, hauling the heaviest logs, doing the filthiest work. While you breathe, you'll break your back. Got it? Kill the body, then kill the spirit. For a thorn like Kuang Lan who values strength and honor above life itself, one clean cut will be a mercy. Strip away his honor as a warrior completely. Turn him into free labor for anyone to boss around. That's how modern capitalist. No, strategy conquers savagery. Ultimate win. Kuang Lan clenched her jaw so hard, her gums bled. Her bloodshot eyes locked onto Lin Zhou. Humiliation, resentment, rage, all swirling madly in her gaze. But she could feel the terrifying force of Qi Yuan on her back, ready to snap her spine at any second. She saw her people's contempt in cold eyes. In the end, the fear of death finally crushed what little pride I had left. I admit it. Kuang Lan's hoarse voice came from deep in his throat. Trembling, he reached out and untied the spare small bone club his waist, the symbol of his status as hunt captain, and threw it at Lin Zhou's feet in humiliation. Surrendering, defeated, a wild mother bear had finally been completely broken. Good. Lin Zhou stood up and shook the mud off his hands with disgust. Bai Lu, watch him. From now on, if he dares slack off or resist, no need to ask permission. Just break his legs. Yes, my lord emissary. Bai Lu slammed the ground hard with her shield, the impact ringing with authority, as Kuang Lan was dragged away like a beaten dog. The crowd below roared louder. In their eyes, the emissary not only possessed the supreme power to capture giant beasts alive, but also a mercy and wisdom as deep as it was unfathomable. Even a troublemaker like Kuang Lan, one of the worst in the tribe, could be completely brought to heel. The power of the sky spirits truly is terrifying beyond belief. Qi Yuan put away her stone axe and turned to look at Lin Zhou. This wild and untamed huntress was now breathing heavier than before. The way she looked at Lin Zhou held more than just deep respect and awe. A new burning ache she couldn't name. A man who could not only bring food and miracles, but also rule with such an iron grip. Those genes, if they could stay in the Qi Yuan tribe, how powerful would the offspring be? Lin Zhou felt his back roll on Qi Yuan's stare, devouring hunger. He cleared his throat and changed the subject. Ah, chiefess, since the matter is settled, let the tribe share the beast. Once everyone's bellies are full, we still have big things to do. The sacrificial ceremony finally ended in an unprecedented frenzy of celebration. The mountain of meat from the saber-toothed bison was carved up and roasted over the fire until it sizzled and dripped with fat. When Lin Zhou personally sprinkled the purified snow salt evenly over the roasted meat, the entire tribe descended into absolute mad feasting. The salty, savory taste brought tears of joy to these primitives who had been starving for over half a month. In that moment, Lin Zhou's standing and influence within the tribe reached an all-time peak, unmatched and absolute. And while the tribe's people feasted like there was no tomorrow, out on the open ground just beyond the camp, the construction frenzy was already thundering into full swing. Move it. You skip breakfast? Haul that main beam over there. Lin Zhou stood with a stick in hand, sketching simple mortise and tenon diagrams into the dirt, barking orders while Kuang Lan worked stripped to the waist. A massive log weighing hundreds of pounds digging into his shoulder. Every step made his legs shake like jelly. The rough bark had torn his shoulder raw, blood snaking down his arm, but he didn't dare let out so much as a grunt. The second he slowed down even a little, Bai Lu, playing overseer, didn't hesitate, slamming the edge of her shield hard across his backside, watching this elite, high-stat beast of burden, drenched in sweat under his command. Lin Zhou was absolutely cackling inside. Not only had he removed the biggest internal threat without shedding a single drop of blood, he'd also scored a premium labor for free, and the whole tribe's infrastructure progress was now rocketing upward like a launched missile. Lin Zhou stood on a raised slope, looking down at the bustling worksite. With a thought, he summoned the system panel. Host Lin Zhou. Current Civ points, 2,350. Intelligence branch fully achieved. Basic trap hunting mastered. Staring at the soaring Civ points, Lin Zhou drew a deep breath. He wasn't about to let this one go to his head. The internal troublemaker was dealt with, but the deadline hanging over his head hadn't gone anywhere. He turned and glanced into the distance, where Qi Yuan was tearing into a slab of meat. The chiefess's gaze kept drifting toward him, and the heat in her eyes was fiercer than the roasting fire itself. 1 month to build a palace. At this pace, 2 or 3 days max before it was done. Lin Zhou rubbed his chin and felt an absolute headache coming on. The moment that palace was finished, all that pin-up, primal need Qi Yuan had been holding back would erupt like a volcano, full force. With his current barely above puny weakling physique, if that she-dragon actually pinned him to the bed, he wouldn't stand a chance. She'd drain him dry on the spot. He had to exchange for the ultimate physique potion now. Lin Zhou gritted his teeth, scheming furiously in his head. And while the whole tribe celebrated, pushing construction at full speed, no one noticed. In the darkest, dampest corner at the edge of camp, a pair of venomous eyes were locked onto Lin Zhou up on the high slope. The old hag Kumu crouched in shadows, her withered hands gripping the fallen skull-top staff, her nails digging so deep into her palms they oozed black blood. Her ancient face was twisted with malice and bitterness. Emissary? Huh. Just an outsider with cheap tricks. You want to steal my power in this tribe? Dream on. Kumu dropped her voice, muttering like a venomous snake coiled in the dirt. She gave a subtle wave, and a wiry, dark-faced female confidant slipped out of the shadows and knelt at her feet. High Priestess, what do we do? The whole tribe's been bewitched by him, the confidant whispered, her voice trembling with dread. In Kumu's cloudy, inverted triangle eyes, a flash of merciless cruelty glinted. She leaned in close to her confidant's ear, in a voice only the two of them could hear. Bit out each word with deliberate menace. After dark, slip out through the hidden pass behind the hill. Head north. Find the Greed Wolf tribe's raiding party. Kumu let out a cold snicker, uglier than a demon's grin. Tell them the Chiyuan tribe has endless meat and white spirit powder that makes men strong. If they bring their warriors, I'll open the gates for them myself. The confidant gasped treason, but under Kumu's flesh-hungry glare, she could only grit her teeth and nod, before melting silently into the night. A gust of icy wind, flecked with frost, swept through the camp. The flames in the fire pit lurched violently. Linzhou stood atop the high slope, and suddenly shivered. He lifted his head to the pitch-black northern sky, and a suffocating sense of dread rose in his chest. Chapter 20. The cabin rises. A long night of tension. Get that main beam up there. Line up the tenon with a mortise, and hammer it down hard. Linzhou stood on the high slope, the cold wind whipping his hide cloak with a sharp crack. He forced down that unexplained unease in his chest, raised the branch in his hand, and roared at the work site down below. Yes, Kuangwan let out a beast-like bellow. He was stripped to the waist, every terrifying cord of muscle drawn to its breaking point, hefting a huge log. Hoisted onto his shoulders, the rough bark had already torn the skin there into raw, bloody shreds. Blood streamed down his arms in rivulets, but he didn't dare let out more than a shallow breath, because Bai Lu was standing right behind him, that massive tortoiseshell shield in her hands, ready to slam down on his spine at any second. Thud! With a bone-rattling boom, the massive main beam was driven hard by Kuangwan into the pre-cut anchor notch. Wood against wood, locked together with seamless precision, letting out a cringe-inducing grinding sound. Then it settled in, solid as a mountain. Linzhou tossed aside the branch in his hand and let out a long, heavy exhale. With Kuangwan, that tireless top-tier beast of burden, and the entire tribe's female warriors working at breakneck pace, in just under 3 days, the first true palace in the tribe's history rose from the ground. A sprawling wooden hall covering 70 or 80 square meters. Not a single strip of rot-prone vine used for binding, all relying on Linzhou's joints, locking each thick log together with brutal tightness. Thick plank walls packed with windproof mud. The sloped roof layered thick with dry grass and hides, as sturdy as a small fortress. The watching female warriors were completely stunned in their understanding. A place to live was either a dark, damp cave, or some flimsy tent thrown together with branches and hides, drafty and leaking. But this towering, solid structure before them, a giant radiating the fresh scent of timber, completely shattered their impoverished imagination. Divine skill. This is absolutely divine skill. Jingzhe craned her neck, staring at the seamless wooden walls, her voice trembling with excitement. No ropes, and wood just bites together on its own? If that's not magic taught by the sky spirits, then what is it? Night fell quickly. The temperature on the wild plains plummeted. An icy wind laced with sleet cut through like knives. Linzhou pushed open the heavy wooden door and stepped into the palace that belonged solely to him. He lit a fire pit in the stone hollow at the center of the hall. Orange flames shot up in an instant, filling the spacious room with bright, cozy warmth. No bone-chilling drafts, no seeping mud, and at the deepest part of the house, smooth planks had been built into a wide double bed, spread with 3 layers of thoroughly clean, cloud-soft, long-haired pelts. Linzhou stretched out with pure satisfaction. Outside, hundreds of tribe members knelt in a dense, silent mass. From over a dozen meters away, they stared in awe at the fire-lit wooden lodge. No one dared take even half a step closer. Sacrilege. Finally, a proper nest worth calling home. Linzhou walked over and sat by the fire pit. After making sure no one was peeking from outside, he instantly pulled up the system panel in his mind. Current Civ points, 2,650. This all came after successfully subduing Kuangwan and completing the wooden lodge. A massive reward settled by the system. Linzhou didn't hesitate for a second. He opened the system shop, gaze locked dead on the item he'd been eyeing forever. Exchange for ultimate physique potion. 2,000 Civ points deducted. Exchange successful. With the system's crisp chime, a vial of liquid, glowing, faint blue, materialized out of thin air in Linzhou's hand. He popped the stopper, tilted his head back, and downed the icy potion in one go. The moment it hit his stomach, Linzhou's face twisted sharply. Ugh. No pleasant relief as expected. Instead came a horrifying wave of pain, like every bone in his body being ground to dust inch by inch. Blue energy rampaged through his veins. Muscle fibers tore and frantically reassembled. His bones crackled like popcorn in a hot pan. Linzhou clenched his jaw so hard it nearly locked. His hands clawed at the fur covering him. Sweat poured off him like he'd just been dragged out of water. The agony raged for a full 10 minutes, before finally receding like a tide. Linzhou gasped for air, struggled upright, and looked down. His once scrawny, hollow chest now showed clear, defined muscle. A slight fist clench, and his knuckles cracked with power. A surge of unmatched strength flooded every fiber of his body. Post-current physique, 18. Normal human limit, 10. Finally, out of the puny weakling bracket, Linzhou wiped the cold sweat from his brow. A smirk was just starting to form at the corner of his mouth, when his mind couldn't help but flash to Kuangwan, hauling a 500-pound log at full sprint, and Chiyuan stomping through. Kuangwan's spine-chilling, explosive power. The smile froze on his face. Shit, an 18 in Constitution makes you Superman in the modern world. But against these she-dragons with 50+ Constitution, I'm still just a puny weakling they can crush like a bug. Linzhou rubbed his temples. The unease in his chest grew stronger because he knew full well, now that the palace was complete, that deadly deadline had officially arrived. Creak! Just then, the cabin's heavy wooden door was suddenly pushed open from outside. A blast of icy wind rushed in, but it was quickly swallowed by the warmth of the fire pit. Linzhou whipped his head around. There stood Qi Yuan alone in the doorway. This supreme ruler of the Qi Yuan tribe had, for the first time ever, not worn that heavy, beast-hide battle armor. She never let that blood-red stone axe out of her sight. She was draped in nothing but a dangerously thin crimson fox fur. That fur didn't even come close to covering her outrageously explosive curves. Long, toned legs, a waist so slender yet packed with explosive power. In the firelight, her skin glowed with a wild, honey-toned sheen of raw temptation. Qi Yuan swung the heavy wooden door shut behind her and dropped the latch. She turned around. Those predatory eyes swept across the cozy, warm cabin before locking dead onto Linzhou standing by the bed. Emissary, your palace is even more perfect than I imagined. Qi Yuan's voice was impossibly hoarse, carrying a wild hunger she'd been suppressing for a whole month. As she spoke, she strode forward on those long legs, closing in on Linzhou step by step. With every step, the fire in her eyes burned hotter. Ah, if the chiefess is pleased, all thanks to the sky spirits. Linzhou instinctively stepped back half a pace. His lower back hit the edge of the bed. Nowhere left to retreat. Thanks to the sky spirits? Qi Yuan stopped right in front of Linzhou. The gap between them was less than half a foot. Her scorching breath hit his face directly, carrying a raw, feverish wave of primal pheromones. A month ago, on this very fur, you promised me. Qi Yuan reached out with those long fingers and grabbed a fistful of Linzhou's shirt. Her eyes turned absolutely domineering. Once the palace was built, you gave me the wisdom and power the sky spirits granted you, transferred into you through feigning. And now time's up. Before the words even faded, Qi Yuan wasn't about to give Linzhou any room to run his mouth. Both hands suddenly wrenched down hard. Oof. Linzhou felt an unstoppable brute force slam into him. His whole body lost balance in an instant, and Qi Yuan drove him down flat onto that massive wooden bed. Wait, Chiefess, just hear me out. Even with the ultimate physique elixir in his system, against a human-shaped T-Rex like Qi Yuan, Linzhou still had zero chance to fight back. His hands strained against Qi Yuan's shoulders, pressing down on him, brain spinning at full speed, grasping for one last desperate out. The sky spirits, they need ritual. This can't be rushed. We need to pick an auspicious day. Ancestors witness Linzhou's nonsense, trying to stall with superstitious garbage. The ancestors don't control what happens in my bed. A wild guttural growl tore from Qi Yuan's throat, cutting Linzhou's bullshit off mid-sentence. His burning hot long legs swung over Linzhou's waist, and he straddled him in a full dominance mount. Scream all you want. No one will come. The fire in Qi Yuan's eyes had already burned straight through reason. He ripped away the last annoying layer of crimson fox fur, revealing a body so perfect it would make any man's blood surge. He leaned down, opened his mouth, and kissed Linzhou's neck like he was claiming prey. It's over. Linzhou's eye twitched, feeling that scorching, fired body pressed tight against his own. What was left of his modern-day rationality was being devoured by raw, primal instinct, just as Qi Yuan's fingers roughly tore open Linzhou's belt, about to take that final step, at the very edge of the point of no return. Screech, a night owl's sentry whistle, so sharp it seemed to slice through the night sky, suddenly erupted from the tribe's northern defense line. That whistle, short and shrill, carried endless panic and despair. Then a second, a third. A chain of drum whistles shrieking together instantly tore apart the camp's quiet night. Qi Yuan, who 1 second ago was drowning in lust, went completely rigid, those eyes that had been burning with raw desire. The moment the whistle hit, the fire was snuffed out like a bucket of ice water to the face, replaced by a bone-chilling, murderous intent. Bang! The heavy wooden door of the hut was forced open, latch snapped. Emissary Jingzhe stumbled through the doorway, collapsing beside the fire pit. Linzhou shoved Qi Yuan off him and sat up, then drew a sharp breath. Jingzhe was covered head to toe in blood. His left arm dangled limply, clearly broken. A rusted black iron arrow was buried deep in his back. Blood poured out. What happened? Qi Yuan wrapped a fox pelt on, leaping off the bed with a voice cold enough to kill. The Northern Watch fire has been lit. Jingzhe coughed up blood. He roared, Greed Wolf Tribe. Their raiding party crept up under cover of darkness. The outer defense line is broken. They're killing everyone in sight, stealing our meat and salt. The Greed Wolf Tribe? Linzhou's mind went blank for a second. Flashback to the ritual's end. That Elder Kumu, and a shady, secretive glance she'd exchanged from the shadows. Damn it, that old hag brought the invaders here. A deep, mournful horn blast sounded from the edge of the camp. Linzhou looked out through the shattered door. The once pitch-black northern sky was now completely lit red by raging flames. He could faintly hear countless men laughing with savage, beast-like excitement, and the piercing screams of Qi Yuan's female warriors. Greed Wolf scum, you're dead. The killing intent in Qi Yuan's eyes erupted completely. She snatched the bloodstained stone axe leaning against the wall. No armor, just a pelt. She charged out like a crazed leopard, into the blinding snow and roaring fire. Linzhou sat on the bed, his face so dark it looked ready to drip water. He grabbed a sharp bone-handled knife from under his pillow, and slowly stood up. Just then, in his vision, the system panel suddenly flashed a harsh, blood-red warning light. Fatal external intrusion detected. No one's getting their hands on you. Sure, Yuan grabs Lin Zhou by the shoulder. His voice drops, deadly as a mother leopard guarding her cub. The lust-clouded haze in his eyes is replaced by a bone-chilling, murderous cold. Lin Zhou is pressed against the edge of the bed, watching the crimson warnings flash wildly across his vision. Warning: lethal external intrusion detected. Main crisis triggered. Winter Blood Moon battle. Tribe annihilation countdown initiated. 2 hours, 58 minutes, 12 seconds. Less than 3 hours. Lin Zhou glances at himself again. That pitiful constitution score of 18 on his system panel. Sure, he chugged the ultimate potion, but out there against those primitive raiders, with constitution stats in the 40s or 50s. But he's still weak. Stay inside. Wait for those she-devils out there to die off. Then I'll be their trophy husband. Cut it. Lin Zhou shoves Qi Yuan's hand. Off his shoulder, snatches the polished bone axe. From under the pillow, his eyes colder than the ice outside. The outer defense line is gone. The north side of the cabin is wide open now. Charging out alone with an axe. How many can you take? Qi Yuan freezes for a second, clearly caught off guard that this usually frail-looking emissary could summon such raw strength in a life-or-death moment. Get out here. Lin Zhou grabs the heavy fur cloak off the wall and wraps it around himself. He kicks the half-open wooden door wide and charges straight into the blinding snowstorm. The camp is already dissolved into total chaos. The greed wolf raiders are inside. My baby. Has anyone seen my child? The meat. Hide the meat. Don't let them take it. Hundreds of female warriors scramble around, like headless flies in the firelight. Terrified screams, frantic footsteps, and the approaching battle cries from the distance all blend together into a nerve-shredding nightmare. The conservative elders from Kumu's faction are so scared they collapse to the ground, crawling and scrambling into the darkest corners. Lin Zhou inhales deeply, the freezing air, blood and ice stench. Then he roars, unleashing a deafening bellow. Everybody shut the hell up. That single roar takes every ounce of strength Lin Zhou has, fueled by his newly boosted 18 constitution. The sound rolled through the camp like thunder. It cut through the chaos and silenced the entire crowd. The panicked mob froze in its tracks. Hundreds of terrified eyes snapped toward him at once, all locked on Lin Zhou, standing on the steps of the wooden hall. What are you panicking for? The sky hasn't fallen yet. Lin Zhou swept his gaze over the crowd from above. His bone stylus gleamed cold in the firelight. You want to live? Then perk up your ears and do exactly what I say. Lin Zhou's mind was running at full throttle. Modern tactical thinking seized control of his body. The south side camp has deep pits and trenches. From our digging days ago, they can't get through there. The real weak point is the gap on the north side. Lin Zhou's words came rapid fire. He gave them no time to react. Bai Lu. The wolf-eyed giantess advanced, hauling her massive turtle shell shield. The ground shook with every step. Take everyone in the tribe with a heavy shield. Hold the gap in the north palisade no matter what. Form a single line. Brace each other's shields with your shoulders. Step back, and I'll cut you down. As you command, emissary. Bai Lu roared, her blind eyes flashing wide. Heavy shields with me. Dozens of the strongest female warriors fell in behind Bai Lu without hesitation, like a moving wall of muscle. They thundered toward the north wind. Jingzhe. Lin Zhou spun around, his eyes locked on the archer captain coughing blood by the fire. Your arm's broken. Are your legs? No? Then you can still kill. Jingzhe gritted her teeth and forced herself up off the ground. Good. Take everyone who could draw a bow. Get up to the second floor of the hall. Now, Lin Zhou pointed at the newly built palace behind him. Smash half the shutters for cover. Hold the high ground. Nobody fires without my order. Jingzhe's eyes lit up. Of course. This huge, solid wooden hall was practically a watchtower already. Archers, second floor. The tribe had been running around like headless chickens. Under Lin Zhou's sharp, precise commands. Cold and decisive. They suddenly found their anchor. Panic was crushed down by sheer authority. In its place surged a fierce obedience, the kind only raw tactical genius could command. The rest of you, Lin Zhou's gaze swept over the ordinary fighters, holding stone spears and bone clubs. Bring every torch and fire basin in camp, and pull out every half-burned torch and fire pit too. Emissary. An old guard shrieked in horror. Her voice trembled. If we pull the torches, the whole camp goes dark. How the hell are we supposed to fight blind? You idiot. Lin Zhou tore into her without mercy. If you want the greed wolf scouts to see, there were just a few hundred beaten down survivors. Then by all means, keep the torches burning. Lin Zhou pointed at the pitch-black snowfield beyond the north wall. He roared, throw every last torch. 30 paces past the north fence. Make a line. Sure Yuan stood beside Lin Zhou. He caught on instantly. Do as the emissary says. Move. Dozens of warriors sprang into action. They hurled every light source in camp over the north wall in one frantic rush. In an instant, the camp plunged into pitch-black darkness. But 30 paces beyond the north fence, a roaring wall of flame stretched for dozens of meters. The orange-red glow lit up the snowfield like broad daylight. That wall of fire was a psychological weapon. Primitives never saw this trick. They huddled in the dark camp, staring at the blinding wall of fire outside. Their awe of Lin Zhou shot to a terrifying new height. The emissary's wisdom is deeper than the great beasts themselves. Thud, thud, thud. Just as the fire wall took shape, from the blizzard beyond the north wall came a heavy, rhythmic march. Not the chaotic rush of untrained rabble, but a disciplined elite force. Thud, thud, thud. The march was joined by bone spears hammering against hide shields in a deafening cadence. Like a giant warhammer, it slammed into the hearts of every blood swamp warrior. The pressure hit its absolute peak. Lin Zhou crouched in the shadows behind the wooden barricade. Eyes narrowed. He stared hard into the darkness beyond the firewall. With the flames lighting the field, he finally saw the enemy. They were a pack of beast-like, powerfully built women, clad in gray-white wolf pelts, their faces smeared with gruesome white bone ash. The front ranks, dozens of them, carried thick wooden shields half as tall as a person. Through the gaps in the shield wall jutted viciously sharpened bone spears, pale as death, like a moving forest of death. Greed Wolf Vanguard, roughly 120 strong, top-tier gear and tight formations. This isn't some grab-and-go raiding party. This is the vanguard of a massacre. Lin Zhou quickly ran the numbers in his head. We got the terrain advantage, but our real fighters number less than 80. The rest are old, weak, sick, or injured. If we fight head-on, we won't last half an hour. Just as Lin Zhou was furiously gaming out tactics, an inexplicable chill shot up his spine. The feeling was like being locked onto by a venomous snake lurking in the grass. Lin Zhou whipped his head around. At the edge of the camp, in the dying glow of the fire pit, a slender figure stood perfectly still. Xiao Yu, the ghostly witch. Unlike everyone else, she wasn't hiding or prepping for battle. She was cradling that eerie skull relic in her hands. Her glowing green eyes pierced through the chaotic crowd, locked dead onto Lin Zhou. There was no fear of war in that gaze. No reverence for death. Only a bone-chilling, morbid, insatiable thirst for knowledge. Her slender fingers traced the skull. Her lips moved faintly, as if silently repeating every tactic Lin Zhou had just issued. The way she looked at him was like staring at an endless treasure trove, like she wanted to crack him open and suck out every drop of wisdom about those defenses and firewalls for herself. Alarm bells screamed in Lin Zhou's head. This psycho is seriously scoping out corpses at a time like this? And that possessive look in her eyes was even more chilling than Qi Yuan's raw physical hunger. A thunderous roar ripped through the air, yanking Lin Zhou's attention away from Xiao Yu. Beyond the firewall, the raiding party's formation split open. A towering woman, nearly 2 meters tall, with a hideous scar slashing across her nose, strode to the front, gripping a massive cleaver. Scarface led the vanguard. Squinting at the blinding wall of fire, Qi Yuan's men hid in the dark. She couldn't tell how many ambushers were hidden behind this bizarre firewall, but the bloodlust in her bones refused to let her back down. Listen up, you Qi Yuan trash. The scarred woman raised a massive bone cleaver. The blade pointed straight at the towering wooden lodge. Her voice grated like a night hag's shriek. Hand over your meat. Hand over the white crystal, or tonight you all die. Lin Zhou hid in the shadows, his chest heaving. He knew full well this was a probe. If his side showed even a flicker of weakness, these starved wolves would pounce without hesitation and tear everyone to shreds. Lin Zhou sucked in a deep breath. A glacial calm stripped away every trace of fear. He glanced up at the second floor, where Jingzhou waited at the window, bow drawn. Then at the breach, held firm by sheer will. The domestic envoy defense line was fully set. Modern tactics versus primal brute force. The first real battle was unavoidable. Prepare to breach. Outside the firewall, seeing no reaction from the camp, a flash of savagery crossed the scarred woman's eyes. She heaved that massive bone cleaver high. Its blade caught the firelight, reflecting a blood-chilling gleam. Charge! Burn that lodge to the ground. Kill them all. With a roar that shattered the wind and snow, hundreds of wolf riders charged through the breach. With heavy, pounding steps, they charged fearlessly toward the roaring wall of flames. Battle erupted in an instant. Chapter 22. Firewall Maneuver. Vanguard routed. Charge! Burn that lodge. Kill them all. Her scream pierced the storm like a banshee. At her command, over 100 elite greed wolf raiders, like a black flood breaching a dam, waded through the thick snow and crossed the blinding wall of fire, straight for the northern defensive breach of the Blood Moon tribe. Their heavy footfalls made the very ground tremble. Waist-high hide shields locked into a solid wall. Bone spears gleamed through the gaps, bloodthirsty. The pressure hit its absolute peak. Lin Zhou lurked in the shadows behind the wooden palisade, tracking the enemy's charge distance with laser focus. 30 paces, 20. Loose. Lin Zhou's hand slashed down. He let out a raw, hysterical roar. Go, go, go. On the lodge's second floor, Jingzha and a dozen archers shoved open half the wooden window. One arm drew moon bows. Arrows poured down. Primitive archery wasn't exactly known for accuracy, but with a high ground gravity assist, and the enemy's tightly packed charge formation, no need to aim. A few wet, ugly screams rang out instantly. The first wave of greed wolf warriors got. Rusty iron arrows punched clean through their shoulders. Face planted in snow. Shields up. Block arrows. Push. Scarface swung that massive cleaver of hers, splitting a bone arrow aimed right at her face. Eyes blazing, she roared. Greed wolf's elites are tough. They push straight through the arrow storm, trampling the fallen, charging. 10 steps. 5. Scarface could already see clearly at the breach. Ailu's terrified, stupid face. A cruel grin twisted the corner of her mouth. One good slam through the shield wall, and everyone inside is just lamb chops waiting for the cleaver. Kill. Just as Scarface was about to smash through the line in one final push, crack. The front row of charging greed wolf warriors suddenly dropped. The smooth snowfield just collapsed without any warning. The thing Lin Zhou had people digging all day wasn't some deep pit meant to trap giant beasts. It was a shallow trench, barely half a meter deep. Not even a single spike at the bottom for extra damage, but in a high-speed charge with a tight formation. This unimpressive little ditch was basically a physics-grade killer tripwire. The front dozen or so people stepped into nothing. Massive momentum slammed their bodies forward and down, face first into the dirt, teeth flying, and the rows behind them couldn't stop in time. They plowed straight into the backs of the front row. Instant domino effect. A tight formation of over 100 people disintegrated just 3 steps from the defensive line. Bodies collide, shields clash. A tangled mass. Screams and curses erupted all at once. Now, Bailu, push up. Lin Zhou's eyes blazed. He yanked out the bone handle. Good. Bailu's been waiting for this exact moment. He roared, arms bulging with muscle, holding that massive tortoise-shell shield steady, leading dozens of heavy shield bearers like a moving wall of iron. They slammed into the scrambling greed wolf warriors. Boom, boom, boom. The impact made your scalp crawl. Greed wolf's vanguard got sent flying, coughing blood. The snap of breaking bones was crystal clear in the wind and snow. Jingzhe flanked them. Lin Zhou gave the next order. Archers on the second floor of the cabin, shift fire. Focus on anyone trying to. The stragglers climbing up from both flanks. In an instant, the Greed Wolf vanguard was split up and surrounded. Trapped, Scarface pinned under bodies. She fought and clawed her way back to her feet. The scar across her face twisted with raw fury. Her prized assault formation hadn't even touched a single hair on the enemy, and yet it had collapsed so senselessly. Chief, it's an ambush. There are pits in the ground. A blood-soaked Greed Wolf. Warrior screamed as he stumbled backward. Scarface whipped her head toward that wall of fire still raging. Glanced at the eerie wooden lodge. A wave of bone-deep dread rose from her gut. Since when did the Chiyuan tribe get this freakish? Fall back. Retreat. Scarface gritted teeth, unwilling. Yet barked the order, no gamble. This freakish firewall, these traps he never saw coming, and that wooden tower raining arrows from above. Unknown foe strength. If fight dragged, every last one of these elites would be buried here. The Greed Wolf vanguard came fast and retreated even faster, leaving behind a dozen corpses and wounded, scurrying back into the wind-ravaged night like beaten dogs. Don't chase a cornered enemy. All units hold the line. Lin Zhou barked, stopping several warriors who were about to charge out for the kill. We won. We drove off the Greed Wolf raiders. Long live the emissary. The sky spirits shield us. Deafening cheers erupted across the camp. Hundreds of female warriors embraced one another in tears, their fanatical gazes all locked onto Lin Zhou, who lurked in the shadows. Lin Zhou slumped against the wooden palisade, gasping for air in huge, ragged breaths. The hand gripping the bone pin shook like a leaf. Body utterly drained, nerves strung past their breaking point. Holy crap, those primitives charged like a pack of raging bulls. Almost scared the piss right out of me. Lin Zhou cursed inwardly. About to rest? Emissary. A cold, soft voice laced with something eerie. An obsessive suddenly sounded right beside Lin Zhou's ear. Every hair on Lin Zhou's body stood on end. He whipped his head around. Jiaoyue, that ghost-like Yander spirit witch, had somehow already slipped right up to his face. The distance between them less than half a foot. He could even smell that bitter herbal scent that clung to him from years of grinding medicine. The firelight danced in his green eyes. Those eyes held none of the tribe's collective relief. None of that post-survival euphoria. Only a chilling, unhinged obsession. What are you doing? Lin Zhou instinctively tightened his grip on the bone pin, his back pressed flat against the wooden palisade. The fire trench and that arrow-slit cabin. Jiaoyu's slender fingers trembled slightly, rolling the skull totem in his hands as his breathing quickened. He locked eyes with Lin Zhou. His voice quivered. This is the Sky Spirit's battle tactic, isn't it? No brute strength. No sharpened blades. Yet the Greed Wolf elites dropped like beaten dogs. Alarm bells screamed in Lin Zhou's head. This insane woman's mind worked on a completely different track. On that battlefield, she saw no life or death. Only pure knowledge crushing raw force. I want to learn. Jiaoyu spoke suddenly, his tone laced with obsessive resolve. Emissary, teach me this knowledge. I need to know. How did you know they would step into that trench? This wasn't a request. It was daylight robbery. Lin Zhou drew a slow breath, forcing himself to stay calm. He knew how to handle this Yander type. Never give in. Be colder. Be harder. Learn? Lin Zhou let out a cold scoff, a mocking smirk tugging at his lips. What makes you think the wisdom of the sky spirits is something a mere mortal like you can even touch? Jiaoyu froze, clearly not expecting such a flat refusal. But the next second, his eyes burned even hotter. Jiaoyu dropped to one knee in the icy mud, raising his skull totem high above his head with both hands. The sacred relic of the spirit witch. I'll trade everything I have. Jiaoyu lifted his chin, those green eyes locked on Lin Zhou, his voice thick with unhinged devotion. My loyalty, my body, even my soul. Just teach me. Lin Zhou stared at the woman before him, a fanatic through and through. The cold dread in his chest only deepened. He didn't reach for the skull totem, nor did he accept her plea. The wind howled between them. Lin Zhou loomed over Jiaoyu, his gaze dark as an abyss. A glacial smile slowly carved across his face. Chapter 23. The Spirit Which Volunteers. Night Reconnaissance. You want to learn the wisdom of the sky spirits? Lin Zhou glared down at Jiaoyu, kneeling in frozen mud, his voice cold as the storm. First, tell me why you want it. Her pale face flickered in the firelight, a ghostly red glow clinging to her skin. Those dark green eyes of hers stayed locked on Lin Zhou, two dying flames in her eyes, smoke and ash swirling. Jiao Yu's voice was barely a whisper, but every word trembled with obsessive fervor. Emissary, these secrets belong to the divine. I want to know them. I want to know why I crawled out of the stone. I want to know how those white nerves are drawn from the sea. Her slender fingers gripped the skull totem so hard. Her knuckles turned bone white. I want to know everything inside your head. The hairs on the back of Lin Zhou's neck stood up again. This wasn't thirst for knowledge. This was the madness of someone who wanted to split a person open, scoop out their brain, and study every last piece. His mind raced. This woman's insane, but she's not stupid. She kneels here, sounding all reverent, but what hides in those eyes is way darker than anything coming out of her mouth. Lin Zhou forced a dry laugh and refused her skull totem. You don't want knowledge. Jiao Yu froze. What you want is what no one else knows. Something only you know. Lin Zhou crouched down, meeting her gaze. A sly smirk tugged at his lips. You want to be the only one in this tribe who can understand the words of the divine, don't you? Xiao Yu's breath hitched. Her green eyes flew wide, a flicker of panic flashing through them at being read so completely. Then that panic was swallowed by a feverish intensity. Emissary, as expected, nothing escapes you. Her voice shook even harder now, laced with a tremor almost like ecstasy. I will be that only one in all of Qiyuan tribe. I alone am worthy to stand beside you and deliver the oracle's wisdom. Lin Zhou sneered inwardly. So the woman doesn't want a few self-defense tricks. She wants a monopoly, control, a ladder to climb above the whole tribe, wearing the title of Spirit Witch. She wants to turn herself into the lone door linking gods and men, all seeking favor, would have to crawl through her first, just like those modern-day information hoarders, gorging themselves fat on the gap between what people know. Nice try. Lin Zhou stood up, glaring down at her. This kind of obsessive freak. Give her an inch, and she'll take a mile. But crush her fantasy in one blow, and she might snap on the spot and turn on you. Knowledge isn't free, you've got to earn it. Lin Zhou turned his back, his tone flat like a deal. Sky spirits gave me wisdom to protect this struggling tribe. You want a piece of that? Fine, but first prove yourself. Huh, how do I prove it? Xiao Yu eagerly stepped half a pace forward. Loyalty. Lin Zhou said just one word, not the kind you talk about. I need to see what you actually do. He turned his head, his gaze sharp as a blade. I'll pretend tonight never happened. Now, go back. When I decide your loyalty is enough, that's when I'll teach you. Jiao Yu stayed kneeling, her body going stiff. The firelight flickered across her face. Those green eyes churned with resentment and hunger. Raw frustration for being played. She wasn't dumb. She could tell this was just stalling. But those 4 words, I'll teach you someday, hooked into her, like a barbed wire straight through her twisted mind. She couldn't bring herself to burn this bridge. After a long silence, Jiao Yu finally lowered her head. She cradled the skull artifact back against her chest, handling it like a relic. She bowed till her forehead hit the ground. The dull thud of her skull against cold mud echoed once. Jiao Yu obeys the emissary's command. She slowly rose, then turned and walked toward the darkness. 2 steps in, she suddenly stopped and looked back. That look, Lin Zhou would never forget for the rest of his life. Deep in the shadows beyond the firelight, Jiao Yu's green eyes glowed like ghost flames. There was no trace of submission in that gaze. Only the obsession of predator locking onto prey, determined to claim it as her own sooner or later. It was as if she was saying, I'll be waiting. One day, everything in your head will be mine. Then she turned. Her slender figure vanished completely into the snow and darkness. Lin Zhou felt a cold chill crawl down his spine, like an icy snake coiling around his vertebrae. This psycho's creepier than Greed Wolf's sand reavers. He cursed under his breath, just as he turned to head back inside. His peripheral vision caught something. His whole body froze. Inside him, at the dim edge of the fireplace below, a hunched figure stood perfectly still. It was Xiao, that lame woman who always sat among the elders, leaning on her cane without ever saying a word. She tilted her head, staring where Xiao Yu vanished. Her face was hidden in shadow, impossible to read. But Lin Zhou saw it clearly. At the corner of her deeply wrinkled mouth, a cold, sinister smile slowly curled upward. That wasn't relief after surviving crisis. And it wasn't just curiosity either. That was calculation. Watching Jiao Yu beg for knowledge, and Lin Zhou's strategic retreat, all of it. And now she was scheming how to use it to her advantage. And Xiao leaned on that worn smooth wooden cane of hers, her bony fingers slowly tracing the top of it. A glint of cunning flashed through her murky eyes. Feeling Lin Zhou's gaze on her, she calmly averted her eyes and lowered her head slightly. Leaning on her cane, she hobbled, slowly shuffling back into the circle of elders. The whole move was smooth and flawless, not a single tell. Lin Zhou narrowed his eyes. There's something wrong with that old hag. Jiao Yu made that huge scene, kneeling and begging for protection, while clan cheered or tended wounds. This one cripple just stood there in the shadows. Jiao Yu wants the oracle alone. So what's this old hag up to? Lin Zhou rubbed his chin. His unease grew, but he hid it. He entered the hut's broken door. Hearth fire roared, warm inside. But Lin Zhou couldn't feel any of it. He grabbed a smooth piece of animal hide and laid it on the ground, then picked up a charred stick from the fire. He crouched down and started sketching on the hide. The threat outside had backed off for now, but the mess inside this tribe had only just begun to surface. Qiyuan worships strength. Her body wants what it wants, but her loyalty? Solid. She's all muscle. Lin Zhou drew as he mentally sorted through everyone. Jingzhe, Bailu, Zizhong, useful. Banxia, Imi, Jin Xiaishan, undecided. Xiaoya, Possessive, wants to vine land. Danger level, high. Kumu, old school conservative hack. She's the one colluding with outside enemies. At this point, Linzhou's charcoal stick paused. Then pressed last name. And Chow, schemer. Bella just now was definitely not simple. Danger level, extreme.
极高。他盯着这张简陋的权力关系图，大脑飞速运转。枯木勾结贪狼，这是明面上的内鬼。可枯木只是个守旧的蠢货，论阴损，论城府，他远不如刚才那个躲在阴影里的暗潮。守旧派要的是把我赶下台，恢复老规矩；野心家要的是借乱夺权，自己上位。林州眼神冷下来，这两拨人目的不一样，但暂时是一条船上的，都想弄死我。他用炭条在枯木和暗潮之间画了一条线，又狠狠一划，把那条线斩断。河流可以，但河的越紧，裂得越快。林州嘴小勾起一抹冷笑。守旧派河野新家看着是一伙的，可一旦真把他林州扳倒了，这权力的果子谁来摘枯木想摘，暗潮也想摘。到时候这两个老女人自己就会摇起来。我要做的就是给他们的矛盾添把火。林州把炭条往兽皮上一扔，长吐出一口气，让他们斗，我看戏。等他们斗得两败俱伤，再一波端。盘算定了，林州却没有半分轻松。他很清楚，暗潮刚才那一眼意味着这个野心家已经从幕后的窥视转向了主动出手。风暴要来了！果然，木屋外元老们聚集的火堆旁，一道佝偻的身影拄着拐杖，一瘸一拐地挤了进去。暗潮放轻了声音，凑到几个守旧老妪耳边，枯瘦的嘴唇微微张合。神使大人今晚是退了贪了，可你们想过没有？他一个外乡男人，体力眼看着一天不如一天，万一哪天他撑不住了，咱们血湾部落可就全完了。火光摇曳，几个老妪的脸色齐刷的变了。第24章，暗潮涌动，夺权伏笔。神使大人是退了贪了，可你们想过没有？他一个外乡男人，体力一天不如一天，万一哪天他撑不住了，咱们血湾部落可就全完了。火堆旁，暗潮枯瘦的手指搭在拐杖头上，声音压得又轻又柔，像一条钻进耳朵里的软虫。几个守旧老妪的脸色齐刷刷的变。是啊，今晚内战，神使大人喘得跟拉风箱似的，握刀的手都在抖。男人到底是男人，再聪明，骨头也软。林州站在10几步外的木屋台阶上，把这一幕看得清清楚楚。他没急着出声，只是眯起眼，嘴角慢慢勾起一抹冷笑。来了，这老婆子果然憋不住。白天还坐在元老堆里装聋作哑的瘸子，转头就借着退敌后的乱劲儿，开始往他身上泼脏水了。枯木呢？林州心里盘算，这种时候那个老妖婆怎么可能不跳出来添柴？话音刚落在心里，一道嘶哑的尖嗓子就劈开了火堆旁的低语。暗潮说的对，枯木拄着那跟头骨拐杖，一瘸一拐地挤到火堆中央，浑浊的老眼里满是算计的金光。男人靠不住，这是老祖宗传下来的死理。他唾沫横飞，干瘪的胸膛剧烈起伏。神使是有神明的智慧，可智慧能传下去吗？怎么传？得靠血脉。他猛地转向坐在不远处的赤渊，枯瘦的手指几乎戳到对方脸上。酋长，趁着神使大人现在还没垮，赶紧安排配种，把神明的血脉留在咱们血湾部落，这才是正经事。等他哪天一口气上不来，你哭都没地方哭去。火堆旁瞬间安静下来，几十双眼睛齐刷刷地看向赤渊，林州的心也跟着提了起来。这一刀捅得又准又狠，枯木这老婆是真敢说，直接把配种2个字甩到了台面上，逼着赤渊当众表态。林州死盯着赤渊的脸，只要这母暴龙脑子一热，点了头，自己今晚怕是真要被按在那张兽皮床上履行义务。赤渊缓缓站起身，他披着那件单薄的赤红狐皮，火光在他结实的脊背上跳动，那张野性的脸此刻却沉得像结了冰。枯木，赤渊开口，声音冷得没有一丝温度。枯木脖子一缩，神使大人的事轮不到你来教我怎么做。枯木脸上的肌肉抽了抽，却没退。酋长，老身也是为了部落，为了部落。赤渊盯着他，眼神像刀子，还是为了你那点线不得人的心思。枯木浑身一僵，张了张嘴，没敢接话。可赤渊说完这句，却没再多。他没有像往常那样一脚踹翻枯木，也没有抽出石斧把这老婆的脑袋拍走。他只是站在那儿，面色沉凝，一言不发。林州的瞳孔骤然收缩。坏了，赤渊这反应太不对劲。换平时谁敢在他面前提配种逼宫，早被他一斧子削飞了。可今晚他居然忍了，不是不想发作，是动摇了。部落存粮见底，外有贪狼虎视眈，他这个酋长压力比谁都大。林州在心里飞快的盘算，枯木那句流血脉看着是放屁，可戳中了他最深的恐惧。万一我真出了意外，部落连个念想都没有。赤渊没呵斥枯木，恰恰说明这颗种子已经在他心里扎了根。林州后背沁出一层冷汗，守旧派河野新家，这是河上游了。枯木在明，喊打杀低配的；暗潮在暗，温水煮青蛙蛙墙角。一明一暗配合的严丝合缝。高明啊！林州心里冷笑，这俩老货，一个唱红脸，一个唱白脸，把我和赤渊都架在火上烤。 他没有立刻冲过去翻桌子，冲动是魔鬼，这种时候跳出来，反倒坐实了心虚2点。林州深吸一口气，转身不动声色地退回了木屋。门刚合上，外面那扇被撞坏的门板还在漏风。林州蹲在火塘边，盯着跳动的火苗，脑子转得飞快。世渊这边要我，枯木那边不急，真正麻烦的是那个躲在阴影里的瘸子。正想着，门外传来一阵极轻的拖沓的脚步声，读，是拐杖点地的声音。林州眼神一冷，没动。吱呀，门被人轻轻推开一条缝，一道佝偻的身影闪了进来，带进一股草药的苦味。神使大人还没歇着呢。暗潮拄着拐杖，脸上堆满了慈祥的笑，浑浊的老眼眯成一条缝。他手里端着一个粗陶碗，碗里盛着半碗黑乎冒着热气的汤水。今晚一战，大人耗了元气。暗潮一瘸一拐地凑过来，把陶碗递到林州面前，声音柔得能掐出水来。老身熬了碗安神补气的草药汤，您趁热喝了，养身。林州低头看着那碗黑汤，热气袅散着一股说不清道不明的怪味。来了，他在心里冷笑，明面上是关怀，暗地里是试探。哼，还是不喝？喝了，要是这汤里有问题，自己今晚就得交代他。不喝，就是当面打这老婆的脸，让他知道自己挺疑心，反倒打草惊蛇。林州脸上瞬间堆起一个可惜的笑。哎呦，劳烦元老惦记着。他伸出双手，恭敬敬地把陶碗接了过来。我正觉得浑身没劲呢，这汤来的真及时。暗潮眼底飞快地闪过一丝得意，大点金光一闪即逝。大人喝了就好，喝了就好。他拖着枯瘦的手盯着林州的脸，趁热凉了药效就干，催得倒挺急。林州心里那根弦绷得更紧了，他端着碗凑到嘴边，做了个要喝的姿势。暗潮的脖子下意识地往前伸，浑浊的眼珠一眨不眨地盯着碗沿，那眼神里哪有半分关切，分明是毒蛇盯着猎物吞耳的贪婪。林州把这一切尽收眼底，心里已经有了底。对，林州忽然放下碗，一拍脑门，我光顾着喝汤，倒忘了正事。暗潮的笑容僵了一瞬，神明刚才托梦给我，林州一本正经的补手，说今夜有大恩人会送来续命之物，要我先进仙境再入口，否则折寿。暗潮的脸色微一变，元老您先坐，我进完天地就喝。林州说着，端起陶碗，走到火塘边，做出一副庄重无比的祭拜模样，嘴里念念有词，手却极其自然的一气。滋了，那半碗黑汤泼进了熊燃烧的火塘，下一秒，原本橘红的火苗腾的一下窜起一股诡异的青绿火，那绿火只闪了一瞬，便又恢复了正常。可这一瞬已经足够了。林州心头一片冰凉，果然有问题。正常的草药汤泼进火里，顶多激起一阵白烟，能让火焰变色的绝不是什么安神补气的好东西。他不动声色地把空碗放下，转过身，脸上还是那副人畜无害的笑。敬完了，神明保佑。暗潮死盯着那已经恢复正常的火塘，浑浊的老眼里那点慈祥的伪装彻底碎了，取而代之的是一抹掩不住的阴冷。他没料到林州会把汤泼进火里，更没料到这火会出卖他。大人，不喝了。暗潮的声音干涩了几分，进了天地的东西沾了神气，凡人喝了反倒不好。林州笑眯地看着他，眼神却冷得像冰。元老的心意，神明已经收下了，多谢。暗潮的嘴角抽搐了一下，他盯着林州看了几息，那双浑浊的眼珠里翻涌着算计、忌惮，还有一丝被识破后的阴狠。那老身就不打扰大人歇息了。他拄着拐杖，慢悠地转身，一瘸一拐地挪出了木屋，那背影佝偻，却透着一股说不出的森人。门重新合上，林州脸上的笑瞬间收得干干净净。他蹲下身，盯着火塘里那已经看不出异常的火苗，眼神冷彻。断肠草，还是别的什么阴毒玩意儿？林州揉了揉太阳穴，这老婆子是真想要我的命啊！枯木逼配种是想用老规矩把他抢空，暗潮下毒是想直接让他从这世上消失。一个要他的权，一个要他的命。林州缓缓站起身，走到铺在地上的那张兽皮前，捡起炭条，在暗潮危险等级极高那形子后面又涂上了一个圈。明刀明枪我不怕，就怕这种躲在暗处下毒的。林州眯起眼，硬碰硬不行，得从根上挖。他在兽皮上飞快地写着：暗潮一个瘸子，自己动不了手，下毒搞破坏，靠的全是他手底下那帮管后勤分口粮的人。擒贼先擒王。不，林州摇头，直接动他没证据，反倒落人可食。要动，先动他的手脚，把他后勤那帮人一个个查清楚，找个由头掉狗换人。等砍光了他的爪牙，看他这瘸子还不动他。林州把炭条往地上一扔，长出了一口气，棋已经在心里不下，只是这盘棋还得慢慢下。他活动了一下酸胀的脖子，正准备吹灯睡觉。就在这时候，王洞外那片被风雪覆盖的岩壁阴影里传来一阵极轻极轻的脚步声，轻的像猫像风像一缕飘忽不定的魂。林州浑身一凛，握刀的手猛地按上了枕边的骨板，他停住呼吸，透过门缝望出去，只见一道纤细的身影正贴着冰冷的岩壁 借着风雪的掩护，一步一步无声地朝着木屋逼近。火光照不到的暗处，一双幽绿色的眸子亮得渗人。是皎月。第25章夜访偷师，性交本色。再往前1寸，你这只手就别想要了。林州死攥着皎月的手腕，声音冷得像窗外的风雪。他根本没睡，从看见那道纤细身影贴着岩壁摸进来的那一刻起，他就闭着眼，把骨笔死压在掌心底下，等的就是这一下。皎月的手指停在他枕边那张兽皮草稿上方，离那几道炭笔画的机械图只差半根指头。神使大人，他被擒住手腕，却没有半分挣扎，反而就着这骨劲缓缓跪了下去，膝盖砸在冰冷的地面上，闷响一声。他仰起头，那张苍白的脸离林州极近，月光从门缝里漏进来，把他那双绿铜照的幽发亮，像两口深不见底的湖井。你这是夜探神使的秦楚，按部落的规矩，该做了你位了。林州眯起眼，手上的力道又加了3分。皎月的腕骨被捏得咯吱响，他却像感觉不到疼，呼吸反而急促起来。那张兽皮上面画的是什么？他的视线粘在那草稿上，挪都挪不开，声音抖得厉害。那些线，那些方块是神明的文字，对不对？林州心头一凛，这疯婆娘眼里压根没有被抓现行这回事。他跪在这儿，被人捏着手腕，脑子里转的全是那几道炭笔印。我想知道。皎月西行半步，凑得更近，那股草药的苦味直往林州鼻子里钻。我想成为整个血万部落最了解你的人，比赤渊更了解，比谁都了解。他的手指在林州掌心里轻轻颤抖。你脑子里的东西，我一样都不想漏掉。林州后背的汗毛刷得全竖了起来。这乃是求学，这是想把人整个吞下去，连骨头渣都嚼碎的偏执。赤渊所求的是身体，是肌肉相吃的本能，可眼前这女人要的是灵魂，是脑骨，是把她整个人拆解开来，装进她那副病态脑袋里的战友。哪个更瘆人？一目了然。了解我？林州冷声质问。你跪在这儿，是想了解我，还是想把我变成你一个人的东西？皎月愣了一瞬，随即他的嘴角竟缓缓扬起一个诡异的弧度。他没有回答，他低下头，动作虔诚的像是在朝拜什么圣物，纤细的唇轻轻吻上了林州攥着他手腕的那只手背，冰凉，带着一种近乎信徒亲吻神迹的战栗。林州整条胳膊都麻了，这一下比贪狼的骨毛架在脖子上还让人头皮发炸。你他妈林州猛地抽回手，像是被烫到了，别拿我当你那破头古法器吧。皎月跪在原地，仰着头看他，那双绿瞳里没有半分被呵斥的惶恐，只有一种被靠近圣物后的满足与狂热。林州深吸一口气，强迫自己冷静，不能硬来。这种病娇，你一刀切了他的念想，他当场就能疯，反咬一口能要半条命。可你要是顺着他，他转头就能爬到你头上拉屎。得拿捏，得把这条风口拴上链子。你想学？林州站起身，居高临下的俯视着他，语气重新变得淡漠。可以。皎月的呼吸瞬间一滞，眼里爆出狂喜光，但不是现在，也不是这样偷摸。林州一字一顿，神明的智慧是有等级。你想碰，先得让全族都知道，你只是个替我计划的工具。皎月的笑容僵在了脸上。明日晨会，当着所有人的面。林州盯着他的眼睛，声音冷得没有一丝温度。你跪下，把你那头骨法器交到我手里，承认我林州是这血万部落唯一的真神使。神巫不过是神使脚边的一条腿。做到了，我教你。做不到，林州弯下腰，凑近他耳边。你这辈子都别想知道我是怎么从石头里钻出来的。死寂，火塘外的风雪呜呜的刮着。皎月跪在地上，纤细的肩膀微微发抖。他那双绿瞳里翻涌着挣扎，神物的尊严与求知的渴望在他脑子里疯狂撕咬。林州心里那根弦绷得死紧。这一步是赌他对知识的痴狂能压过他神巫的体面。赌赢了，皎月就是他手里一颗听话的棋子，一把能戳穿手就开的尖刀。赌输了，这头女人今晚就能跳起来，把整个部落搅得天翻地覆。时间一息一息的过去，终于皎月动了，他双手将那个诡异的头骨法器从怀里捧出，高举过头顶，额头重磕在冰冷的地面上。皎月愿意。他的声音里竟带着一种近乎癫狂的喜悦，抖得不成调子。我愿意当着全族的面跪拜，承认你是唯一的真神使。我愿意做你脚边的狗，只要你教我。他猛地抬起头，那双绿瞳亮得吓人。我什么都愿意。林州看着他，心底那块石头缓缓落地。成了，这条疯狗算是拴上了。他面上不动声色，心里却已经盘算开了。皎月这一跪，跪的不只是他，跪的是唯一神使这4个字。从此往后，他想垄断神域的路就被他亲手堵死了。他越是渴望知识，就越得对他俯首帖耳。而全族看着神巫都跪了，对他的敬畏只会更深。一箭3雕。林州在心里冷笑，枯木那帮老货怕是要睡不着了。他弯腰，从皎月高举的双手里慢慢接过那个头骨法器，托在掌心。起来吧。皎月顺从的站起身， 垂着头，整个人像是卸下了千斤重担，又像是得了天大的恩赐，连指尖都在发颤。从今往后，你的眼睛、你的耳朵都是我的。林州把头骨法器随手往桌上一搁，部落里谁有异，谁夜里见了不该见的人，你都给我盯死了，报给我。小月遵命。他叩首即定，声音里满是虔诚。林州看着他伏在地上的背影，忽然觉得这盘棋活了。暗潮在暗处下毒，枯木在明处逼宫，而现在他手里也有了一双能伸进部落每一个角落的眼睛。就在林州准备让小月退下的时候，呜呜，一阵悠长而沉闷的牛角号声骤然撕破了风雪交加的黎明，是陈慧的号角。可这号声里透着一股说不出的急促与肃杀，根本不像寻常召集。林州瞳孔一缩，伏在地上的小月也猛地抬起头，那双绿瞳里闪过一丝警觉。这个点吹号，林州眼神冷下来，出事了。他大步走到门边，一把推开那扇漏风的破门。风雪扑面来，营地中央的祭台旁已经聚起了黑压压一片人影，火把在风雪中摇曳，几十道目光齐刷刷地朝着林州的木屋望过来。而站在祭台正中的那道佝偻身影，枯木，他拄着头骨拐杖，浑浊的老眼里燃着一股不怀好意的金光，干瘪的嘴角正缓缓向上扯起。林州的心沉了下去。昨夜那碗火苗变色的草药汤，那两个老货一明一暗的合流，这才刚过一夜，他们又要发难。第26章，陈慧逼宫，存粮危机。存粮不足10日了。枯木拄着那根头骨拐杖，站在祭台正中，浑浊的老眼扫过黑压的人群，干瘪的嗓子像砂纸在刮铁。都睁大眼睛看汤里还剩多少肉，再这么撑下去，不等贪狼来打，咱们自己就得先饿死一片。风雪扑在火把上，几百道目光齐刷刷望向那座空了大半死人肉窖。林州站在木屋台阶上，眼皮一跳，来了，这老妖婆挑的时机够准。退敌的喜气还没死，转头就拿存粮这把刀架到全族脖子上。枯木，林州刚要开口，神使大人，枯木却抢先一步，猛地转过身，枯瘦的手指直戳向林州。你是有神明的智慧，可智慧填不饱肚子。昨晚那一战，你喘得跟拉风箱似的，握刀的手抖得跟筛糠一样，全族都看着呢。人群里响起一阵窃窃私语，林州面色不变，心里却冷笑。这老货把昨晚的事记得门清。你想说什么？直说。我想说，枯木嘴角里开一个阴森的弧度，猛地转向坐在火堆旁的赤渊。酋长，趁神使大人现在还没垮，赶紧安排配种，把神明的血脉留在血湾部落，这才是顶要紧的大事。等他哪天一口气上不来，你哭都没地方哭。轰！火堆旁瞬间炸开了锅。是啊，得留血脉，男人骨头软，说不准哪天就没了。配种，趁早配种。饿了几天的战士们眼睛红得吓人，七嘴八舌的嚷起来。恐慌像瘟疫，借着存粮见底4个字疯狂蔓延。林州的太阳学出直跳，坏了！枯木这一手玩得太狠，他不跟你讲道理，直接把饥饿的恐惧和配种留种绑在一块，逼着全族跟他站一边，这是裹挟民意。林州死盯着赤渊的脸，只要这母暴龙脑子一热点了头，自己今晚就得被按在兽皮床上履行义务。赤渊缓缓站起身，他披着那件赤红狐皮，火光在他结实的脊背上跳，那张野性的脸沉得像结了冰，谁也看不出他在想什么。酋长，您倒是说句话。枯木催得急，赤渊张了张嘴，却没立刻出声。他看了看嗷嗷叫的族人，又看了看台阶上的林州，眉头拧成了一个死结。林州瞳孔一缩，完了，赤渊这反应太不对劲了。换平时谁敢当众逼他，早被一斧子削飞了。可今晚他居然犹豫了，存粮真见底了。他这个酋长比谁都慌。林州在心里飞快盘算，枯木那句流血脉戳中的是他最深的怕，万一我真出意外，部落连个念想都没有。不能等了，再让枯木山下去，这火就要烧到自己身上。都给老子闭嘴！林州一步跨下台阶，声音陡然拔高，应声压过了满场嘈杂。火堆旁瞬间静了。枯木，你说存粮不足10日，对不对？林州大步走到祭台前，目光如刀。那又怎么？枯木梗着脖子。那我问你，林州环视全场，一字一顿。要是我能让你们以后再也不饿肚子，供有吃的，吃到撑的打嗝，你这逼配种的破嘴，是不是该缝上了？全场哗然。再也不饿肚子，顿顿有吃的。族人们面相觑，像听见了天方夜谭。枯木嗤的一声冷笑，神使大人怕是饿糊涂了。冰天雪地，野兽都躲起来了，你上哪弄吃的去？挣出来！林州挤出3个字：种。枯木愣了，随即笑得前仰后合，草木在冬天全死绝了。你拿什么种？拿你那身软骨头！哄笑声响成一片。林州却不慌，他要的就是这个效果。神明昨夜托梦给你。林州突然提高声音，脸上换上一副庄严肃穆的神情。他赐我一道法子，叫温氏。7日，林州伸出5根手指，又添了2根，给我7天，我就能盖起一座挡风遮雪的暖房，在里面种下种子， 哪怕外头大雪封山，暖房里照样能长出绿油的吃食。种一茬吃一茬，种子撒下去就再也收不完了。仔细，几百号人张着嘴，半天没人说得出话。这话的太大了，大到他们这群一辈子靠打猎采集的原始人，脑子根本转不过弯来。放屁！枯木第一个跳脚，唾沫横飞，哪有这种好事？神使大人，这是黔驴技穷，拿空话唬咱们呢？是不是空话？林州猛地转头，眼神冷得像冰，死定住枯木。7天后见分晓。你急什么？你要是觉得我做不到，那我倒问问林州一步逼近，居高临下，是你枯木更懂神明的旨意，还是我这个神使更懂？枯木脸上的肌肉抽了抽，这话他不敢接，当众质疑神使通神的资格，那是要被全族戳脊梁骨的。我枯木嘴唇哆嗦，半个字也吐不利索。林州不再看他，转身面向赤渊，单膝一抱拳，姿态做得十足。酋长，我林州立军令状，7日，给我7日盖温室，盖成了存粮危机自己，佩服的是以后再也盖不成。林州顿了顿，声音沉下来，任凭酋长处置，要杀要剐，绝无二法。全场的目光齐刷刷又回到赤渊身上。赤渊盯着林州，那双琥珀色的眸子里翻涌着挣扎。他信他，从之言到蜕皮，这个外乡男人一次次创造出他想都不敢想的奇迹。可7天，万一呢？酋长，别听他画大饼。枯木急了，7天后他要是盖不出来，部落的粮就更紧了，到时候哭都来不及。赤渊没理他，他盯着林州看了足3息，忽然抬起手，送一挥，准了。他的声音斩钉截铁，压下了所有杂音。7日，神使盖温室，这7天谁也不许提配种的事。他转头，眼神扫过枯木，冷得像刀，包括你，枯木，再敢搬弄是非，我呲了呲嘴。枯木浑身一僵，缩着脖子，再不敢吭声。神使大人威武，神明护佑血万。族人们后知后觉得反应过来，爆发出震惊的欢呼。希望这东西比什么都管用。刚才还红着眼嚷配种的战士，这会儿一个个眼里都冒着光。林州松了口气，后背的冷汗已经浸透了兽皮。赌赢了，7天的缓冲期到手了。可他脸上不敢露出半分轻松。这军令状一立，等于把自己架到了火上。7天后盖不出温室，赤渊就算想保他，全族的唾沫也能把他淹死。系统温室技术兑换得起，剩下的就是抢风期。林州在心里飞快盘算，砍木材、夯地基、铺地米沟，一样都不能拖。他抬起头，正要下令，余光一扫，却瞥见人群最后方那道佝偻的身影。暗潮，这瘸腿老货拄着拐杖，缩在阴影里，没跟着欢呼，也没像枯木那样跳起。他只是歪着头，浑浊的眼珠子盯着林州，干瘪的嘴角缓缓向上扯起一个阴冷弧，那笑容里没有半分劫后余生的喜悦，只有算计。林州心头一凛，昨夜那碗火苗变色的草药汤还历在目，这老货下毒不成，绝不会善罢甘休。枯木在明处逼宫，被我指挥去了。可这瘸子在暗处，林州眯起眼，他要的不是配种，是我的命。这7天，他绝不会让我安生。暗潮察觉到他的目光，不慌不忙地收回视线，拄着拐杖一瘸一拐地挪进了元老堆里，滴水不漏。林州收回心神，扬声下令：惊蛰，写20个壮劳力，跟我去后山砍木材。白鹿，带人清整北边那片平地。半夏，备好治外伤的草药，开工难免磕碰。是。众人轰然应默，部落这台机器瞬间高速运转起来。林州攥紧拳头，望向后山那片黑压的林子。7天，一座温室，一场赌命的硬仗。他大步朝营地边缘走去，刚走出没几步，砰！营地边缘那片堆放木料的空地上骤然传来一声沉闷的撞击，紧接着是几道粗野的怒骂：你他娘的往哪追？凭什么听你的？争吵声越来越大，眼看就要动手。林州脚步一顿，眉头猛地拧紧。温棚还没开工就出岔子了。第27章，温室开建，暗流涌动。这木头就该堆这儿，你瞎挪什么？放屁！神使说了，往北边嘛。你耳朵聋了？营地边缘，2个壮实的女人揪在一块，唾沫横飞，眼看就要抡拳头。林州大步赶过去，眼皮一跳，温棚还没动一根桩子，自己人先掐起来。都给我住手！林州一声喝，往2人中间一插，吵什么吵？木头长腿跑了。神使大人，左边那个红了眼，指着对面，他非要把木料堆到松地上去，那地方一改作线，马上去早晚他。胡说，对面也不甘示弱，分明是你听差了号令。林州眯起眼，听差了号令，他刚才分明交代的清清楚楚，木料统一码在北边夯实的硬地上。这2人一个说东一个说西，背后准有人捣鬼。行了，林州摆手，按我说的，全码北边硬地，再吵扣口粮。2人这才心散开。林州没动声色，心里那根弦却绷紧了。开工第一天，连个堆木头的地方都能传错令，这要么是蠢，要么是有人故意把水搅浑。他扫了一眼四周忙碌的人群，把这事压在心底，扬声下令： 黄兰带10个人去后山伐木，专挑碗口处的植料，白鹿运输的归泥管，钉死每一根木头。行者带弓箭手在外围警戒，野兽和生人都给我拦住。是。黄兰抄起石斧，绑不上一股，二话不说就往后山冲。这扁奴战士憋着一肚子火，正愁没处撒。伐木这种力气活，对他来说反倒是发泄。部落这台机器总算高速运转起来，可没等林州喘口气，麻烦就接二连三的砸下来。轰隆！钢马号半人高的一堆木料，毫无征兆的塌了，沉重的原木滚落，砸中一个搬运的女人，痛哭声响成一片。林州冲过去一看，脸色沉了下来，地基松了。他蹲下身，手指抠进泥里，底下垫的石头被人抽了。没等他缓过神，那头又出了岔子。神使大人，口粮带破了，泥撒了一地，水囊也漏了，全冻成冰碴子了。林州站在原地，眉头拧成一个死结。蠢得太巧了，地基垫石被抽，口粮带破洞，水囊漏水。这要是没人下黑手，他把谷土吞下去。他不动声色地挪到那几个出事的点子上，蹲下查看，起身一句话没说，可心里早把计算清了。这几处出岔子的全是后勤那帮分口粮管杂物的，而后勤是谁的地盘？暗潮，果然是这瘸子。林州眯起眼，下足步一甩，闷头就往后山去了。这扁奴的战士憋着一肚子苦，正愁没处撒，伐木对他来说反倒是泄力。部落这台机器轰隆运转起来，可没等到半天，麻烦就一个接一个冒出来。砰！后山方向一声闷响，一根刚扛下来的木料突然脱了手，重砸在一个壮汉脚边，差半寸就砸断他的腿。怎么回事？林州赶过去，绳子断了，运木的人脸色发白，举起手里那截麻绳，好端的，怎么就断了？林州接过绳头一看，眼神冷下来，断口齐整，不是磨断的，是被人用石刀割过大半，留着一丝吊着，受力就断。他不动声色，把绳头塞进怀里，没声张。接着是地基，北边那块本该夯实的硬地挖到一半，底下竟渗出水来，土一铲就烂，根本力不能装。再接着是口粮，晌午发餐，往后勤的几个人手一抖，半袋珍贵的肉干打进了雪地里，沾了泥水，没法吃了。3件事装件都透着古怪。林州蹲在烂泥地基旁，捏着那把尸体，心里跟明镜似的。绳子被割，地基掺了水，口粮失手撒了，巧得很啊。他冷笑，蠢人办不出这么凑巧的事，这是有人在暗处一点点拆开。只要温鹏误了工期，7天后他这军令状就成了催命符。暗潮，林州在心里咬出这2个字。管后勤、分口粮、调人手的全是这瘸子的爪牙，他自己一根手指不动，光靠底下这帮人就能把工地搅成一锅粥。这老货下毒不成，该是办法。林州揉了揉眉心，直接抓人没用，这些杂碎咬死了是手滑没听清，没真凭实据，反倒落个神使心虚滥杀的主食。得有人证，得有双眼睛，盯死这帮人晚上跟谁碰头。林州脑子里飞快转了一圈，一个名字浮上来，半夏。那个腹黑医女整日守着伤员，部落里谁来谁往，谁脸色不对，全在他眼皮子底下。这双眼睛比谁都尖。当晚，林州揣着那截割断的绳头，悄悄摸进了半夏的草药棚。棚子里弥漫着浓重的草药味，半夏正就着火光，给白天磕碰受伤的族人换药。神使大人这个点来，半夏头也没抬，纤细的手指捻着草药，声音温柔柔，是身上哪不舒坦，还是想问点别的？林州挑眉，这女人精得很，想问点别的。他蹲下身，压低声音，白天工地上出的那些岔子你听说了？绳断了，地基塌了，口粮撒了。半夏终于抬起头，那双含着水汽的眸子在火光里弯了弯，怎么会没听说呢？受伤的不都送我这儿来了？你怎么看？半夏没急着答，他慢条斯理的包好最后一个伤口，把那族人打发走，才转过身凑近了。神使大人想听真话还是假话？真话。那几个管后勤的，半夏的声音压得更低，温柔里带着一丝凉意。傍晚收工后没回窝棚歇着，我看见他们3俩往东边那片乱石坡去。林州瞳孔一缩，东边那地方荒得很，你去干什么？见人呗。半夏轻笑一声，眼底却没什么笑意。天都黑透了，不回家烤火，跑那么远的乱石堆里。大人说是去看星，还是去过什么见不得光的人？林州心头猛地一沉，果然暗潮的爪牙私下里跟人接头，这片荒野上能让他们偷摸去见。贪狼，这老货不光想在内部搞我，林州的后背窜起一股寒意，他已经跟外头的贪狼搭上线了。枯木勾结贪狼，暗潮也勾结贪狼，这2条线到底是各干各，还是早就凝成了一股绳？局势比他想的还要烂。多谢。林州站起身，把那结绳头收好。这是你知我知，继续帮我盯着那几个人，他们在去东面，这件事上告诉我。可以啊。半夏却没起身，反而仰着脸看他，那双眸子在火光里亮得有些不寻常。不过神使大人光让我白盯着， 是不是有点亏？林州脚步一顿，来了，这医女从来不做亏本买卖。你想要什么？半夏站起身，凑到他面前，纤细的手指轻轻替他理了理被风吹乱的兽皮领口，动作亲密的让人头皮发麻。我不要别的。他的声音软糯，呼吸却近在咫尺。我就想一直跟着大人，大人走到哪，我这把草药，这双眼睛就跟到哪。大人以后顿吃我熬的汤，伤了痛了都来找我，成不成？林州看着他那双笑盈盈的眼睛，心里紧了一大作。温柔示好，放屁！这女人哪是想跟着他，分明是想把他的胃、他的伤、他的命脉全攥进自己手心。先用情报喂饱你，再用药汤拴住你，等你离了，他就浑身不自在，他就成了拔不掉的钉子。跟皎月想垄断沈玉一个露水，只不过皎月攥的是脑子，半夏攥的是肚子，一个比一个能算计。行，林州却笑了，面上半分不露。你帮我盯人，我自然亏待不了你。他可不能陷到翻脸，这双眼睛眼下太有用了，拴就拴着，等用完了再慢慢解。半夏眼底闪过一丝得意，弯起眉眼，那就这么说定了。林州揣着满肚子心事，转身钻出草药棚。夜风裹着雪粒子打在脸上，他却觉得脑子格外清醒。暗潮的爪牙，东边的街头，半夏的示好，林州在心里飞快盘算，这盘棋得借力打力。半夏要拴他，他偏要反过来，把这医女的药术和情报当成捅向暗潮的两把刀。先摸清那帮后勤的街头规律，再找个由头，把他们一个个调走。坏人，砍光暗潮的爪牙，看他这瘸子还怎么蹦跶。至于东边那条线，林州眼神冷下来，等温鹏立住了，再慢慢收拾。他大步往工地走，刚走到营地中央，一声震耳的暴怒咆哮骤然从温鹏方向炸响，惊得满营的火把都晃了三晃。是黄兰的声音。林州心头一紧，搭腿就往温鹏跑。只见火光下，黄兰浑身的肌肉球节暴起，双眼赤红的像要滴血，一手死拎着个下瘫的后勤女子脖领，另一只蒲扇下的手高扬起，眼看就要砸下去。他脚边那座刚立起一半的温鹏木架被连根拔起，横七竖八砸在烂泥里，断裂的木料插得满地都是，一天的活全毁了。第28章温鹏显悔，黄兰暴怒，放手！再不放，老子捏碎你的脖子！黄兰赤红的双眼瞪得溜圆，蒲扇大的手死拎着那个后勤女子的领口，另一只拳头高扬起，骨节崩得咯响。那女子两腿一软，摊成一团烂泥，喉咙里挤出破风箱似的哀嚎。林州冲到近前，一眼扫过黄兰脚边那片狼藉，心猛地一沉。刚立起一半的温鹏木架被连根拔起，横七竖八砸进烂泥里，断裂的桩木插得满地都是，夯实的地基被踩得稀烂，一脚下去能陷半个血体。一整天的活全毁了。黄兰，住手！林州喝了一声，黄兰的拳头停在半空，胸膛剧烈起伏，回头死盯着林州，咬牙切齿。神使，是这婆娘干的好事，老子伐了一天木子，回来一看，全这么砍。那瘫在地上的女子却忽然嚎啕大哭，扯着嗓子尖叫起来。不是我，是他，是黄兰让我们拆的。他一根手指颤巍地戳向黄兰，他说神使在什么破暖房纯属胡闹，让咱们连夜拆了，省得白费力气。他还说神使迟早要死，跟着干没好下场。此言一出，围拢过来的族人哗地炸开了锅。林州眯起眼，来了，不是单纯的破坏，是栽赃。这帮人毁了温鹏还不算，反手就要把水盆子扣到黄兰头上，一箭双雕的毒计，既毁工期，又坐实了黄兰贼心不死的名。你他娘的放屁！黄兰暴怒，整张脸都扭曲了。老子要拆，用得着等到现在？老子一斧子就给你劈了！黄兰本性难移啊！人群里一道嘶哑的尖嗓子炸响，一个守旧老妪拄着拐杖挤出来，浑浊的眼里满是幸灾乐祸。我早说过，扁奴就是扁奴，骨头里的反骨踢不干净。他唾沫横飞，转头朝众人嚷：他以前是头狼，现在还是头狼，神使心善留他一命。他报，转头就来咬主人，严惩，必须严惩，把这反骨贱奴拖出去喂狼。几个守旧派老货跟着起哄，声浪一招过一浪。黄兰被这帮人指着鼻子骂，胸膛起伏的像要爆炸。他猛地松开手里那女子，转身抡起拳头就朝那带头的老妪砸去。老子打死你这嚼舌根的！砰！一面巨盾横空挡在中间，黄兰的拳头重砸在盾面上，震得他虎口发麻，连退两步。白鹿不知何时已立在阵前，狼眼朝着声音的方向，巨盾稳如磐石。黄兰，白鹿的声音很轻，却带着不容置疑的分量，动手就真说不清了。黄兰喘着粗气，赤红的眼里翻涌着憋屈与暴怒，却被这一顿声拦住。他不是怕白鹿，他是怕再动手，这栽赃就真坐实了。林州把这一切尽收眼底，心里那胆秤早就有了准心。他没急着替黄兰辩白，反倒背着手慢悠悠踱到那个告状的后勤女子面前，蹲下身，似笑非笑地盯着她。你说是黄兰让你们拆的？是的。那女子哆嗦着点头，眼神却不敢与林州对视，飞快地往人群后方瞟了一眼。就这一眼， 林州心头冷笑，他在看谁？他不动声色，顺着那女子的视线往人群后方一走。阴影里，那道佝偻的身影拄着拐杖，半张脸藏在火光照不到的暗处。暗槽，果然，这婆娘自己一根手指不动，光躲在后头使眼色，遥控这帮爪牙演戏。林州把视线收回来，脸上的笑更深。我再问你一遍，他声音压得极低，只有那女子能听见。狂澜真让你拆？是真的。那女子的声音抖得不成调，眼珠子又往后瞟。好，林州猛地站起身，转过身，面向黑压的人群，声音陡然拔高。既然你们咬死了是狂澜指使，那就别怪我，请神明来断这桩公案。神明？人群一静。神明赐我一双眼睛。林州环视全场，神情庄严，凡心里藏着鬼，嘴里吐着假话的人，只要被神火一照，灵魂就会现出原形，再也藏不住半句谎话。他一指那燃烧的火堆，来人，把他押到火堆旁。惊蛰会意，一把揪起那女子的胳膊，连拖带拽的拽到火堆前。橘红的火光疼得印在那女子脸上，她的瞳孔骤然收缩，浑身抖得像筛糠。神火不认人，林州一步步逼近，声音冷得像冰。你要是说了真话，神明保你平安；你要是敢说谎，他顿了顿，神火会从你眼睛里钻进去，把你的五脏六腑一寸一寸烧成灰。我说，那女子彻底崩了，扑通跪倒在地，涕泪横流。不是狂澜，是有人给了我们3天的口粮，让我们半夜拆了温棚，再栽到狂澜头上，说只要咬死是他干的，这事就成了。轰！全场哗然。狂澜瞪大了眼，胸膛剧烈起伏，从牙缝里挤出一声怒：老子就说不是我干的！那几个跟着起哄的守旧老妪，脸色气刷变得煞白。林州却不松劲，又往前逼了一步，目光如刀：谁给你们的口粮？谁让你们这么干的？是。那女子嘴唇哆嗦着，刚要吐出那个字。呵！人群里，一个先前帮腔最凶的后勤女子，忽然喉咙里发出一声怪响，接着她浑身剧烈抽搐起来，嘴角溢出一片白沫，眼珠上翻，直挺挺的朝后栽倒。咚的一声砸在雪地里，四肢痉挛，呼出半息便没了动静。出人命了！他死了！人群瞬间大乱，惊呼声四起。就在这一片混乱中，那道佝偻的身影忽然拔高了嗓子，声音里满是震惊与自信。造孽啊！暗潮拄着拐杖，颤巍巍地往前挪了2步，浑浊的老眼含泪望着那具尸体。这是做了亏心事，遭了神明的报应，畏罪自尽了。他一句话，立时给这桩事盖了棺，定死。死人不会开口，主使是谁，线索就此断绝。林州眯起眼，好一招死无对证。这瘸子反应够快，眼看爪牙要咬出他来，立马一个畏罪自尽，把口子堵死，还顺手把脏水泼成了天血。可惜林州踱到那具尸体旁，缓蹲下身，他伸出2根手指，不动声色地看向那女子的鼻息，指尖传来的是一缕微弱却清晰的气味，还有那胸口正以一种极不易察觉的频率微起伏着。林州的嘴角慢慢勾起一抹冷笑，装死，这哪是什么畏罪自尽，分明是灌了迷药，演了一出假死的戏码，好让人查无可查。演技不错，林州心里冷笑，可惜碰上我这个见过现代法医剧的，你这点把戏露馅了。他维持着探鼻息的姿势，垂下的眼帘里寒光一闪。暗潮，你这盘棋下的太满了，满到自己把破绽亲手送到了我面前。第29章断肠毒草，瘸子露馅。别哭了，他死不了。林州收回探在那女子鼻息上的2根手指，缓站起身，声音不大，却像一把刀子齐刷剜进每个人耳朵里。全场一静，刚还嚎得震天的守旧老妪应声把哭腔噎在了喉咙里。神使大人，这是什么意思？枯木拄着拐杖，眼神闪烁。什么意思？林州一脚轻轻踢了踢那尸体的胳膊，那女子的眼皮抖了一下，喉咙里发出一声极轻的呜咽。畏罪自尽的人会喘气，会装抽搐，装到一半忘了翻白眼。他没死。林州环视全场，一字一顿，他是灌了迷药，演给你们看的假死，目的就一个，让你们以为线断了，查不下去了。人群嗡的炸开，那躺在地上的女子再装不下去，干脆睁开眼，缩成一团色发抖。林州却没看他，他抬起头，目光像2道冷箭，直定向人群后方那个佝偻的身影。真正下毒的人。他顿了顿，声音陡然压低，却字字砸进每个人心里。是咱们部落里某位德高望重的长老。暗潮拄着拐杖的手机不可查的抖了一下。神使大人这话可不能乱说。他干瘪的嘴角扯出一丝笑，浑浊的老眼里却翻着寒光。一把岁数的人了，担不起这污蔑。污蔑！林州冷笑一声，慢悠从怀里掏出一个小小的兽皮包。他当着所有人的面把那包东西摊开，里面是一小坨暗绿色的汁液，已经凝成了粘土的膏状。这是从那2个死人嘴角刮下来的。林州把兽皮包举高，断肠草汁液，沾一点能装，喝多了真就死透了。他话锋一转，目光扫向人群一角。巧的是，前阵子有人给我送过一包提神粉末，说是熬夜守夜用的， 我没敢喝，为啥？因为那粉末里的味道跟这断肠草是一个根上长出来的。哗然，枯木的脸刷得白了，半夏站在草药棚门口，垂着眼帘，嘴角勾起一抹极淡的弧度。林州把兽皮包重新收好，目光转向惊蛰。惊蛰，你带弓箭手在外围警惕。我问你，他声音一沉，这2天谁单独去过后山那片背阴的草坡？那地方是断肠草唯一长不出来的地方。惊蛰愣了一下，随即想起什么，脸色古怪起来。他抬起缠着绷带的胳膊，示意着指向人群后方。昨日晌午，暗潮元老独自一个人拄着拐杖往后山去。我当时还纳闷，他腿脚不便，跑那么远的背阴坡干啥？轰！几百道目光齐刷刷打向那道佝偻的身影。暗潮整张脸瞬间铁青。我他的拐杖在雪地里戳了戳，喉咙发紧。我去采药，我腿脚不好，老寒腿犯了，去采点止痛的草药。啊，采药！林州踱了2步，似笑非笑。后山那片背阴坡，除了断肠草，连根能入药的草芽都不长。元老采了一上午，采了个寂寞。暗潮的嘴唇哆嗦着，半个字也吐不出来。神使大人，这是要血口喷人！他猛地拔高嗓门，浑浊的眼里挤出几滴浊泪。老身在血湾部落几十年，没有功劳也有苦劳。你一个外乡来的男人，凭一张嘴就要定老身的罪，天理何在？神明何在？他这一哭一闹，倒真有几个心软的族人面露犹豫。林州眯起眼，老狐狸反咬一口，还想拿资历和神明当挡箭牌。换个愣头青，这会儿他是真要被他搅得阵脚大乱。可惜他不是定罪。林州忽然笑了，背着手慢悠悠摇头，元老误会了，我没说要定你的罪。暗潮哭声一滞，浑浊的眼珠狐疑的瞟过来。神火有眼，但神也讲究个公道。林州环视全场，声音不疾不徐，我给元老3天，3天之内，元老若能拿出去后山采药的实货，明自己清白，这事我当没发生过，亲自给元老赔。可3天之后证不出来。他顿了顿，目光冷得像冰。那就别怪神火认得出谁的心里藏着鬼。仔细，林州这一手比直接拖出去砍了还狠。他没下杀手，没逼到死角，反倒把一把悬在头顶的刀慢悠悠吊了起来。3天，整3天，暗潮都得在证不出清白就要被神火烧成灰的恐惧里一寸一寸的熬，而所有人都在盯着他。高，实在是高。林州心里冷笑，逼急了他狗急跳墙，反倒不吊着他，让他自己先乱了阵脚。啥都讲。暗潮拄着拐杖的手抖得越来越厉害，他张了张嘴，还想再辩，可对上林州那双冷彻的眼睛，那些话全堵在了喉咙。老身清者自清。他从牙缝里挤出一句，佝偻着背，一瘸一拐地往人群外移。那背影再没了半分先前的慈祥，只剩一股说不出的狼狈与愤然。他身后提着先前跟着他起哄的守旧老妪，眼神开始闪烁，悄悄拉开了他的巨头。林州把这一切尽收眼底，嘴角微不可察的一笑。裂了！暗潮和守旧派那条线被这一出焰毒应声撕开了一道。墙倒众人推，等3天后他真栽了，第一个踩他的准是这帮老妪。神使大人英明，神火显灵了。族人们后知后觉得反应过来，爆发出震惊的呼喊。黄兰站在废墟旁，赤红的双眼里憋了一晚上的屈辱总算泄了出去。他瓮声瓮气的冲林州咧嘴，神使，老子就说不是我干的。知道了。林州摆手，木架重新搭，活照干。人群渐渐散去。林州正盘算着重建的工期，眼角余光一扫，后背的汗毛唰的竖了起来。不知何时，一道纤细的身影已经无声无息地凑到了他身侧。小月，那双幽绿色的眸子在火光里亮得瘆人，直勾盯着他刚收进怀里的那个兽皮包。神使大人，他声音低柔，带着一种压抑不住的战栗。你刚才说的花一点刀子，看一眼味道，就知道是不是断肠草。那是神明赐你的验毒之法。他西旁半步凑得更近，呼吸都急迫。教我？想学？林州眯起眼，这疯婆娘刚跪完没2天又来了。别人看的是暗潮倒台，他眼里却只有那点变毒的美。这求知欲真是病到骨子里了。想学？林州没急着答，反而退了半步，居高临下的看着他。小月，你还记得你跪在全族面前承认了什么？小月一愣，随即低下头。神使是唯一的真神使，小月是神使小编的狗，记得就好。林州声音淡漠，神明的智慧是有价的。我教你火，你跪了一次；我教你盐，你又得拿东西换。现在你想学变毒，他顿了顿，盯着他的眼睛，你拿什么换？小月的呼吸一滞，他抬起头，那双绿瞳里翻涌着挣扎、渴望，还有一丝近乎癫狂的执拗。我把神屋历代相传的草药册子全给你。他的声音抖得不成调，那上面记着部落几百年的药方、毒方，我全给你，一页都不留，只要你教我。林州心头一动，历代神屋的草药册子，这玩意儿可比他那破头补法器值钱多了。原始部落几百年试出来的草药知识， 够他少走多少弯路。成交。林州却面不改色，册子明日送来。学得好不好，看你的造化。皎月遵命。他叩首及地，声音里满是得了天大恩赐的狂喜，连指尖都在发颤。林州看着他伏在地上的背影，心里那杆秤又添了一块砝码。挑打施恩，再绑死。这条疯狗喂得越熟，咬人越狠。等用顺手了，捅暗潮，戳枯木，都是一把好刀。起来吧。林州摆手，去守你的温棚。皎月站起身，垂着头退下，可那双绿瞳里的光却比来时更成了紧。他已经彻底成了知识的奴隶，而牵着这根绳子的人是林州。人散尽了，风雪也小了些。林州独自蹲在那片被毁的温棚废墟旁，借着没烧尽的火光，从怀里摸出一个小小的兽皮袋。他解开袋口，把里面的东西一粒摊在掌心。那是几十颗干瘪灰褐色的种子，是他这几天托人从屯粮里、从枯草堆里一点点挑拣出来的耐寒作物。温棚塌了，可以重大。种子在，根就在。林州捏起一颗种子，对着那顶微弱的天光看了看，嘴角慢勾起。7天的军令状，过去了2天。枯木逼宫，被他堵了回去；暗潮下毒，被他吊死了路上。皎月这条疯狗也拴上了链子，可这还远不够。他望向北边那片被踩烂的地基，眼神冷彻而坚定。温棚重建，种子下地，等着第一茬绿芽冒出来。林州把种子重新收好，缓缓站起身。你们就该明白，在这冰天雪地里，谁才是真正能让你们活下去的神。天边一片极淡的灰云正缓缓压向血万部落的上空，那云层背后藏着这片荒野最致命的东西。凛冬第30章，温棚重生，首次播种。庄子在夯深1尺，偷懒了，扣3天口粮。林州站在那片烂泥地基旁，扯着嗓子吼了一句，声音不大，却比谁都管用。几十号壮劳力埋头苦干，没一个敢偷奸耍滑。昨晚那出燕族的好戏，全族都看在眼里。神使要谁的命，神火就烧谁，这话比皮鞭还好使。神使大人，这透光的兽皮真往嘴上泼。一个汉子扛着一张刮得极薄的兽皮，满脸不信。这玩意儿挡得住雪，挡不住雪，挡得住寒。林州蹲下身，伸手抠了抠新夯的地基，硬实、满意、透光，里头才暖得起来。你懂个屁！那汉子扇臂了嘴。白鹿立在材料堆旁，盲眼朝着四面八方，巨盾斜插在雪地里。他寸步不离，谁靠近木料3步，他那双耳朵立马就支棱起来。放心干。白鹿声音平，材料我手上，少一根我赔。林州瞥了他一眼，心里那块石头落了地。暗潮那瘸子被他一句3日正清白吊在火上烤着，这2天缩得跟鹌鹑似的，连人影都见不到。他那帮爪牙更是夹紧了尾巴，生怕一个不留神被牵连进去。怕了就对了。林州心里冷笑，先消停他，等温棚立住，我再回头收拾你。3面幕墙1日就起来了。挡风的方位是林州亲自定的，背着北风，迎着南面那点稀薄的天光。墙缝里塞满了干草活泥，在后湖上一层湿泥。顶上覆的是那几张刮薄的透光兽皮，绷得紧的用木条一根压着。最要紧的是棚子里那条沟，这沟挖来干啥？半下抱着草药篓，凑过来看热闹，流着灌水。一暖，林州拿石锹比划着，沟里头烧火，热气顺着沟走，整个棚子都热乎。外头大雪封山，里头照样跟开春似的。半夏眨了眨眼，那双含水的眸子里头一回露出真切的惊奇。还能这么说？神明教的。林州眼皮都没抬，顺嘴就把锅甩给了神。这套说辞他用顺手了。原始人脑子转不过现代蛙，推给神明省事。棚子搭成那一刻，林州亲自钻了进去。里头没风，火塘的余温顺着地暖宫漫开，竟真比外头暖了不止1星半点。他呼出一口气，白雾淡了许多。成了。他从怀里摸出那个兽皮袋，解开，几十颗灰褐的种子躺在掌心。这是他这几天从存粮和枯草堆里一地挑出来的耐寒货色。塌了的温棚能重大，种子要是没了，根就断了。林州蹲下身，在松软的软土上一指一个坑，把种子小心塞进去。半夏，过来，在呢。半夏凑近，记着。林州抓起一把草木灰，又掺了点碾碎的谷粉，一点风干的授粉，灰、土、粪，按这个数掺匀了，撒在种子上面。这叫肥料，给苗子吃的。苗子也要吃东西。半夏睁大了眼，跟人一样，吃饱了才长壮。半夏似懂非懂，却把那比例仔细进了脑子里。他比谁都明白，这门道往后就是他攥在手里的武器。最后一粒种子埋下，林州拍了拍手上的门。就在这时，检测到宿主完成原始农耕首次播种，达成里程碑成就，农业科技树正式点亮。奖励文明点加500，解锁土科技轮作育种堆肥。宿主体质突破，当前体质18-20，逼近常人极限。林州心头一震，一股暖流顺着4肢百骸窜开，浑身的疲惫竟消了大半。500文明点，他眼睛一亮，够我放好几样硬货。科技树这玩意儿 点亮一个分支，往后就是一整片的连锁结构。育种、轮作、堆肥、粮食产量能繁着根头往上涨。熬过这个冬天，血万部落就再也不是那个靠天吃饭的破部落。林州攥紧拳头，眼底烧着火。神使大人！棚口忽然传来一道低柔的声音。林州头皮一麻，回头一看，皎月不知何时立在棚外，那双忧虑的眸子直勾盯着棚里那片新翻的暖土，瘆人呀！想学变毒，跑这儿来了。林州眯起眼，不是。皎月摇头，西行半步，声音压得极低，带着一丝执拗的颤。皎月想，替神使守着这温棚，日夜守着。任何人想动里头的种子，得先从皎月身上踏过去。林州挑眉，这疯婆娘倒是个等活干。守温棚既能日贴着他，又能名正言顺地盯着这片神明的命，一举两得，算盘打噼啪响。守可以，林州却不接他的茬，慢悠悠站起身，居高临下。不过规矩不定。什么规矩？皎月仰起脸。从今往后，你每日进棚之前，林州一字一顿，先在棚口跪拜，拜神明，也拜我这个唯一的真神使。拜完了才许进。皎月一愣，棚里静了一瞬，火塘的光跳在他脸上明灭。林州死盯着他的眼睛，心里那根弦绷得紧的。这一手是敲打，皎月的病娇劲儿顺着会爬上头，得时不时拿规矩压一压，让他记着谁是主子，谁是脚边的狗。皎月遵命。出乎意料，他非但没恼，反而眼底骤然爆出一簇近乎癫狂的光，扑通一声跪了下去，额头重磕在棚口的洞土上。能日跪拜真神使是皎月的福分，他声音抖得不成调，谢神使大人赐皎月这份恩礼。林州后背窜起一股寒意，得，又是个把折磨当恩赐的。这病娇的脑回路，他是真琢磨不透。起来吧，他摆手，声音淡漠，手好吧，少一粒种子，我拿你是问。皎月明白。他爬起来，垂着头退到棚口，像一尊静直的石像，纹丝不动。那双绿土里的光却比来时更盛了。林州瞥了他一眼，心里冷哼，这条疯狗拴得越紧，往后捅起暗潮，拖起枯木才越好使。夜深了，风雪小了些，林州独自留在温棚里，就着地暖沟的余温，盘算着明日的公祭。棚帘忽然被人掀开，一股冷风卷着雪沫子灌进来，紧接着一道高大的身影钻了进来。赤渊，他披着那件赤红狐皮，脸被外头的寒风刮得发红，这会儿一进暖棚，又被火光轰着，满面通红。你怎么来了？林州有些意外。赤渊没立刻答，他那双琥珀色的眸子慢慢扫过棚里那片新翻的暖土，扫过那一排被薄土盖着的种子坑，半晌没出声。这底下他忽然开口，声音竟比平日柔了许多，真能长出吃的。林州一怔，这母暴龙平日里说话跟劈柴似的，今晚这嗓音软得他差点没听出来。他点头，蹲下身，指着那片土，7天发芽，20天抽叶，等开了春，头一茬就能收，收了再种，种了再收。林州抬起头看着他，以后血万部落顿有吃的，再不用看老天爷的脸色。赤渊的呼吸机不可差的顿了一下，他蹲下来与林州平视，火光在他眼底跳，那张野性的脸此刻竟有几分说不出的柔和。我从前以为他声音很低，一个部落能不能活，全看猎物多不多，看战士的拳头硬不硬。可你来了以后，他顿足，似乎在斟酌此句，言我退敌重击，你让我看见了我这辈子都没敢想的东西。林州没接话，他知道这母暴龙这是在谢他，平日里那身刺这会儿一根都收了起来。林州，赤渊忽然抬起手，那只布满老茧能徒手掰断狼脖子的手，此刻却轻轻握住了他的手腕，掌心滚烫。你立了军令状，7天在温棚。他盯着他，眼眶微微泛红，还剩5天，我信你，可我要的不止这个。林州瞳孔一缩，你想要什么？赤渊握着他手腕的力道挺了紧，你让部落活下去。他一字一顿，声音里有种近乎郑重的东西，真能让大伙熬过这个冬天。那配种的是，我不逼你，我等你。棚里静得能听见火塘里柴火爆裂的轻响。林州看着他那双泛红的眼，一时竟没说出话来。他心里飞快盘算，这母暴龙的死可不是退让，是认定了，是把他从一个有用的外乡男人挪到了值得走的位置上。慕强的种，认死理。林州心里苦笑，这是把我当成他的强了，是福是祸，眼下还说不清。成，他点了点头，没多说，等温棚的苗子冒头，你就知道我没诓你。赤渊松开手，站起身，他最后看了一眼那片暖土，转身掀帘出去。冷风又灌了一下，棚帘落下。林州独自坐在火光里，捏了捏被他握过的那截手腕，还含着一点温度。他摇头，把那点说不清的情绪压下去，起身要去查看进暖沟的方式。刚走到棚口，一片极轻极冷的东西落在了他的眼睫上。林州一抬头，棚外漆黑的夜空里，一片雪花正打着旋儿，缓缓飘落。紧接着是第2片、第3片，不多时，鹅毛般的大雪无声无息的铺天盖地压了下来，转眼就染白了整片营地。 林州的瞳孔骤然收缩。凛冬到了，他猛地想起系统面板上那个刺眼的倒计时，后背瞬间渗出一层冷汗。风雪封山，猎物绝迹，存粮本就见底，这一场大雪压下来，只会雪上加霜。温棚里的种子还没发芽，可外头的存肉窖等不起了。林州子盯着那漫天大雪，牙关咬紧。真正的硬仗这才刚开始。第31章，凛冬降临，时段危机。神使大人，狩猎队又空手回来了。金哲先连冲进温棚，浑身的血没化，脸冻得发青，声音里带着哭腔。林州猛地抬头，第几天了？第3天。金哲咬着牙，3天一根兽毛都没逮着。雪太大，野兽全躲洞里了，咱们的人出去差点没回得来。林州的心一寸一寸沉下去。这场暴风雪来得太猛，3天3夜没歇过一口气。积雪莫息，营地里的窝棚被压开了好几座，连出门撒泡尿都得拿命去拼。存粮还剩多少？金哲垂下头，声音低得几乎听不见。昨晚分完最后一罩肉干了。林州闭了闭眼，完了，这下是真见死了。娃们饿得整宿哭。金哲的拳头攥得咯响，几个老的已经开始树皮了。神使大人，再这么下去，我知道。林州打断他，扶着棚壁站起身，刚一起来，眼前就是一黑，腿肚子直打晃。这具身子被他这几天连轴转给榨干了，电毒、监工、播种、茶地暖沟，加上吃不饱，体质那点刚长上来的家底又被掏空了。神使大人，金哲一把扶住他，没事。林州摆手扒开他的手，硬撑着往棚外挪，扶我去看看苗子。温棚里那条地暖沟我没断过，借着那点暖意，几十个种子坑里竟真冒出了新点的嫩芽。可那芽太小了，掐指一算，离能吃的那一天少说还得半个月。半个月，林州蹲在苗子旁，盯着那点可怜的绿，喉咙发苦。外头的人等不了半个月，1天都等不了。远水解不了近渴，这是把刀架在脖子上的死局。系统能换粮食吗？林州在心里默念。抱歉，宿主，粮食类物资尚未解锁，需点亮仓储科技分支，当前文明点不足。林州差点没气笑。关键时刻，这破系统比谁都靠不住。棚帘又被掀开，一股冷风裹着雪沫子灌进来。赤渊钻了进来，那张野性的脸冻得发白，琥珀色的眸子里头一回有凝重。林州，他声音哑，外头乱了。怎么？几个手就拍的老货又开始嚷了。赤渊咬牙，说什么神使盖了暖房，自己人却要饿死，神明根本没看上血万不如。还有人闹着要把温棚里的种子刨出来煮了吃。林州瞳孔一缩，刨种子。他猛地站起来，又是一阵天旋地转。那是种子，吃了开春就彻底断根了。我知道。赤渊扶住他，眉头拧成死结。可饿极了的人听不进这个，他们只看眼前。林州扶着棚壁，大口喘气，这就是绝境。理智在饿肚子面前一文不值，他得想办法，不光要弄到吃的，还得把这帮快疯了的人重新摁住。赤渊，把核心的人都叫来，我有话。神使大人。一道低柔的声音从棚口飘进来，像根针，扎得林州头皮发麻。皎月，他不知何时立在帘外，忧虑的眸子在风雪里亮渗人，一身单薄的兽皮被雪打湿了，他却像不知道冷，直勾盯着林州。你来干啥？林州眯起眼，皎月西行半步，凑得更近，声音压得极低，带着一丝压不住的战。皎月，能就不了。哦，林州眉梢一挑，你能变出粮食？不能。皎月摇头，那双绿瞳里翻涌着一种近乎癫狂的虔诚。可皎月能换来神力。他西行又进一步，单薄的兽皮贴着冻土，声音抖不成调。部落古籍里记着，神武与神使双修，能通天地，引神力。神一降，猎物自来，寒冬自退。神使大人这几日被掏空了，皎月看得出。他仰起脸，绿瞳直勾盯着他，今夜让皎月试不赢。皎月把这身子、这血脉全献给你，神力一痛，部落就活了。林州后背的汗毛刷得全竖了起来。来了，这疯婆娘憋了这么久，总算图穷匕现。什么双修通神力，全是放屁。他真正想要的是借着侍奉的名头，把他这个神使彻底攥进手心，既占了身子，又能名正言顺地操控他那点神明的命。跟暗潮夺权、枯木逼众是一个根上的歪心。只不过皎月这刀藏在前程里头更强。双修通神力，林州冷笑，古籍哪页记的？翻给我看看。皎月一噎，是历代神武口相传的。他眼神闪了闪，随即又狂热起来。神使大人若信皎月，今夜一试便知。打住！林州摆手，我有别的办法，用不着你这套。皎月却不依不饶，他忽然西行的退到棚口，转身就冲外头那片乱哄的人群扯着嗓子嚎了起来。神使大人不肯那神力，他的声音又尖又利，刺破风雪。皎月愿现身通神，救全族于水火。神使大人却不肯。 难道神使大人是要眼睁看着咱们饿死冻死在这冰天雪地里？哗！雪地里那几百号恶红了眼的族人齐刷扭过头来，几百道目光像几百根针全扎在林州身上，有怀疑，有怨怼，有快被饥饿逼疯的歇斯底里。神使真不肯救咱们，皎月神物都愿现身了，神使咋还推三阻四？我娃都快饿死了，神使大人，你倒是发慈悲啊！人群骚动起来，眼看就要往温棚这边涌。林州站在棚口，后背的冷汗把里头那层兽皮都浸透了。好一招以退为进，这疯婆娘借着全族的命把他架在火上烤。他今夜要是不双休，就成了见死不救的假神使；要是同了，就彻底落进他的圈套。阴是真阴，皎月啊！林州死盯着他跪在雪地里的背影，一字一顿从牙缝里挤出来。你这是在逼宫。皎月回过头，那双绿瞳里泪光与狂热交织，看着竟有几分凄楚。皎月不敢，他叩首及地，声音抖得撕心裂肺。皎月只想救不勇。神使大人若有别的法子，皎月这就把头磕碎在这儿。谢神使大人，漂亮，把自己摘得干干净净，还反手把拿不出办法的死结又塞回了林州手里。林州扶着棚壁，胸膛剧烈起伏，他知道此刻退一步，威望就崩一寸。这疯婆娘和那帮水旧派正等着看他下不来台，可他偏不下台。给我闭嘴！林州猛地拔高嗓门，那一嗓子竟把满营的嘈杂应声压了下去。他扒开赤渊的手，独自一步步挪到棚口的高处，借着没烧尽的火光扫视全场。双修从神力他冷笑一声，声音陡然森冷，放屁！神明的力量从来不在床上，在这他一指温棚，又一指北边那片被雪埋住的山林，在地里，在山里。你们要吃的是把林州环视那一张恶狠了的脸，声音一字一顿，砸得地上的雪都仿佛震着。给我半天，今夜之前，我让全族每人嘴里都有一口热乎肉，全场死寂。随即轰下开了锅，皎月跪在雪地里，那双绿瞳骤然睁大，里头的狂热一瞬凝固，化成了难以置信的错愕。他精心设的局被林州一句话硬生生从中间劈成了两半。林州却没再看他，他盯着北边那片白茫茫的山林，眼底烧着一簇谁也压不灭的火。可只有他自己知道，撂下这句狠话，他这具刚饿空了的身子到底要拿命去填多少。半天林州在心里咬牙，老子这是把自己也吓唬了。风雪呼啸，那簇压不灭的火在他眼底越烧越亮。第32章，风雪围困，绝地求生。双修通神力，神使大人怕是被掏空了脑子吧？皎月还跪在雪地里，那双绿瞳里的狂热刚凝住，手就派的尖嗓子就先炸了起来。枯木拄着头骨拐杖，一步一挪挤到前头，浑浊的老眼里全是看好戏的幸灾乐祸。半天弄到热肉，他唾沫横飞，狩猎队连输3天，一根兽毛都没逮着。神使大人嘴皮子一碰，肉就从天上掉下来了。我看啊，是糊涂了，说胡话呢。人群里跟着起了一阵哄笑，可那笑声里藏着的全是绝望。林州扶着棚壁，缓缓直起腰，他没去理皎月，先弯腰，伸手把那跪在雪里冻得发抖的疯婆娘拽了起来。起来！他声音沙哑，却不砸地。你那套通神的鬼话，我用不着，我有别的办法。皎月被他拽得一个趔趄，绿瞳里闪过一丝错愕。林州却一转过身，面向那一张恶狠的脸。枯木，你说肉不会从天上掉下来，这话对。他冷笑，可肉能从这儿？他一指营地角落那几间堆杂物的破窝棚，长出来。枯木一愣，你又要装什么神弄什么鬼？惊蛰！林州没搭理他，扭头就喊，把存肉窖最后那几块生肉全给我搬出来。白鹿带人去砍青木、石柴，越潮越好。半夏、魏延一连串令下去，干脆利落。族人虽然不明所以，却被他那股子镇静劲儿带动的，七手八脚动了起来。神使大人，这是要干啥？金哲扛着2块冻硬的生肉跑过来，满脸不解。这点肉全族分，一人塞牙缝都不够，谁说要分着吃了？林州蹲下身，指挥人在窝棚里架起木架，我要把他们变成能存1冬天的东西。他心里飞快盘算，烟熏这玩意儿，现在家呼腊月都干。生肉用清烟慢熏，水分一滴出去，外头揭一层壳，里头肉质紧实，搁阴凉地儿能存大半年不坏。眼下这点存肉分着吃，今晚就见底。可要是熏成肉干，掰成血块，配着野菜熬汤，能把全族的命应声往后调好些天。吊住命就有了狩猎，等苗子发芽的本钱。青木点不着，光冒烟。白鹿拖来一捆湿漉的柴，盲眼朝着火塘的方向。这烟呛人，要的就是枪。林州把生肉一条挂上木架，烟越浓越好，肉熏得越痛。他把窝棚的门窗都用兽皮封死，只留一道缝排气。石柴一点，登时浓烟滚滚，整间棚子都灰蒙蒙的。撒盐！林州招手，半夏赶紧把那一小袋粗盐递上来。他抓起盐，一把抹在生肉上，又揉又搓。盐能逼水，还能防腐。他一边干一边解释，半夏在旁边看得眼睛都不眨，把那手法仔细进脑子里。浓烟熏了约莫1个时辰， 林州掀开兽皮一角，伸手摘下一条熏得焦黄的肉，掰开，里头的肉水分逼干了大半，颜色暗红，凑近一闻，一股子柴火的焦香，混着咸味，霸道钻进鼻子。成了，他撕下一小条，塞进嘴里嚼了嚼，咸香有嚼劲。听着，分下去，每人一小条，配热水。林州把那串肉干递出去，记着是吊命的，谁也不许多吃。第一条熏肉干递到一个饿得发昏的老妪嘴里时，那老太嚼着嚼着，浑浊的老眼里竟滚出泪来。有肉味，是真有肉味啊！营地里那股快要压垮所有人的绝望，被这一口咸香的热乎肉硬生撕开了一道口子。人群骚动起来，先前还跟着枯木起哄的那帮人，这会儿全静了声。林州扫了一眼脸色铁青的枯木，心里冷哼，打脸就得用实打实的东西，空口白话喊1万句神明，不如让他们嘴里丢一口肉。可他没敢松气，烟熏肉是吊命的法子，治标不治本，这点纯肉熏完还是会见底。要从根上活下去，得有新猎物进账。听着，林州把人群里的核心成员叫到一旁，声音压低：不对，跟我进山。惊蛰一惊，这鬼天气，进山就是送命，不进山，全族慢慢饿死。林州眼神冷硬，我带狂澜、白鹿，再加3个能砍，半天之内必须打着东西回来。我去！一道粗哑的声音抢先炸响。狂澜从废墟那头大步跨过来，赤红的眼里全是憋了一冬的狠劲。老子伐了3天木头，正手里，神使去哪？老子跟到哪？林州瞥他一眼，心里那点算盘噼啪一响，苦力赎罪，正好，这母老虎力气大，关键时候能扛能拖。成，他点头，白鹿顾问，狂澜开路，出发。风雪太大了，6个人裹着兽皮，深一脚浅一脚往北边山林扎，雪没到大腿根，每挪一步都要拿命去踢。林州走在中间，体质虽长到了18，可饿了几顿，那点家底早被掏空，没多久就喘得像破风箱。使，要不歇？狂澜扛着骨毛走在最前，回头粗声粗气地问。不歇。林州咬牙，猎物趁早，晚了他们走得更深。追踪了大半日，雪地里连个像样的兽蹄印都难寻，野兽全缩进洞里猫冬了，谁也不愿在这种天气出来送死。直到日头偏西，狂澜才在一片雪坡下逮着一只瘦的皮包骨的雪兔。那兔子刚冒头，狂澜一毛掷出，正中要害，逮着了。他拎着兔子，咧嘴一笑，那张凶脸难得有了几分活气。林州看着那只兽兔，心里却沉了下去。就这么一只，还不够塞牙死的。再找。他抹了把脸上的雪，刚要起身，天骤然变了，原本就大的风雪陡然狂暴起来，狂风卷着雪粒，刮得人睁不开眼，几步之外就是白茫茫一片，啥也看不清。不好，暴风雪要把他们困死在这儿。白鹿忙眼朝着风向，巨盾横在身前挡风，声音里头一回一急，找地方躲。林州嘶吼，6个人在风雪里跌撞，总算摸到一口背风的山洞。钻进去那一刻，洞外的风雪声被隔在外头，几个人瘫坐在地，大口大口的喘。林州靠着洞壁，浑身的劲儿像被抽干了，这具身子到底没扛住。验毒、监工、熏肉，再加这一路狂奔，他能撑到现在没倒下，全靠一口气吊着。咳，一阵剧烈的咳嗽忽然从干草堆那头传来。林州扭头一看，心一下子提了起来。狂澜，那向来生龙活虎的母老虎，此刻歪在干草堆上，整张脸烧得通红，嘴唇干裂，浑身止不住地打颤。狂澜，林州挪过去，伸手一探他额头，烫得吓人。他连日伐木，又淋了雪，风寒，烧起来了。白鹿摸黑凑过来，眉头紧锁，再这么烧下去，人要废。林州的心一寸沉下去。洞外暴风雪封死了路，回部落没门。这洞里又冷又潮，缺医少药，眼睁看着狂澜烧。系统，他在心里急喊，退烧的话，检测到宿主持有，基础退烧药第1。林州瞳孔一缩，那是他兑换的最后一只，一直贴身藏着，留着保命的。这破地方，谁也说不准下一刻会出啥岔。这支药是他自己最后的一道护身符。可他低头看着狂澜烧得通红，意识开始模糊的脸，那张平日里凶得能吓哭娃的脸，此刻竟透着一股说不出的脆弱。喂，为啥？这来狂澜烧得迷糊，嘴里还嘟囔着老子能扛。林州死盯着他，救他自己就没了退路，不救这母老虎今晚就得交代在这儿。洞外风雪呼啸，火光在洞壁上明灭不定。林州盯着掌心那只凭空浮现的药雨，喉结狠狠滚动一下。第33章，山洞一夜，爆土软化，扛得住个屁！林州掰开狂澜干裂的嘴唇，把那只药剂里的液体一滴不剩灌了进去。狂澜烧得迷糊，下意识要吐，却被林州死按住下巴，咽下去。他声音冷硬，敢吐出来，老子把你扔出洞外喂血！也不知是这话管用，还是药劲上头。狂澜喉结滚了滚，硬生生把那口苦液咽了下去。林州松开手，瘫坐在干草堆旁，后背抵着冰冷的洞壁，大口喘气。最后一只了， 那是他贴身藏了好些天的保密符。这鬼地方，谁也说不准下一刻会蹦出什么要命的茬。可他偏偏把他喂给了一个嚷着要把天下男人都榨干弄死的母老虎。亏不亏？林州在心里冷笑，亏到家了。可话又说回来，这母老虎力气大，能扛能拖，是块练兵的好料子。眼下能打的女战士本就稀缺，死一个少一个。这笔账算下来，就他倒也不全是苦的买卖。林州扯了扯嘴角，自己给自己找补。洞外暴风雪还在嚎，白鹿盘腿坐在洞口，巨盾横在膝上，那双盲眼望着风雪翻卷的方向，一动不动，像分尸一样。3个能打的战士缩在另一头，冻得直打哆嗦，可没一个人吭声。火堆是白鹿摸黑用尸柴勉强引着的，烟大火小，却好歹有点暖意。时间一点点熬，约莫过了半个时辰，黄兰额头上那层吓人的滚烫，竟真一切退了下去。他干裂的嘴唇蠕动着，眼皮颤了几下，缓缓睁开。那双向来凶的能吓哭娃的赤红眼睛，此刻雾蒙蒙的，透着一股说不出的虚弱。他盯着头顶的洞壁愣了半晌，才扭过头，看见近在咫尺的林州。为啥救我？第一句话粗哑的像砂纸磨过石头。林州没接话，他弯腰从地上捡起一根半干的柴，扔进火堆里。火星噼啪溅起，照亮了他半张冷淡的脸。黄兰也不催，就那么直勾盯着他。洞里静下来，只剩风雪声和柴火爆裂的清响。沉默了好一阵，黄兰忽然开口，声音低的几乎要被风声吞掉。我娘。他顿住，喉咙里像堵着什么。我娘就是被男人害死的。林州添柴的手机不可查的停了一下。他没看他，可耳朵竖了起来。小时候部落里抓回来一个外乡男人。黄兰的声音飘忽，像是从很远的地方传来，长得挺周正，嘴也甜。那时候我娘是头领，是头领啊！他自嘲的扯了下嘴角，扯得伤口似的，那么硬气一个女人，硬是被他那张嘴几句好听话红软了。他信他，信的连族里的规矩都肯为他过。林州没出声，他大概猜到了后头。后来那男人趁夜跑了，黄兰的指甲伸掐进掌心，讨救呗。可他临走，怕我娘追，怕我娘拦，他的声音走了。他在我娘的水囊里下了毒，我亲眼看着他膝跳流血，死在我面前。他到死都不信，说那男人不会害他，说一定是搞错了。火光跳动，并在狂澜赤红的眼里烧出一片尸。从那天起，我就发了誓，他一字一顿，咬牙切齿，天底下的男人全他娘一个货死，该被绑起来榨干最后一个用子，然后死掉。洞里死寂，那3个缩在角落的战士大气都不敢喘。白鹿在洞口微微侧了侧头，林州盯着火堆，半晌没说话。他心里那点弯绕，这会儿总算理顺了。难怪这母老虎一见着他就跟见了仇人似的，恨不得生啖血肉。原来根子在这儿。一个被男人骗死了娘的女人，把恨刻进了骨头里。狗血！林州心里默念，可越狗血越真。他忽然有点明白，为什么赤渊宁可关他，也没真要他的命。这母老虎不是天生的疯，是被逼出来的。你和他们不一样。黄兰忽然又开口，盯着林州的眼神复杂了，有探究，有戒备，还有一丝他自己都没察觉的松动的东西。你救我图啥？他追问。图我这身子，还是图我感激你，往后给你卖命？都不图。林州终于开了口，声音淡得没半点起伏。他扭头迎上黄兰那双赤红的眼。我不需要你信任。黄兰一怔，也不需要你感激。林州把最后半截柴扔进火里，火光轰得炕高。我只需要你听话。等风雪停了，他盯着他，一字一顿。你要么继续给我搬木头当苦力，搬到我满意为止；要么……他顿了顿，眼底烧着一簇旁人看不懂。帮我练一支能打仗的队伍出来。黄兰彻底愣住了，他张着嘴，半天没合上。练队伍这3个字像一记闷锤，打在他心口最软的地方。他娘曾经也想练一支真正能打的女战士队伍，护着部落不受人欺，可没等做成，人就没了。这么多年，没人再提过这茬。在血万部落，女人生来就是繁衍的工具，争权的筹码，谁会真把打仗当回事？可眼前这个他恨之入骨的男人，却轻佻的把这件他娘没做完的事递到了他面前。你狂澜的喉咙发紧，你知道你在说什么吗？知道。林州靠回洞壁，闭上眼，一副懒得多费唇舌的样子。我手底下缺个能镇得住场子的练兵的，你力气大，够狠，够横，正合适。当然，前提是他眼皮都没抬，你得听我的。我让你往东，你不能往西。洞口，白鹿那张盲脸又微侧了侧，他什么都没说，可那竖起的耳朵明摆着把这一席话一字不落听了进去。黄兰子盯着林州闭眼的侧脸，胸膛剧烈起伏，恨是真的恨。可这男人跟他记忆里那个害死他娘的嘴甜心黑的男人就实在不一样。那个男人嘴上全是花，要的是逃命；这个男人嘴上全是刺，要的却是让部落活下去。他想骂他几句，想像往常那样啐他一脸，可话到嘴边却一个字都吐不出来。最后 他只是别过脸，瓮声瓮气的从牙缝里挤出3个字：再说吧。林州眼皮动了动，没睁眼，嘴角却机不可察的跳了一下。成了，这母老虎松口了。虽然只松了那么一丝缝，可缝一开，往后就有的是法子，把这根硬骨头一点点掰到自己这边来。喂得越熟，咬人越狠。林州在心里盘算，暗槽、枯木，往后有的是地方用得着他这把刀。风雪一刻没停，洞外的天黑得像泼了。林州靠着洞壁假寐，实则脑子转个不停。明日风雪若还不停，他们就得被困死在这儿。可若停了，怀里揣着烟熏的法子，地里冒了芽的种子，还有这刚松了口的母老虎，血湾部落这盘死棋也算真盘活了一遭。火堆渐渐弱了下来，白鹿默不作声的起身，又往里头添了根柴。他望了一眼睡在草堆上的狂澜，又望了一眼闭目养神的林州，那张忙脸上看不出半分情绪。只是他重新坐回洞口时，把巨盾横得更稳了些。3个人各怀心思，火光在洞壁上明灭灭，把3道影子拉得忽长忽短。外头风雪呼啸，仿佛要把整座山林都掀翻。可这小的山洞里，那点微弱的暖意却应声撑过了一夜。天快亮时，林州迷迷糊糊听见狂澜翻了个身，急惊的嘟囔了一句：练队伍的事，我考虑考虑。林州没应声，可那簇压在心底的火又往上窜了窜。第34章凯旋归族，情敌环伺。风停了，白鹿盘腿坐在洞口，忙眼朝着外头，声音平淡，血也不止。林州睁开眼，洞外那片黑了一夜的天泛起了灰白，火堆只剩最后几点暗红的炭明灭着，眼看就要熄。他撑着洞壁站起来，浑身的骨头都在叫。走！林州扭头看向干草堆上的狂澜，那母老虎昨夜松了口，天亮前又烧迷糊了过去，这会儿也害怕，人事不省，嘴里嘟囔着谁也听不清的胡话。退烧药压住了一阵，可他连日伐木淋雪又饿，鼻子堵通了，这一觉睡得跟死过去似的，扛不动了，留这儿等死。林州蹲下身，咬牙把他那深横肉往肩上一架，沉，跟扛了头死谋似的。他刚长到18的体质，被这一夜折腾的所剩无几，膝盖一软，差点没栽下去。神使，我来！那3个战士里头有一个要上前，滚开！林州硬撑着，咬着牙站直，我扛回去的人，给我自己扛进部落。他心里门儿清，这一趟猎物就一只瘦的皮包骨的雪兔，拎回去都嫌寒碜。可神使冒死进山，亲手把人从风雪里背回来，这份排场比10只肥兔子都金贵。威望这玩意儿就得这么一点点累，赔本的买卖也得做出赚的样子。林州在心里冷笑，扛着狂澜，一脚深一脚潜着踏出了洞口。部落的瞭望火，老远就望火，回来了，神使回来了！惊蛰的嗓子先炸了开来，整个营地呼啦涌出一片血停了，可寒气还压在地上。族人裹着兽皮，缩着脖子，眼里却烧着一股子劫后余生的光。神使大人冒着暴风雪进山，又活着回来了，还背着狂澜。狂澜病倒了，神使硬是把他背回来了。神明保佑，神明真没弃了咱们血万部落。林州扛着狂澜，一步步往营地中央挪，脸冻得发青，肩膀压得快不是自己了，可那腰板硬挺着，一分没差。人群自动让出一条道，无数道目光，敬畏的、狂热的，全砸在他身上。看见没？林州心里盘算，这一趟比熏食窝肉都管用。林州，一道熟悉的声音从人群最前头传来，是渊。他披着那件赤红狐皮，大步迎上来，那张野性的脸先是松了口气的舒展，可他的目光只在林州脸上停了一瞬，下一刻就落到了他肩上那个昏迷的狂澜身上。是渊的脚步顿了一下，林州没察觉，他正喘得厉害，他风寒烧得厉害。林州哑着嗓子，我用了最后一支药，先压下去，得赶紧弄个暖和地儿，熬姜汤。是渊嗯了一声，可那双琥珀色的眸子却死盯着狂澜搭在林州背上，无疑是攥紧了他衣领的那只手。他敏锐得很，这母老虎平日里见着男人就跟见了仇人，恨不得生啖其肉。可此刻哪怕烧得人事不省，那只手攥着林州衣领的劲儿，那张脸贴着林州后背的姿势，透着一股说不清道不明的东西。世渊的眉头机不可察地拧了一下，辛苦了。他伸出手把狂澜从林州肩上接过来，动作很稳，声音也柔，仙境呜歇着。狂澜交给我。林州卸了重担，差点没瘫地上。他抹了把脸上的冰茶，没听出赤渊那柔声里头藏着的那一丝凉。成。他点头，姜汤多放。我懂。赤渊打断他，扛着狂澜转身就走，那背影挺得笔直。林州揉着发酸的肩，没多想。可人群边上另一道目光却从头到尾一刻没挪。小月，他立在祭台的阴影里，单薄的兽皮裹着身子，忧虑的眸子像两团鬼火。他看着林州把狂澜飞回来，看着赤渊的脸色变了又变，看着那个被他设过局想借神拳整死的母老虎，此刻竟攥着神使的衣领。小月那双绿瞳深处一丝阴冷，悄无声息地凝了起来。他什么都没说， 垂下头，转身钻进了祭台后头。大午夜，林州睡得跟死狗似的，连着2顿热食下肚，加上一觉，赖着被掏空的体质，总算缓过来。可部落的另一头，黄兰养病的窝棚外，正悄没声的立着一个人。小月，他裹着一身祭祀的白皮，手里捧着个盛了草灰水的陶碗，忧虑的眸子在夜色里亮着。黄兰，他先连进去，声音轻得像飘。黄兰烧退了大半，正歪在草堆上灌姜汤。一抬头，看见是小月，那张刚有了点血色的胸脸立马沉了下来。你来干啥？他瓮声瓮气的，老子跟你没话说。进化仪式，小月把陶碗往他面前一递，绿红直勾盯着他。你与神使大人同土一动一夜，沾了不洁的气。得劲！放屁！黄兰一巴掌把那碗扫到一边，草灰水泼了一地。老子病！你拿这玩意儿来恶心人！小月也不恼，他蹲下身凑近了些，那张惯常虔诚的脸此刻一点笑都没有。黄兰，他声音压得极低，像真神使大人是神明的使者，那个位置他一字一顿，不是你能染指的。黄兰一愣，随即火腾的窜上来。你说什么？他猛地坐起，伤还没好，憋红了脸。老子染指什么了？老子背了3天木头，烧得半死，神使把老子救回来，关你什么事？你看他的眼神变了。小月轻飘飘一句，黄兰的瞳孔骤然一缩。胡说！他梗着脖子，可那声音到底虚了人。小月看在眼里，嘴角机不可察的翘了一下。我看得清楚楚。他站起身，居高临下。你这种被男人害过，又恨又怕的母老虎，最是经不起人对你好。神使随手救了你一回，你这心就软了。啪！黄兰一拳狠狠砸在身后的石壁上，石屑处往下掉，他的指节当场绽开，血珠子渗出来，他却像不知道疼。小月，他赤红着眼，胸膛剧烈起伏。你他娘的，再说一个！我不说了。小月却轻笑一声，转过了身。那笑里头没半点暖，瘆人的很。他掀开棚帘，外头的寒气灌进来，吹得他